Our story starts off in an office space in Seoul, South Korea, and it's dead silent except for a clock ticking on the wall. The guildmaster Andante is sitting at his desk reviewing a document, and the vibe is tense. He's looking at this resume, and the name catches his eye. Jin Hyosep, S-Class Guide. Andante taps his finger on that S-rank marking, and he's clearly confused about something. Andante looks up at the guy sitting across from him and wants to know why the hell an S-Class would apply to their guild. Our boy Jin is looking professional but completely nervous because he knows he cannot screw this up. Jin confirms this is the job he wants, but Andante is still skeptical and doesn't believe this kid can be serious. As an S-Class, Jin could literally work at the National Security Agency, so why the freak would he want to join a C-Class guild? The math is not mathing here. Nonetheless, Jin lets it be known that he is willing to work but only under one condition. He won't do anything beyond the basic physical guiding. Andante shows empathy and claims to understand where Jin is coming from. But still, he finds it very difficult to hire someone who won't go beyond physical guiding, even if he's an S-Class. However, Andante doesn't quite shut the door on Jin. He informs Jin that their guild is different and is curious as to why Jin picked their guild. Andante further explains the difference in their guild, noting that their latest job was looking for cats, which he thought was quite the difficult task. Andante gives off some reverse psychology vibes and lets Jin know that their agency is an odd-job agency and doesn't need him at all. Confused, Jin questions that line of thinking because they literally put out an ad looking for a guide. Andante defends his stance by explaining to Jin that they are looking for guides because when there aren't any jobs to do, the toxins build up in their bodies. This makes perfect sense to Jin and supports his reasoning as to why just holding hands is enough for the job. Surprisingly, Andante actually agrees with Jin's thought process, but is concerned with Jin's salary because he is an S-Class. Without even knowing Jin's price, Andante lets it be known that they probably can't afford Jin because they are broke AF. Either this dude Andante is a master negotiator or this is the most amateur negotiations I've ever seen. Anyway, Andante is eager to hear Jin's price, and our boy Jin starts spewing out a bunch of shit that he should have kept to himself. He states that the bare minimum he needs to survive is $3.1 million won, which is about $3,100. Then he starts questioning if his measly 3.1 million won is too much to ask for, and talks himself into believing that he's asking for too much. Andante laughs at our boy's poor negotiation skills and hires him on the spot. Jin has no idea that he just got fucked on this negotiation, but he's happy. Andante knows our boy doesn't know his worth and wants to sign the contract ASAP. Note to self, if someone accepts your first offer and wants to sign immediately, you're cooked. Grateful for the job, Jin politely bows, but then Andante asks Jin an important question. Has he decided his bond partner yet? Jin is confused by the question, so Andante lays out the typical procedures. Most guides select an esper to protect them. Jin was completely unaware of any of this, but Andante confirms that Jin can choose anyone he wants. He even gives Jin a boost of confidence, letting him know that anyone he chooses will be thrilled to be his protector, even if he's just doing basic guiding. However, Jin is questioning this whole protector thing, and finds it absurd that he needs protection if he's just looking for cats. Skeptical, he denies the protection offer. Andante stares at him, secretly pissed, like that pissed look the Verizon sales rep gives when you didn't upgrade, because that's how he gets his commission. Just then, Andante turns up the manipulation tactics, further questioning Jin to make sure he's really sure that he doesn't need protection. This puts doubt in Jin's mind, and he starts to think that maybe he should have just picked one. Underneath his breath, Andante believes this guy is a fool, but plays it off, letting Jin know that it's okay for him not to choose one. With the negotiations done and the salary settled, Andante welcomes Jin to the team. Jin appreciates the welcome but low-key is skeptical as to why Andante OD'd about the protector. Not gonna lie, Andante is playing mind games with our boy and is living rent-free in his head already, and we're only on chapter 1. Despite getting royally screwed on every turn of this negotiation, our clueless boy is happy to have a job. Next day rolls around and Andante introduces Jin Hyosuk, the S-Class guide, to the team. Jin bows politely, gracious to be accepted. Just then, a tall redhead hottie steps to him and is shocked that an S-Class is in their presence. Bro is acting like a true fanboy. He introduces himself as Journey, a C-Class esper, and aggressively asks if he can call Jin Hyug, a term used by males to address another older male. A bit taken back, Jin asks Fanboy if he can chill and respect his personal space. Jin could care less on what he is called, but Fanboy Journey keeps persisting, bugging Jin about his S-Class rank. Jin plays it off smoothly, offering to show him his ID if he didn't believe him. It wasn't that Journey didn't believe Jin himself. It was more about the fact that the commander hasn't done shit for 2 years, so he's just shocked that he actually got a guide, an S-Class guide at that. Still, Journey is skeptical and asks the boss if their guild is worthy of such a great guide, even though he has no clue how great of a guide Jin is. This damn commander is gaslighting everyone, and has them doubting themselves. The commander answers promptly, letting Cherney know that if this S-class loser wants to devalue himself and work for minimum wage, sure, why not? The commander's answer makes Cherney flip out, and now Fanboy is even more skeptical, wondering why on earth would an S-class come work with their piece of shit guild that is broke. Fair question. The only thing that Cherney can conclude is that our clueless MC has to be a spy. Curious, Commander Andante questions Cherney on why he even thinks a spy would even infiltrate their craphole of a guild. Cherney doesn't have a legit answer for Andante but sees no other reason why Jin would be there. Jin interrupts the conversation and informs Cherney that the reason he's doing this is because he's only providing basic physical guiding. Enlightened by that answer, Cherney somewhat mocks Jin, suggesting that he's a prude and won't do more than kiss. He continues to question Jin, telling him that full-time guides love getting it on. Andante quickly tells Cherney to stop being so offensive before he scares away our naive boy on day one. Well, I guess we can conclude that a full-time guide is a spicy gig. Jin defends himself, suggesting that the reason he's not doing this is different than what most would think. Cherney isn't buying it and keeps grilling our boy on why the heck he's there. Jin gives a meek answer, telling Cherney that the real reason he took the job is because he doesn't want to work in a dangerous environment. Not gonna lie, if most dudes are aggressive like Fanboy here, I can't blame MC's thought process. That answer confuses Cherney, and Jin continues to justify himself, explaining that he thought this place would be safe. Jin's answer amuses the commander, and he gives off a creepy response, confirming that if safety is what Jin is looking for, then he came to the right place. After receiving that sus reply and having his safety guaranteed, Jin gets the rundown on how the guild system actually works. The most important fact is that espers are people with superpowers, and they are placed into 6 classes according to their abilities. The rare S-class are world-class S-class espers and A-class espers with unique abilities. A-class guilds are almost as impressive, and they consist of A-class espers without including commanders. B-class can only work in designated countries, and finally, C-class guilds, the most common of the guilds, can only operate in small areas. But the lowest of the low is the Onapipe, or however the hell you pronounce that, the one Jin just joined. The commander lets Jin know that this was the safest guild, but after getting the rundown, Jin is somewhat shocked that it's actually true. There isn't much work for the guild to do, and it's apparent because the commander just sits and looks at the screen all day. Jin believed he must be doing something important since he looks so focused, but our boy recently found out that the boss was just extremely concentrated on playing a game, which explains why he hasn't hired anyone in 2 years. Personally, I would have assumed he was just staring at the hub since this place is so damn backwards. Anyway, our MC is starting to realize that things aren't adding up and comes to the conclusion that Onapipe doesn't really need a guide, and that's not good. He thinks that if he doesn't do anything, he will get fired pretty soon. So our boy decides to start cleaning. Confused, Journey asks Jin what the freak he's doing. When our guy says he's cleaning, Mr. Aggressive takes this as an opportunity to assume he's bored and asks him on a date. This guy's confidence needs to be studied. Clearly trying to reject him nicely, Jin makes up an excuse that they are working and now is not a good time for a date. Journey bypasses that rejection and lets him know that they don't do shit anyway, so why not? Jin suggests that they still shouldn't leave the office. Overhearing the conversation, Andante commands Jin to stop doing that bullshit cleaning job and informs him that they actually have a real job to do and asks if he'd like to come. Excited, Jin packs up his stuff and is ready to leave with the boss. But before they leave, the commander lets Journey know that he has to go find the cats again. Sounds like he is just giving Journey busy work to get him out of the way. Journey expresses his frustration because he believes they just found the damn cats, but Commander believes they got away again. The commander is out here playing chess. Cut to the job and it's a daycare center. Our boy is standing in front of a group of toddlers holding pink maracas. This is not what he signed up for. On top of that, Andante is asking him to shake harder and harder, which is clearly some NLP suggestive metaphors for what he really wants. The job is done and the commander is happy with the job he did, telling Jin that he looked really good with a long pink toy in his hand, and that he looked like he had a lot of experience stroking it. Jin can sense the inappropriateness of the compliments, and quickly reminds the commander that there are children around and he's not feeling this at all. Congratulating them on their job, the teacher asks if Commander and Jin want to stay for dinner since they worked so hard. Commander politely but quickly shuts down that offer, telling the teacher they already had plans. Andante pulls Jin away, and as they get outside, the commander suggests that they go out to eat somewhere nice. Once again, trying to nicely reject an offer, Jin lets the commander know that he'd rather eat at home. The commander ups his manipulation techniques and smoothly asks if Jin has someone at home waiting for him, and like the naive, clueless MC he is, of course he tells Andante that he lives alone. Confused as to why he's not getting the hint, Andante asks why Jin is pushing him away. Since our MC is oblivious to Andante's moves, the commander escalates his manipulation tactics to level 2, which is guilt. Andante creates a sob story about how no one ever wants to eat out with him and he's always eating alone. Just an FYI, kids, whenever someone uses the words never and always, they are trying to guilt trip you. Back to the story. Our boy walks right into his trap, suggesting that the boss should be able to rely on his guild members' companionship. The boss quickly shuts down Jin's thinking, making it clear that since he's the boss, no one wants to eat with him. The commander then goes full victim mode, unscientifically stating that eating alone causes a higher chance of depression. Since Jin eats alone himself, he questions if that is true. Andante tells him not to worry about it but proceeds with his woe-is-me explanation of being a lonely boss, suggesting that it might be uncomfortable for Jin that his boss asked him out to dinner. Maybe out of pure guilt, but Jin asks the boss if he wants to have dinner. Excited, Andante doesn't hesitate to invite himself to Jin's place. Jin is taken back by the forward invite of himself, and like every other damn scene in this story, Jin is confused, asking what the hell is going on. As they approach his place, Jin's internal monologue kicks in, questioning how things turned out this way. When he agreed to have dinner together, he definitely didn't expect the location to be his own damn place. Jin opens the door and Andante is standing immediately behind him. Like a humble gentleman, Jin invites him in, downplaying his modest apartment. In true jerk fashion, Andante takes a shot at Jin, letting him know that for an S-class, this apartment sucks. Jin can't make the connection between someone's class and their living quarters, but Andante doesn't waste the opportunity to let him know that quite frankly, he's underachieving. The boss makes him aware that an S-class can easily live in a fancy hotel if they wanted to. Jin justifies his decision and explains that because he isn't gigoloing around full-time, this is the best he can do. The boss looks around the place and doesn't let up with his critiques. He calls out the elephant in the room. There's only one chair, one cup, a single bed, and a dining table for one person. How the fuck are we supposed to eat dinner together? Okay, let me be clear. He didn't explicitly say that, but you can tell that was the vibe. Andante further comments that it seems like this is Jin's first time living alone and asks if he just moved in. Jin is startled and questions how Andante knew that. Andante smiles and explains it's pretty obvious since it's an old apartment, but all the household items are brand new. Jin starts walking toward the kitchen and says he'll prepare something simple. Surprisingly, Andante turns down the dinner offer and tells him no, it's fine. Now Jin is confused as shit because his boss just manipulated his way to his place for dinner, and now doesn't want dinner. But the commander explains his reasoning. There's only one chair around, so it'll be hard for them to eat together anyway, so Jin might as well eat alone. The commander continues his masterclass of mind-fucking Jin and tells him it's all good, and he won't starve from missing a few meals but suggests he'll take his plate to leave. Jin is super confused now, wondering why the hell did he come here, but he's starting to piece together that this whole ordeal wasn't about the dinner. After a little contemplation, he asks Andante if he was curious about where he lived. The boss pulls the Kanye West meme, "You got me," and flat out tells him, "Yeah, I wanted to see your place." Cutting straight to the chase, Jin lets him know that if he would have just asked outright, he would have just showed him his place without the whole song and dance. Andante is surprised by Jin's naivete and suggests that he shouldn't just let strangers in his house, but according to Jin, Andante is not a stranger. The boss is flattered by the gesture but reminds Jin that even though he's a Esper and supposedly there to protect, he should still have some awareness about who's coming into his home. Instead of just leaving the life lesson there, the boss takes Jin down a dark example of how he could be a degenerate on the verge of going rampant and touch him in a certain way. The interaction is getting tense, and then the commander reminds him that on top of his naive decisions to let anyone in, he doesn't have a bondage partner to protect him because he thought it wasn't needed. Adding fuel to the fire because he's reluctant to do more than basic guiding, he's a real target. Turning down that protector looks like it might come back to haunt him. Nervous, Jin expresses that he'll be more careful. The boss leaves, but that sure was a wake-up call for our MC. He's a bit perplexed, confused that all of this would come his way because he thought he'd be fine since he didn't have any issues. Reality is starting to set in that this whole job is not what he thought, and our boy is trembling now, on the verge of a mental breakdown. The next day, Jin arrives early to work, greeted by Andante as if nothing happened. Jin is visibly nervous, saying good morning to his boss, but out of nowhere, Journey collapses. He complains that he feels like he's going to die. Concerned, Jin asks if he's okay, but Journey quickly responds that he's not. In his head, Jin is thinking that why the hell is chasing cats making this guy act like this, but to his face he politely asks Journey if he needs guiding. It looks like Journey is playing some kind of trick because he replies instantly, saying he needs help. But before Jin could help, the boss cuts in and tells him no. It's clear that he wants Jin's sweet, naive ass for himself. The commander makes it clear that his minuscule job of finding cats doesn't deserve any guiding, but Journey thinks his stance on this is cruel. He was up all night looking for the damn cats and he needs some guiding. I mean, bro, you don't need to be looking for cats all night, just get catnip. Anyway, Andante completely ignores Journey's request, but lets him know that he needs to go fetch mail from the post office. Pissed, Journey swears that he'll quit this stupid guild because he's sick of doing BS grunt work, like he's some kind of intern. Our boy Jin is confused as hell by this whole situation, because he swore he was hired to be a guide. The commander confirms that this is true, but he also has to consider retaining toxins in his body. Andante suggests that if he becomes too comfortable, he will get lazy. But to Jin, this whole line of thinking is baffling because he thought they were already lazy being part of the Unhyped Guild. The commander then poses a provocative question to Jin, asking him if he's dying to give someone guiding. Jin can't understand why the boss would endure this nonsense when he's standing right there in front of him, on the clock, ready to work. Commander brushes off his concerns, letting him know that soon enough he'll be guiding so much that he'll be sick of it. Jin questions what the hell that's supposed to mean, but Andante shifts the conversation to sharing a meal once again. But this time he asks Jin to lunch. The boss asks him what he's eating, and our naive boy simply answers that he's eating some fried sausage and some rice balls. Being a gentleman, Jin offers some of his lunch to the boss, and even though once again the boss turns down food, Jin can't help but to point out that the commander keeps staring at him eat as if he wants something. Unsuspectedly, Jin has no clue that his choice of lunch has any kind of sexual energy, but of course Andante's filthy mind takes it there. Awkwardly staring at him eat, Andante puts it out there that he has a small mouth. Jin isn't sure where the hell that comment came from, but he agrees, pushing the envelope even further. The boss tests Jin, telling him that he probably can't take the whole thing in one go. Our boy is oblivious to the nature of the comment, but when Andante clarifies that he's talking about the sausage, Jin tells his horny boss that in fact he can take it in one go. Andante is happy to hear that, but finds that it's the perfect time to put the metaphors aside and invites Jin to a guild tomorrow, one that is ordered by the government and all Korea guilds will attend. Jin wants to know if this is an official guild, and Andante fills him in. He lets him know that it's likely regarding the dungeon, but there isn't much press about it yet. Andante adds that several big and small gates just opened, and because of the size and number, the news isn't out yet, so hopefully things get fairly distributed. The commander goes to his bread and butter, woe is me act, saying that he's going against his will and that the other commanders give him a hard time. Jin plays into his victim story again, and the commander points out that they pester him since he hasn't done shit in 2 years. Jin asks the most logical question, since you haven't done shit in 2 years and they pester you, well, are you gonna do anything? Of course, the master manipulator throws the ball back into Jin's court, suggesting that he will do something if the guild decides, but more importantly, he asks if Jin would leave. This question confuses Jin, but it's once again a setup to get more agreements from our naive MC. The commander alludes to the fact that Jin only signed up because this was safe, so if they go to the dungeon, he assumes he'll leave. Jin corrects the record, giving his boss confidence that he wouldn't leave solely because the guild has to enter the dragon. This surprises the boss, but after making such a commitment, Jin starts to question this whole narrative. Our boy's spidey senses are tingling and he's starting to realize there's missing pieces to the puzzle. Affiliate espers must clear dungeons in order to financially support and maintain a guild, but if they haven't done anything in 2 years, how in the hell did they maintain this guild? As our boy ponders this, Andante reaffirms for him not to worry because they try to avoid the dungeon. Jin wonders how that's okay, but once again our sly boss confirms that the worst that can happen is that they'll get mocked. Andante leaves this conversation but confirms that he'll pick up Jin from his place at 2 p.m. tomorrow. The scene shifts and our boy is looking sharp in his suit, but once again his low self-esteem seeps through as he questions if the suit is shabby or not. Andante is sharply dressed in his 3-piece suit and urges Jin to get into the car because Kota is waiting for them. Not sure how this broke-ass guild that pays minimum wage and looks for cats somehow can afford luxury cars and 3-piece suits, but let's keep going. They arrive at the National Security Agency building and our boy looks up, amazed at the sight. Not gonna lie, the building is quite the sight to see, as it's lauded as Korea's top guild and the country's only S-class guild. To help ease Jin's nerves, Andante tells him to just treat it like visiting a stupidly big company. Yup, great advice, helpful. The two pull up in the lobby and let the Kotas know they've arrived. Unsure of the situation, Jin questions what happened to Cherney. The commander isn't sure why Jin is asking about Cherney now, but Jin clarifies that he thought he took his spot. Andante puts that nonsense to rest, telling him that Cherney wasn't going whether Jin joined them or not. The boss reveals that Cherney is a psycho and NSA wasn't having his overly aggressive ass in their beautiful building. Jin couldn't just take that answer for face value and ask what happened. Andante goes into story time, telling Jin that about 1.5 years ago he came there with Kota and Cherney, and that typically people don't approach them during these events, but a guide came up to them. Cherney took this as a chance to humor himself and took the guide outside. He offered to show him around NSA because he seemed new, but soon after that there was an explosion, and Cherney came walking back with blood on his shirt. it's safe to say that the meeting that day was an utter disaster. Andante went on to explain that it wasn't just that it was a disaster, but the guide had a bondage partner that was also his boyfriend. On top of that, he was A-class, so Cherney really didn't know what the hell he just did. The boyfriend exploded with rage, and Cherney didn't just stand there. The psychopath actually tried to fight back. So from there, the NSA just banned all psychos from their meetings. Never shy to say something controversial, the commander admitted that Cherney's scuffle was the only time the boring meetings had some entertainment. Concerned, Jin asks if Cherney was okay after that, and Dante quickly answered that of course he wasn't. He broke his leg, arm, and his face was torn up. And although that seems bad, the real issue is Cherney's mental. Dude just wasn't right in the head. Everyone knows that hitting on a guide who's already taken is a no-no, especially if he has a bondage partner, but of course, Cherney thinks rules don't apply to him. None of this surprises Jin, as he kind of knew he was crazy from the start. Just from the creepy look in his eyes, he knew dude wasn't normal, but he didn't think he was this crazy. Jin's kind nature kicked in, asking if the boss helped Cherney. The commander made it clear that he wasn't going to help because the idiot deserved it. This doesn't make sense to Jin. He thinks that since Cherney is criticized enough and that this is some kumbaya community, then they should all take care of each other. And Dante acknowledges Jin's kindness, but doesn't agree with his thought process. Just as that conversation is wrapping up, the speaker they've been waiting for steps up to the podium. He acknowledges the crowd and lets them know that he will be acting as the chief supervisor for the gate case. He introduces himself as Shin Haichang, commander of the NSA, and immediately begins the brief. He shows the audience a photo of the dungeon gate that opened 4 days ago. He goes on to inform the crowd that this isn't the main concern. The real problem is that 11 of them appeared at the same time. In order to fairly arrange distribution of the guild, the government scheduled this emergency meeting. After hearing that, Jin thinks to himself that he's been told this before. Commander Shin then drops startling news. There are no priority for S-class dungeons, as they've all been taken by Americans, but they've taken the rest of the gates of Korea, using their domestic priority rights. The commander finishes his speech by inviting all of the commanders in the back room with him. Well, invite is the wrong word. The meeting is mandatory, and if you don't attend, he makes it clear that there will be severe consequences. While delivering that ultimatum, Jin swears that Commander Shin was looking directly at them. Andante, looking defeated and scared, tells Jin that he guesses he has no choice but to go, and that these damn espers are savages. Jin thinks to himself that Andante is an esper too, so he doesn't quite understand that comment, but nonetheless, it's time to move. Andante directs Kota to take care of his naive little boy, and as a parting gift, he gives Jin some snacks and tells him not to leave Kota's side. As the boss leaves, Jin and Kota just stand there looking confused, in silence. Jin breaks the awkwardness by offering Kota a snack, but Kota just shakes his head, no thank you. Fair enough, so Jin starts eating by himself. As he's eating, he feels a bit secure that nothing is going to happen to him because in his mind he considers his position pretty insignificant, so why the heck would they bother him? Jin starts to realize though that hey, maybe if he was to work here, it wouldn't be so bad because the facilities are much nicer. As Jin looks around, his awe of the place makes it obvious that he's a newbie. 2 men are sizing up Jin and Kota, and Jin's amazement of the place is so apparent they can actually accurately predict their low-level guild. Kind of like seeing poor people window shop. One of the men recognizes Kota from the Cherney incident and confirms that they are Onopleek guilds. They have a good laugh thinking about how Cherney got his ass beat by an A-class at the event. These 2 mysterious men continue their conversation, talking shit about the Onopleek guilds. That mess with Cherney gave the guild a reputation of being freaks that are useless and just start trouble. Laughing at their pathetic guild, the one man suggests that they probably should use their good looks to make money. Overhearing this conversation, Jin starts to uncomfortably sweat a bit and it's starting to sink in. The guild he joined is a laughingstock that doesn't even participate in the dungeon because they're so damn weak. Jin just stands there, helpless, recognizing what it's like to experience being the lowest of the low class. As Jin gets in his feelings, the side conversations get even more harsh. One guy believes he heard that the guild are all orphans and shames them for being throwaways because their parents thought they were useless. Jin overhears this and has the balls to confront the men and tell them that they're being very rude. The man responds in a condescending tone, doubling down on their thoughts, stating the Onipe can't do shit and their parents didn't want them and it's just facts. Even if it's facts, Jin lets them know that they should be more considerate of the people around them. Either Jin pushed a sensitive button or this bald dude is on a roid rage because he just snaps. He thinks that C-Class Jin is trying to boss him around. Jin simply replies that he's just asking for some common courtesy. Triggered, this bald dude tries to attack Jin, but Kota grabs his hand and shuts it down. Baldy is furious, sprouting out degrading remarks, calling them fucking C-Class losers. Just then, the bully is confused as to why he can't move his hand and demands Kota to let go. Kota gives him a hard stare, calling him a son of a bitch. The fight continues and Kota throws the bald dude on the ground. Bro is pissed, and it looks like Kota and Jin just created a serious enemy because Baldy says they are dead meat. The death threat has Jin nervous, but Kota tells him not to worry, it's fine. The bald dude gets up and asks if this whole act is just Kota trying to look good in front of his boyfriend. The commander stands right behind him, confused at the question, and asks him to clarify exactly who he thinks his boyfriend is. The question must have scared the bald dude because his first instinct was to turn around and bitch slap the hell out of Commander. This guy has serious anger issues. Commander took the hit on the chin like a pro, but our bald angry antagonist is confused, not sure if the dude he slapped is the commander of the Onaipi. Looking ever so handsome, Commander sarcastically remarks that he thinks the slap broke his cheekbone. The bald dude knows that is nonsense, telling him that he's fine, but Commander takes the chance to let him know that a low-level C-class just ate that hit from B-class like a champ. The bald dude panics a bit because his hit didn't do shit to Commander, so he's questioning if he's actually a B-class after all. The commander doesn't entertain that question and directly tells him that he heard that his commander doesn't like trouble like this because he values moral principles. Baldy acts macho, asking Commander what he's going to do about it. The commander smoothly lets him know that he'll give him a pass this time if he runs away, but if he doesn't, there's going to be problems. This fake tough guy, Temu version of Andrew Tate, chooses the former and walks away without further confrontation. Jin is concerned and immediately asks the commander if he's okay. Andante plays it off, telling him it doesn't even sting more than a mosquito bite. This shocks Jin because he just took a hit from a B-class and I guess he expected something more drastic. Our boy Jin is paranoid, asking more questions and wants to know if it's okay to just let Baldy walk away like that. The commander calmly tells Jin not to worry. The guy is an idiot that doesn't even know his commander, and they won't have to be concerned with his presence anymore. The situation left an impression on Jin, as he questions if this sort of thing happens often. The commander is honest with him, informing him that as the lowest guild, they kind of get picked on often. The commander makes a joke of the whole thing, saying this probably happens because the higher guilds are jealous of their good looks. The commander is ready to leave and put this situation behind them. As they walk away, they notice Kota awkwardly just standing there. Right away, the commander knew what he wanted, asking Kota if he wants to know how the meeting went. Kota nodded his head yes. Andante was going to tell them later, but since Kota did a great job of protecting his naive S-class boy, he figured he'd reward him and tell him in advance. He shares the news that they've been assigned to an A-class dungeon. It's a positive step forward that these slackers finally have a job, but it scares the shit out of Jin. Our boy starts stuttering, unsure of how this is even possible when they are C-class guilds. Always composed, the commander tells him not to worry because they have a minuscule job of just cleaning up the small fries by the entrance. The answer doesn't calm down Jin at all. Internally, he's thinking how the hell is his boss so calm about this, and how often does this happen? He asks the commander if it's a dangerous job, and the commander confidently tells him nothing will change. Bro, you hired him when you guys were just looking for cats. How is nothing going to change? You expect him to believe that? Anyway, the commander confirms that he will keep his initial promise and won't put Jin in danger. As he's saying that, the commander pulls the old kindergarten move and crosses his fingers, clearly lying. Nonetheless, Jin isn't worried about the guiding. He's confident that as a S-class he can do his job effectively, even for the most critically injured. It appears that his biggest concern is trust with Commander. Back at the office, Journey is wondering why they are so late. He's concerned that they got food without him, and he was right, they did. But it wasn't that they forgot about him completely. Our thoughtful boy Jin brought him dessert. Journey was taken back by the thoughtfulness, hugging Jin, claiming that no one in the guild has ever been so kind. Jin notices something while he's hugging him. He can't exactly put his finger on it, but he notices that he's seen that eye color somewhere before. Just as Jin is having that thought, the rest of the guild returns. Jin asks them how their trip was, and apparently they had a great time because everyone was hitting on them. They tease Jin, telling the C-class Esper that coming with them definitely would have been more fun. The commander corrects the record, informing them that they've moved up in the world and are entering a dungeon in 4 days. The group is somewhat surprised by the news, but the commander quickly rationalizes that the decision was just a move to keep everyone off their backs. The real surprise came when Commander told them it's an A-class dungeon. The group was curious how this all occurred because they are just C-class guilds, and Dante minimizes the accomplishment by saying they just want the guild for cleanup duties. Sarcastically, the group questions if the commander didn't just accept this as a joke. The conversation then turns to the logistics of the manor. The question of who's entering the dungeon arises, and the commander, in a half-joking manner, says me and you, pointing to the guy who just entered. The guy quickly responds, telling the commander that he can't be serious and he needs to bring someone better. In a flirtatious manner, the commander tells him that the two of them make the best team, but the guy isn't buying his bullshit charm. What appeared to be a joke might actually be serious, as the commander states that he already put his name down so there's no backing out. The guy is annoyed, but the commander tells him to be prepared, because the gate opens at 7 p.m. The guy thinks that's way too late, but despite that, he's interested in receiving guiding. He looks at our boy Jin and tells him to do his thing so he can enter the dungeon. The commander interjects in the conversation and gives Jin the green light to do his guiding, and actually suggests that he give guiding to all 4 guys who just came back. Of course, Psycho Cherney throws in his 2 cents, furious that it's okay for them to get guiding but not him. Our sweet naive boy has no problem with the request but contemplates just why he was stopped last time when Cherney asked for guiding. My guess is that it's because he's a psychopath ticking time bomb, but hey, what do I know? The commander cuts in and keeps it brief, telling Cherney that they're just different. But it's no secret that Cherney abuses his powers whenever he can and doesn't follow any rules, including personal space etiquette. Cherney doesn't even disagree with the sentiment, but still believes he deserves some relief. Maybe he'll get his chance, but now is not the time. Just then, Jin starts to perform his guiding. With his eyes closed, he starts generating a massive golden energy, so much that he starts questioning what the heck is going on. Jin is surprised by all the energy he's creating and that it's all being absorbed at incredible speed. This is beyond what he expected. The guiding is so intense and requires so much energy that our boy is starting to question if this guy he's guiding is really C-class. Jin isn't the only one who's feeling this intensity. This guy is in pure bliss because Jin has a significant amount of toxins in his body. It's to the point where this guy is wondering how he's endured it for so long. The guiding is finished and it's abundantly clear that Jin is an S-class. In just that little time, he not only refreshes his body, but also the guy's heart. Jin has no clue how good he is and actually starts apologizing, thinking he made the guy feel uncomfortable, but the dude quickly corrects him, telling him that it felt really nice. Ironically, our boy stares at his hands and wonders if the C-class always needed this much guiding. Noticing something is off with Jin, Andante asks him what's wrong. Jin tells him that he's fine, but more concerned that Flat, the guy he just guided, was in bad shape. The boss gives him the backstory, telling him that Flat apparently broke his leg bungee jumping on vacation, and that externally he looks okay, but internally he's probably still a mess. Flat agrees. Still, Jin is questioning this whole experience. He's not sure if what he's feeling is because he just forgot what it feels like since he hasn't used his powers in such a long time. The boss makes the request for Jin to provide guiding for the rest of the team. Eager to please, Jin has no problem with it. He puts his hands on a member and the golden energy lights up. He once again closes his eyes and works his magic. Andante watches the whole thing in awe, thinking this is incredible. Exhausted from the guiding, Jin flops on the bed and is a bit confused because before he barely broke a sweat when he was saving the dying S-class. But now he's totally drained. Our boy is hurting. He's tossing and turning on the bed, squeezing his sheets tight and not sure why the heck this is happening. He thinks that maybe it's because he's not compatible with espers. He's aware that guides only have so much power they can use per day, but they don't have the conditions that the espers do. He's realizing that the S-class guides are just different, and because they are so rare, no one really knows what happens when they exceed their daily limit. Whatever the reason is, though, it doesn't matter at the moment because our boy is seriously struggling. The physical pain he's in is terrible. He's having difficulty breathing and our sweetheart is convulsing like he just got an electric shock. Well, technically, I guess he did. To add the cherry on top, he's giving off a sweet scent. This is truly the worst. Meanwhile, Kodo arrives at the office and the commander isn't sure exactly why, suggesting he should have gone straight home. Flat is concerned about Cynthi's disappearance, asking if Kodo saw him on his way to the office. But the topic quickly changes back to Jin. Flat expresses that he's surprised that our boy was that good. Because yes, he's an S-class, but even so, he figured something has to be wrong with the guy. But no, our naive boy was more skilled than he would have thought. And Dante is surprised to hear this, but ultimately is just glad that he's on their team. But Flat is still skeptical and has the same thought process that almost everyone else has. Why would a talented S-class guide join a C-class guild? And Dante gets a bit defensive of Flat's presumption, but Flat just says he thinks it's strange, especially because he doesn't want to do more than basic guiding. Flat questions Jin's intention and, surprisingly, agrees with Psycho Journey's take that he might be a spy. The commander expresses that he has considered the situation to be strange because Jin applying to the job doesn't make any sense. And Dante then explains that he took it a step further, manipulating his way into his home and befriending him, trying to figure out his true intentions. But still, he couldn't conclude that he was a spy. The commander brought up an interesting point that let's say if he were a spy, wouldn't he try to act as normal as possible? Flat agreed with that thought initially, but then played devil's advocate, asking the commander what if he's trying to hide his suspicion by acting suspicious. The commander puts an end to their Scooby-Doo investigation because they can literally drive themselves crazy trying to think of all the possible scenarios. The bottom line is that he's not a spy. Okay, so maybe he's not a spy, but Flat still questions if he's hiding something. The commander says that he didn't say that. Flat is confused, thinking that the commander is talking in circles. On one hand, he says he's not a spy. Not to worry, but on the other, he won't deny that he's hiding something. Just then, the boss plops some papers on the table. Flat is curious about these mysterious papers. The commander explains that if you look closely, Jin has no record of any activity in Korea, nor has he ever been examined. Right after the commander said that, Kota instantly knew that his gut instinct was right. Something was off about Jin. At this point, Flat is completely out of the loop and demands that Kota explain what the heck is going on. I guess he doesn't know that Kota is a man of few words and typically just nods. Flat starts freaking out, blaming himself for having a conversation with Jin. Still curious, he asks the commander to fill him in. The commander shares that they found it odd that when they took Jin to the meeting, no one recognized him. They were sure that with him being an S-class, at least one person should know who he is. Not even the NSA members knew who he was. Flat was surprised as well, thinking that those crazy S-class guides would know him because they choose the best of the best. So if Jin was indeed the best of the best, they would know everything about him, his appearance, name, preference, etc. Cherny throws out the idea that maybe he's a foreigner. He looks Korean, so that theory is questionable. But according to the commander, it's not impossible. He could be a Korean who grew up overseas. Cherny argues even if that were the case, it still didn't make sense, because NSA would know if an S-class entered Korea abroad. The commander floats the unlikely idea that maybe he came through undetected. As they go back and forth with the possible scenarios, Flat is sitting there thinking that something is fishy about our boy. However, to the commander, none of this matters because he's one of them now. Cherny agrees, but only because he's cute. Flat is clearly annoyed by Cherny's immature mindset, but what is he expecting out of Cherny anyway? Still, the boss wants to put an end to all this digging into Jin's past. As far as he's concerned, it can't be any worse than theirs because they're all criminals. When he says that aloud, Jin takes offense and asks him not to call them that. So the commander just smirks and downgrades to calling them half-criminals. Flat still isn't feeling this Jin situation and tells the boss that he's going to regret it when Jin backstabs him. Cherny can feel his energy and starts teasing him for sulking. The commander quickly defends his decision, stating that he's the perfect man for them right now. He's naive, good at his job, works hard, and is not the sharpest tool in the shed. For Christ's sake, our naive boy didn't even realize that they were all S-class after guiding them. Damn, our boy is getting set up and played as the perfect idiot. Flat is once again a bit confused with the commander's thought process because he thought that the boss actually liked Jin. The boss claims that he does, weirdly thinking that shitting on Jin's lack of awareness and saying he's the perfect target is a compliment. Flat calls out the cap, but ultimately the boss gives the orders to treat him nicely and not to act suspicious because that will scare him away. Though no one asked him, Cherny eagerly shouts out that he'll treat Jin nicely. The boss lets him know that he's the one he's concerned about the most. Cherny doesn't understand why, but the boss doesn't hide his thoughts and tells Cherny that he seems like the one who will break Jin's one condition. Cherny shows some self-awareness and actually agrees that he's trouble. The boss gives him a direct order: protect him at all cost. Andante believes that our boy is dealing with some trauma, so if Cherny does some crazy shit to turn him off, he flat out tells him he'll kill him. I'm not sure if that's metaphorically, but I don't think Cherny should test it. Let's not forget, these guys are criminals. Anyway, the boss makes it clear that they need to take care of their guide because he's rare, and it's not every day that you can find a guide who can heal broken bones with a single touch. 4 days pass and it's opening day at the gate. Commander and Flat are about to leave the office and Jin asks one last time if he's not needed in front of the gate. The commander confirms that he's fine, not to worry, and to just wait there. This doesn't add up to Jin because typically the guides wait outside of the entrance just in case of an emergency, so he's confused as to why the commander wants him to stay there. Cherny tells Jin not to worry and asks him if he knows what debuffs are. Before Jin can even answer, Cherny tells him that they are powers that weaken the target. This is particularly important because in Commander's case, he can generate a fake sky anywhere and bring about any weather conditions he wants. This is a stark contrast to Espers, who can usually only recreate one type of weather, but the boss man can create whatever the heck he wants. Jin questions this because it's his understanding that sky and land don't exist in dungeons, so how does his powers still work there? Cherny one-ups him, telling him that not only that, but each weather carries a different debuff. This sounds good in theory, but in practice, Jin is starting to do the math. How can the boss do such incredible things if he's only C-class? Cherny quickly debunks Jin's thought process, explaining that the reason he stays at C-class is because he can't fight alone. But to Jin, if that is true, then as a debuffer, he should make a good team with anyone. Yet Flat said otherwise. Jin then questions if he is a melee-type Esper. Cherny is starting to notice that our boy might not be so naive, but instead of arguing, he completely agrees, and adds that since Flat is very agile, he prefers one-on-one combat. Jin adds that since the commander's ability to create a sky over the enemies, only long-range type Espers would be able to fight outside the debuff zone. Cherny confirms Jin's thought and adds that all of the members are individualists, so they have a hard time fighting with a teammate. It all makes sense, but then Jin asks a basic question: then why did he choose Flat? Stumped by the question, Journey chalks it up to the commander wanting to annoy Flat, and honestly, no one knows what goes through the commander's head. Journey wraps up the conversation by telling Jin that worrying about this is a waste of time, and our sweet naive boy agrees, thinking they will be fine since they aren't going that deep into the dungeon anyway. The sun is starting to set, and Jin thinks he better stay the night because he has no idea of when they will return. To pass the time, he decides to read a book, but our boy starts nodding off. He jumps up with a jolt, not sure exactly how long he fell asleep for. He panics a bit and wonders if he should turn on the lights. Just then, he sees the commander in the doorway. The commander is shocked that he didn't go home, but Jin explains that he was waiting for him. The boss apologizes for not being clear with his directions, but Jin doesn't sweat it because he just took a nap anyway. As the commander stands in the doorway, Jin can't quite see him. The commander sounds fine though, but he doesn't see Flat. When Jin asks where he is, the boss says he's on the floor passed out. Weird answer, and it confuses Jin. The commander looks away, telling Jin to hold on. He reaches to turn on the lights, and Jin sees the boss is covered in blood. It's obvious that Jin is shocked to see what happened, but our gaslighting expert Andante plays dumb and asks Jin what's the matter. Startled, our boy immediately offers to do guiding, but Commander says there's no need and he should concentrate on Flat instead. Flat is laying on the floor, bloody as well. Jin rushes over to him, asking what the hell happened. For whatever reason, the commander didn't want Jin to see them in this condition, and apologizes for shocking our boy. Jin is panicking, telling the commander that whatever the hell he's talking about is not important right now because Flat needs attention. Andante seems relaxed about the whole thing, telling Jin that he won't die right now if he doesn't receive guiding. Worried, Jin proceeds to attend to Flat, offering to guide him right away. The boss tells him to wait, but Jin ignores his command and grabs Flat's hand. He starts guiding him, but then things took an unbelievable turn. Flat sits up and begins to bite Jin on the neck. And this wasn't some cute kinky bite. He takes a chomp out of our boy's neck, and Jin lays there, looking like he's going unconscious, trying to figure out what the fuck just happened. Flat is looking crazy right now, with those golden eyes. Jin winces, certain that Flat is going to eat him alive. Just then, the boss stabs Flat in the back, and Jin can't believe what he just saw. Andante pulls the knife out of Flat's back and asks him if he's back to his senses yet. In a strange turn of events, Flat responds, "Fuck yeah, he's back," and thanks the boss. Instead of being grateful that he was potentially saved, Jin actually believes that stabbing bro was overkill. I mean, I'm usually rooting for our MC, but right now he needs to shut his bitch ass up. Despite his actions, Flat insists that he's fine and that he wasn't completely having his way with him. Andante shares that he stabbed him for precautionary reasons. The attention then shifts to Jin. The boss makes sure that he's okay and offers him the opportunity to hold onto his shirt if he's scared. Our boy tries to play it off like he's good, but when it's time to continue guiding, he keeps it 100 and admits that he's scared. He starts to guide anyway, but this time Flat's hands are a bit colder, and Jin doesn't believe he's giving him enough energy. Flat takes a deep exhale and locks eyes with our boy, and asks him an intimate question. Exactly how far can they go? Jin isn't quite sure what he's implying, so Flat clarifies, in terms of guiding, what does Jin consider basic? Flat puts the pressure on Jin to tell him how far he's willing to go. Our boy is thinking the farthest he'll go is kissing, but he doesn't want to say that aloud and pigeonhole himself. He continues to think, and just then, Flat wraps his arms around Jin in a seated Kama Sutra position. Don't ask me how I know the name of that position. Flat begins to slide his hand up Jin's shirt, waiting to hear exactly just how far this can go. Flat is trying his hardest, no pun intended, to escalate this, asking if he can do whatever he wants, so long as he doesn't go all the way. Jin rejects that idea, but Flat still needs answers. If not that, then what? Frustrated, Flat suggests that Jin's words are saying no, but his body is saying yes. I feel like that's the lyrics to an R. Kelly song. Put the name in the chat if I'm right. Flat's hands are sliding up our boy's muscular back, trying to seduce him, but Jin is trembling, clearly out of his comfort zone. The commander sees just how uncomfortable Jin is and yells at Flat. Pissed, Flat backs off our boy. Jin is relieved, but he's breathing heavily. With the tension calming down, Flat apologizes for getting too into it. Concerned, the boss comes over to Jin as he's sitting on the ground. After he's able to gather himself, our boy breaks his own rule and blurts out that kissing is the limit. Damn, peer pressure is a bitch. Flat isn't quite sure he heard that correctly, so Jin clarifies he's answering the previous question. Yes, kissing is the limit. Surprisingly, Flat is fine with just holding hands and points out that Jin is looking pale anyway. Sitting in a love seat, they begin holding hands. But before they can even really get started, the commander tells them to stop because it's 3 a.m. Flat asks if he can take a break for a while, and the boss has no issues with his request, so Flat leaves. As he's walking out, Jin sees the blood on his back and thinks to himself that he doesn't look fully healed. But he's confused because Flat was sure all he needed was hand-holding. Our naive boy believes maybe that's the case because of his S-class status. As he's standing there thinking, Andante tells Jin to pack his stuff because he'll take him home. Jin is thankful for the gesture because he had no idea how he was going to get home with a ragged, ripped-up shirt anyway. As they're about to leave, Andante changes his shirt and our boy picks up on the nuances of what's happening. He sees a big red gash across the commander's chest and thinks to himself, Espers tend to recover faster than normal civilians, so why does he have such a large wound on his chest? Our boy realizes something is up. Even the most external injuries can be fully healed if guiding is received on time, so why won't he let the healing happen? This is bothering Jin to the point that he actually offers healing one more time to Andante. Of course, the boss turns down his offer and suggests they just go home, noting that Jin must be exhausted after that experience with Flat. Jin insists that he can help out the boss, but the commander brushes him off, advising him to save any power he has left for the rest of the boys tomorrow. The ride home is silent and the typical flirtatious demeanor of Andante is gone. Jin picks up on this and can't shake the feeling that for some reason his boss is colder now. Our boy can't wrap his mind around why the heck Andante won't take his guiding. He's tempted to offer guiding one more time, but he's hesitant, because what if Andante can't control himself and our boy is out here alone with no protection? No, not that kind of protection, you pervs, the bond partner. They pull up to Jin's place and Commander suggests that Jin gets some rest. The boss even offers for him to take the day off tomorrow because Flat won't be coming in. As he's looking out the window, Jin makes one last chance to offer guiding. He turns and reaches for the commander, but the boss instantly grabs his wrist, shutting down the offer. Jin is confused, asking why does he keep rejecting him. The boss repeats himself, saying that he said this several times, he doesn't need guiding. Jin argues that the boss is in pain, but the commander stands firm on business, warning him not to cross the line. Andante grabs Jin's wrists and makes it clear he doesn't have to do anything that's not asked of him. Our boy apologizes for being so forward and the commander lets him know it's okay, no need to apologize, and he appreciates that he stayed at the office. Jin gets out of the car and wishes his boss a safe trip home. The boss drives away and immediately, Jin can't help but to look down and see imprints that the boss left on his wrist. Jin then has an epiphany of what just happened. The moment he touched his hand to give him guiding, he failed because of the pure distaste. However, he felt an incredible power pulsing with him. Jin recognizes that his eyes were like those espers about to go rampant. Jin swears the boss has more toxins in him that would build up in just a day. As he's walking into his place, he starts to realize that he must be mistaken, but as he recollects on it more, he notices that Andante had no issues spending all day with the members. So there's no way. 5 days later, and the Ante gang is back at the office. The commander asks the crew if they would want to go on a trip. The crew is shocked by his proposal and wonders where the heck he's been for 5 days, but the commander thinks they'll take a trip to welcome our boy Jin. Charney thinks it's a great idea. Jin, clearly uncomfortable because this dude has no concept of personal space, says he'll go if everyone else does. The commander rounds the crew up, and since there's no objections, he announces they'll leave right away. Jin says he's not ready, but the commander grabs his wrist and tells him not to worry. Everything he needs is packed for him. Just roll. They arrived at Gyeongnam, and surprisingly, it only took them a minute to get to their trip because of some awesome teleportation. The crew swings the door open, and they're looking at a sick room, with a balcony overlooking the ocean. It's giving some French Riviera vibes. The view wows Jin, but Charney and Flat are ungrateful as shit, complaining that they're sick of the beach. Shocked to hear their complaints, Jin asks if they don't like the beach. The reason they dismissed this trip is because their office used to be on the beach. Charney takes this as an opportunity to get into Jin's personal space again, and asks him if he enjoys the beach, and Jin replies that he does, because he used to live in the mountains. As if anyone cares, Charney gives his reasons on why the beach sucks, with the main reason being the pests that show up all the time. Jin is not sure what he's referring to, thinking he may be talking about jellyfish. Nonetheless, Charney turns this small talk into a chance to once again invite out our boy. He asks Jin if he wants to do a spa day, telling him that it's probably empty because it's meant for VIPs. It's a hard pass for Jin, but finally, Charney gets the hint, asking if Jin is uncomfortable with him or if he's just shy. Before Jin can give a full answer, Flat intervenes, telling Charney that if he were a guide, he wouldn't want to hang out with him either, because he's a freaking psycho, and there's no telling what he'd do. Charney flips off the bird at Flat, and the two get in each other's faces. Their confrontation makes Jin uncomfortable, to the point that he can hardly tell if they are friends or not. As Jin fidgets uncomfortably, Koda points out that if he keeps fidgeting like that, he'll ruin his nail. The fact that Koda took an interest in Jin shocks both Flat and Charney. According to Charney, Koda didn't talk for the first year, but Flat believes that's more so because Charney is difficult to get along with. That statement causes them to go back at it again, but before they do, the boss tells them that's enough. The boss mentions that he heard the outdoor pool was really nice, so instead of the spa, the crew head out to the pool. The boys get immediate attention from everyone because, I mean, look at these guys, They're all ripped hotties with like 10% body fat. Of course they get attention. Flat dives into the pool and Cherney asks our boy if he wants to join him, but he admits that he can't swim. Cherney offers to teach him, but Jin is hesitant and ultimately turns down the offer. Just then, the commander comes behind Jin and tells Cherney that Jin is fine and the two of them will watch the action. Cherney sarcastically asks if they are voyeurs, insinuating that it's weird to come to the pool and just watch. The boss plays it off, not giving too much energy to Cherney's shaming tactics. But the boss does give a legit reason, saying that our boy is too valuable to risk for a sunburn. Cherney is pissed that once again he's denied a chance to chill with Jin. The commander directs Jin to sit over on the side. As they go over to the side, Cherney jumps on Flat in the pool and once again the two start to scuffle. Not gonna lie, there's definitely some weird energy between those two. Anyway, Andante advises Jin to get out of the sun before he gets burned. Concerned, Jin asks the commander if he himself will burn because he had a hunch that his skin is sensitive. Andante laughs it off, saying that he'll be fine and that he doesn't get burned by sunlight. The commander is lounging with his shirt slightly open, but it's just enough to show the wound. Seeing that, Jin questions if the wound is the real reason Andante won't go into the pool. The boss notices Jin staring at his chest and asks him what he's staring at. Our boy got caught in 4K, but he acted like he didn't know what Andante was talking about. The commander points out that it looks like Jin was trying to sneak a peek at his chest. Our boy gets flustered and starts stuttering, saying no he wasn't, but Andante lightens the mood, saying that he's just teasing him. He can't help but to tease Jin because our boy's reactions are just too funny. Jin still finds the need to defend himself, telling the boss that he truly wasn't staring at his chest. Andante is back to his flirtatious self, telling Jin that he doesn't mind if he was actually looking at his chest, and that if he wants to see it, he can show it to him at any time. The boss quickly changes the topic and asks Jin why he doesn't swim, curious if it's because he can't swim or if he just doesn't like water. Jin said both are an issue. The commander is back at mind-fucking our boy as he makes a statement saying that he thought it would be for different reasons. Of course, our boy walks right into the trap and asks him what he means. Playing with the hiding scars narrative, Commander points out that Jin didn't want to go to the spa either, so it looks like he's hiding something about his body. I gotta give him credit, Commander is smooth. Jin defends himself, saying he doesn't have any scars, but then Commander pulls on Jin's shirt, questioning the big scar on his neck. Jin admits the commander was right, it really is the scar on his neck. The commander tosses in a quick flirt, calling his shyness cute. Jin throws the question back, asking if the scar on the boss's chest is why he's not getting in the pool. The commander says it's for a similar reason, but doesn't really go into detail. That vague non-answer makes Jin assume it has to be the wound. The boss looks way better than he did before, but Jin's not convinced. 5 days is enough for a full recovery. Our boy starts trying to figure out how his boss bounced back so fast. Maybe it was some kind of medicine detox, maybe someone else guided him. He wants to ask, but now that he knows there's a line he can cross, he's not exactly eager to test it. As the sun sets and dinner rolls around, the commander decides to take Flat with him to grab takeout for the crew, but Flat votes for delivery instead. The boss ignores the suggestion and the two of them head out. Watching them, it starts to click for Jin how the guild's hierarchy actually works. Once the room goes quiet, he uses the moment to look around and lock everyone's name into memory. He barely gets started before Journey slides in, draping himself over our boy and giving him the grand tour of who's who. He already knows Coda, then there are the twins, Lydian and Dorian. Journey tells him not to bother with them too much, they've got serious trust issues. Then there's Cynthia, passed out in the corner. According to Journey, he's usually quiet but runs on some kind of intense cycle. Jin has no idea what that means and Journey doesn't clarify. He just shrugs it off as weird and reminds him that everyone in this guild is weird. Fair enough. Journey then turns it back on Jin, asking why he's even so curious about everyone. He doesn't bother hiding the jealousy when he pokes at him, asking if Jin likes someone. Jin answers simply that, as a colleague, the least he can do is remember their names. Journey immediately tries to wedge himself between Jin and the others, planting the idea that it's perfectly fine to ignore people who ignore you. Our naive boy hadn't even realized they were giving him the cold shoulder until now, and Journey takes full advantage, hugging up on him and insisting Jin should focus all that attention on him instead, because he's way sweeter. Jin, still not clocking the danger, asks what Journey actually wants him to do, and the psycho fires back with a casual whatever you want. Our boy starts stroking his hair, and for whatever reason, a cat pops into his head. Journey is eating up the affection and jokes that Jin must really be into hair. Jin doesn't actually care much about touching hair, but the moment is enough to push Journey over the edge. He admits he can't take it anymore. He finally gets direct and asks if the commander is treating Jin well. Our boy has no idea what he's getting at. Journey spells it out, saying his body can feel it and assuming Jin is doing way more than he's supposed to. Not surprisingly, Journey completely misreads the situation and asks Jin if he'd go further with a bondage partner, and if so, could he be that partner. Jin warns him that this isn't what it looks like, but Journey still pushes his luck and asks for guiding with a kiss. Right then, the twins appear out of nowhere and shut it down, announcing that whatever Journey is trying to pull is off limits. Journey is pissed. They remind him that the commander explicitly ordered them to stop Jin from receiving any guiding. Not only that, but he promised to throw Journey into the ocean if he tried. Damn, he really is keeping our boy to himself. The twins keep going, pointing out that Journey already knew the rules and isn't supposed to lay a finger on Jin. Journey scrambles to defend himself, insisting he wasn't actually going to do anything, but they call him on it, saying he absolutely would have tried something if Lydian hadn't stepped in. That only makes him angrier. He keeps denying it and gets super defensive, snapping back and demanding to know if they plan on being his bondage partner instead. That's when the twins lay out the real deal. Unbeknownst to anyone, Jin's bond partner hired them to step in whenever someone gets too close, and they get 10 million won per intervention, 10 million per stop, while our boy is only pulling a 3 million won salary. Whoever's running the books over there is wild. Journey is fuming, and the twins start debating whether they should go tell the commander and cash in. Being petty, Journey tells them to go ahead and get their money, but these twins are shady as hell. Instead, they offer him a deal. Pay them 20 million won and they keep quiet. From their perspective, it's a bargain. He's rich and the commander is terrifying when he's mad. Journey snaps, calling them bastards, clearly raging at being blackmailed. The two quiet twins turn full gangster, pulling out guns and letting him know that if he wants to fight, they're down. They're bored anyway. All this tension starts to suffocate Jin. Confrontation really gets to him, and once again our boy slides straight into panic. His chest tightens, he can't breathe, but he finally manages to choke out a shout, telling them all to knock it off because the commander will be back soon. The twins aren't exactly looking to back down though. Instead of stopping, they pivot and put Jin on the spot, demanding to know why they should stop. Jin blurts out that it's because they started it, but if we're being honest, all they did was point out facts while Journey was the one trying to take advantage of him. Kota finally steps in and backs Journey up, arguing that if Journey really wanted to do something, he wouldn't pick this place to do it. The twins don't buy it at all. In their minds, Journey is a complete savage who doesn't care about time or place. Kota can't really refute that, so instead he drags things back to reality, pointing out that nothing actually happened, and that the twins' violent energy rattled Jin more than Journey's antics ever did. Even so, it looks like Kota got the same instructions as the twins, and now he's wrestling with whether this whole mess counts as a real threat to Jin. Hearing that, the twins turn their backs in disgust and Journey storms off. Kota wanders over to Jin to check on him, making sure he is okay. Jin insists he is fine, but Kota just shakes his head. Our boy cannot help thinking how badly that whole situation could have gone if Kota had not stepped in when he did. That is when he starts wondering about his bondage partner. He remembers clearly that he refused one when he first joined, so it makes no sense that he suddenly has one assigned to him now. Curious, Jin asks Kota if the commander really ordered him to report directly to him whenever someone tried to threaten Jin. Kota confirms it, and Jin is already shocked before Kota adds the real bomb. The commander himself is Jin's bondage partner. Everything suddenly lines up in Jin's head. The way Andante spoke to him earlier now makes sense. However, Jin feels a bit left out, almost as if everyone except him already knew Andante was his bondage partner. He starts questioning why Andante would lie to him when he made it clear he did not want one. Well, in all fairness, he didn't exactly lie. He just omitted but is omitting lying. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Anyway, the more Jin thinks about it, the more he realizes the boss probably refused his guiding not out of lack of interest, but because he had already taken that role in secret. Our boy starts to suspect that the commander genuinely likes him, because it is hard to explain this level of protection any other way. While he is still sitting with Kota, Jin asks if the commander is usually this considerate with every guild member. Kota explains that this kind of treatment is not standard and that Jin is only getting it because he is a bondage partner. Jin is skeptical and does not fully accept that answer. Kota just stares at him and begins to hint that there might be more to it. But before he can finish that thought, Andante walks back in. The commander immediately senses that something happened and checks whether they were fighting. Flat, clearly annoyed, complains that Journey insists on starting trouble even while they are supposed to be on vacation. Journey fires back with a sarcastic remark, pointing out that Flat is usually the one starting trouble. The boss keeps things light and tells them not to cause a scene, saying it will scare Jin if they keep it up. He then calls everyone over to check the food they brought back. Jin watches how everyone reacts and notices that no one seems truly bothered by the arguments. For the rest of the guild, this kind of back and forth feels completely normal. The commander then calls Jin over and tells him to eat something so he can calm down. The spread is huge, with meat, seafood, but what catches Jin's eye is how every box seems to come with alcohol. Even so, he takes a drink and looks around, suddenly aware that the atmosphere has softened. For the first time, he starts to really understand how these espers function together as a guild. From Jin's perspective, Andante is the great leader that keeps the whole thing running. He is impressed by how firmly the commander handles conflict, no matter if it is a fight or some other drama. The way Andante leads feels like a direct expression of Onit's orders. Jin is not sure, though, if everyone follows him out of genuine respect or because of a sort of submission that keeps them in check. Eventually, the boys drink themselves into exhaustion and pass out. Just then, our boy quietly slips toward the door and sneaks out. In the hallway, he catches a sulfurous smell and takes it as a sign that he is on the right floor. He follows the smell until he finds the spa. He eases into the water and immediately feels relieved that he did not drink like the others. He knows he would have regretted missing this. As he is soaking, he hears people approaching. Our boy freezes for a moment, unsure what to do, and decides it is safer to cover himself with a towel. Two hotties walk in, chatting amongst themselves. They are complaining about how they need to be careful, but that it is not exactly easy in practice. They spot Jin and are surprised that someone is already in the spa. One of them quickly decides there is no reason to care and heads into the spa anyway. Once they settle in, one of them lets out a satisfied reaction about how good it feels, and the other teases him by comparing him to an old young man. The one being teased admits that he is not young anymore, and explains that the real reason it feels this good is because he is exhausted from a dungeon raid the day before, even though he had guiding. His friend keeps teasing him, saying he is only this tired because he went too long with his guide, and the old young man does not bother denying it. Jin, meanwhile, is silently cursing his luck. Of course, these guys had to be espers. He starts thinking it is probably safest to slip out quietly before they pay too much attention to him. Just as he is about to leave, one of them asks whether he is staying on the VIP floor too. The man mentions that he noticed Jin at the pool earlier and wants to confirm whether Jin came with his guild. Jin acknowledges that he did. The other man mentions that he is from abroad and that this is his first vacation in Korea, and he comments on how nice the place is. Jin is not interested in small talk and is mostly focused on finding an excuse to leave. The conversation keeps going anyway, and the men ask whether he is an A-class. Jin freezes, not knowing how to answer, and his nerves show. Before he can reply, they confidently say that anyone below A-class would never be able to afford a place like this, so they assume he must be high rank. One of them seems excited about bumping into Jin in such a private setting and clearly wants to keep chatting. Jin shuts the idea down as politely as he can, saying he has been there long enough and needs to head back. The men are disappointed by the rejection, but one of them reaches out and grabs his wrist. Jin immediately pulls away. From that brief contact, they realize something is off and can tell he is not an esper. Our boy knows he cannot show fear, so he tells them to let him go and keeps his tone firm. The one guy is stunned that any espers in Jin's guild would allow a guide to walk around alone, and he points out how risky that is if Jin were to run into someone dangerous. Jin interprets that as a possible threat, but they quickly clarify that they are not threatening him at all, and that they wouldn't want to be punished by the NSA. Jin doubles down and asserts himself, ordering them to move out of his way. They are taken aback by the sudden aggression and insist that they only wanted to talk, but they decide to back off and act like it's all good if he wants to be that way. Jin, however, is focused on getting out of there as quickly as possible. Just as he is trying to leave, the men shove him into the water and lean over him, making it clear that the punishment they mentioned before only applies to normal guides. One of the guys starts talking, but just then Jin notices the tattoo on his midsection and realizes right away that he is a tattooed esper from overseas. The guy finishes his thought and mentions that they are not an officially registered guild. Jin then sees another tattoo on his bicep and realizes he really is part of an unregistered guild. With both of them holding Jin by the shoulders, they make it clear that, in other words, NSA rules do not apply to them. Jin looks terrified and wonders if they are from the Darkness Guild. The Darkness Guild is swarming with criminals that no nation dares to control. Just as there is shadow where there is light, if there are righteous guilds like the NSA that are backed by the government, there are also groups that handle the more sinister work. Many guilds, including the NSA, have tried to arrest them, but they have so many skilled members that they are nearly impossible to catch. The unregistered esper then checks whether our boy understands the situation now. In that moment, Jin starts beating himself up, thinking he is an idiot for not realizing how serious it was when the commander suggested he needed a bondage partner, and he worries that now it might be too late. Our boy feels like he has been living under a rock for too long, but now he is getting full exposure to the real world. The tattooed esper admits that it has always been his dream to bang a tall and muscular guide and figures today is his lucky day. His partner in crime calls his taste weird, but the tattooed esper insists he is missing out and that seeing a big buff guy cry is a huge turn-on. The other guy argues that women or slim men are much better. It definitely sounds like this dude goes both ways. This whole ordeal has our boy feeling like his head is soaked in bleach. He is trying to figure out how on earth he can get out of this. He has no one to call and no way to call anyone, but he is resilient and knows he should not give up. Right then, as this jacked hottie starts reaching for our boy, a hand comes out of nowhere and smacks his away. Jin is confused as hell, But when he looks up, his mind suddenly clears and he sees the commander checking on his babe Jin to see if he is still there. The two unregistered predators are stunned to see the commander show up like this. Holding Jin close, and Dante wonders if Jin avoided drinking because he wanted to come to the spa and adds that he would have come with him if he had known. Jin apologizes for the misstep, but the commander reassures him it is okay and that what matters is he made it back in time. As he stands up, the commander sarcastically acknowledges that having such a hot guide attracts pests. It happened before, and clearly it has happened again. The two men get angry and demand to know who he is and how he got in there. Being the smooth smartass that he is, the commander simply replies that he walked in. That response pisses these unregistered guild boys off. They point out that this is not what they were asking and clarify that what they really want to know is how he managed to walk in without them noticing. The commander gets bold and remarks that it is obviously because they are not capable enough, so they should not blame him for that. They get defensive and ask if he has any idea who he is messing with. The commander turns their own words back on them, reminding them that they just admitted they were from an unregistered guild, and then cuts into their ego by challenging whether they are simply too weak to get officially registered, yet still had the audacity to go after his guide. The commander straight up calls them scumbags. The two guild members get real gangster and warn him to watch his mouth because it is nothing for darkness guilds like them to kill him on the spot. The commander leans into his mind games and calls them clowns for openly admitting they are from the Darkness Guild. He adds that they should be ashamed and should have taken that information to the grave. This infuriates them and they move to attack the commander. Before they do, the commander gives them a little heads up. He warns that if they really are Darkness Guilds, their limbs will soon be fed to dogs, while the rest of their bodies will be gutted and put on display in the middle of Seoul. He adds that this still would not be the end of it. Once their corpses have rotted, they would be tossed into dungeons and used as monster bait, and they would forever be remembered as a bad example to their colleagues. The unregistered dude thinks it sounds like nonsense, but he is still getting chills. Just when it seems like he is done, the commander piles on even more. He claims their entire families would be captured and forced to make drugs for espers until they die and that it would all be their fault. This threat sounds way too specific and detailed to be pure bluff. He definitely has some kind of plan in mind, so personally I would not test it, but that is just me. The Darkness Guild guys decide this dude is completely deranged and tell him to cut the crap. The commander calmly asks if what he just laid out really sounds like crap to them. After realizing he is not joking, they back off and decide they do not want to deal with a lunatic like him. They walk away, and just then, the commander checks with Jin, asking if that was settled smoothly. Jin wants to know if everything he said was bullshit, and the commander immediately answers that it was not and that he was being genuine. The commander then gives Jin some backstory on these Darkness Guilds. He explains that they got their name because they operate in the underbelly of society. They do not have an official name or any clear way to be identified, so no one really knows who they are or where to find them. They try to stay out of sight since they only take on discreet work. Under his breath, the commander adds that people who do not think through their actions tend to die early, and that he was simply reminding those guys of that. The commander then shifts the focus back to our boy and checks if Jin is hurt at all or if they laid a hand on him. Jin lets him know he is okay, and once again apologizes for the position he put himself in. The commander assures him it is not his fault and takes the blame, saying it is mostly on him for not protecting his guide properly. Despite those kind words, Jin still feels like he owes him a lot. Just as he is thinking that, the commander mentions that besides, he has already received his reward for helping our boy. Jin has no idea what reward he is talking about. The commander looks at shirtless Jin and jokingly makes a little eyeglass gesture, indicating that he finally got to see our boy with his shirt off. Jin blushes and quickly tries to cover up. The boss comments that covering up so fast only makes him even sexier. The commander then states the obvious and admits that he is looking at something he should not be looking at, clearly referring to the wound on Jin's chest. Jin admits to the commander that he is just not used to showing his body to people. The commander agrees and says he understands, then casually pops open his own shirt. His wound is exposed, but so are those ridiculous abs. He's completely shirtless, looking perfectly symmetric, chiseled as fuck. This guy is definitely doing high-intensity interval training 4 times per week and eating a high-protein diet. Anyway, Jun quietly notes that the wound looks a lot better than before and starts wondering if the boss might have received guiding from someone else. Before that thought can spiral, the commander cuts in and suggests they simply enjoy the spa together, man to man, saying that might make things less awkward. Jun goes along with it. The commander settles into the water, splashes his face, and looks perfectly at ease. Meanwhile, Jun is having a crisis. He wants to get out, but he doubts his towel will actually cover his lower half if he stands up. At the same time, he does not want to expose his chest either. He does not trust the commander to politely turn around for him, so he starts wondering if he should just wait for the boss to leave first. Nervous, he calls out to him. Jun brings up what the others said. They mentioned he already had a bond partner and that it was the commander. Ande brushes it off at first and admits he told them that on purpose. He does not trust any of them, and he knows they are the type to lose their minds the second they hear a guide does not want to keep a bondage partner. Jun looks both annoyed and confused at that logic. The commander then asks if Jun only just figured it out, saying he thought Jun realized back when he was healing flat. Jun admits he had no idea. Now things start to click for our boy. He realizes the commander has been pretending to be his bondage partner to protect him. He remembers how cautious Flat got around Andante during the emergency guiding. Jun assumed it was just because he was the commander, but apparently there was more to it. Andante checks whether Jun took offense at any of this and even admits it would be his mistake if Jun had someone else in mind as a partner. Jun quickly reassures him that he is not offended at all and that he is just grateful. Jun thinks about how easily the commander could have blamed him for all of this, since Jun was the one who refused a bondage partner in the first place. Instead, things went in the complete opposite direction. He ends up saying he does not even know how to respond. The commander tells him not to overthink it and says he is the one who is grateful that Jun joined their guild. Jun then points out that, even with all of this effort, the boss still refuses to receive guiding from him. He asks if the commander is unhappy with him in any way, and Dante gives him a serious look, then suddenly bursts into laughter and makes it clear there is no way he could be dissatisfied with an S-class guide. That only makes Jun more confused, so he presses a little and asks why he keeps refusing guiding. He even wonders if the commander already has a mate, and Dante denies that and explains that he just really does not like it. Jun is thrown off by that answer. The commander clarifies that he does not like receiving guiding at all because it makes him feel dependent on the guide, and he hates the feeling of someone stirring up his body like that. Jun nods and says he understands, but inside he is struggling with it. Guiding is a matter of life and death for espers, so he cannot wrap his head around how the boss treats it like it is some dish he can push away if he does not like the taste. If anything, Andante should understand those risks more than anyone. The commander explains that this is simply how he has always lived, so Jun does not need to worry. He adds that the drugs they make these days are pretty advanced, and for him that is enough to get by. Jun immediately thinks that must be how he healed that wound. He is relieved it is not personal, and that the refusal is not because the commander dislikes him, but it does not change the fact that espers need guiding. In Jun's mind, refusing it is basically the same as saying you are ready to die at any moment. The commander looks over at Jun and can tell something is bothering him. He checks in and asks if Jun is worried about him. Jun admits that guiding is directly tied to an esper's survival. Andante acknowledges it and says he will accept it if he is literally on the verge of death and does not want to die. He sits with that thought for a moment and then adds something extra. He tells Jun that he might welcome guiding under one condition, if Jun agrees to let him be the one on top. Our boy flinches, completely thrown off, and does not know how to respond. Andante just grins and remarks that Jun is so sexy he would probably not even notice he was receiving guiding in the middle of it. Then he suddenly lightens his tone, says he is not actually asking for that, and tells Jun to relax, brushing it off as a casual comment. Jun has no idea if he is serious or teasing. Rather than try to untangle it, Jun decides to mentally tap out. He sinks his head into the water and just lets it all wash over him. Time passes, the next thing he knows, he is being carried on the commander's back and Andante is telling him he is up. Jun has no idea what happened, but the commander explains that he passed out during their conversation and gave him quite a scare. He thought Jun went into shock from everything they were talking about. As they walk along the beach, Andante tells him that if he felt dizzy, he should have gotten out of the water instead of staying put. Jun apologizes and says he feels fine now so the commander can put him down. Andante checks one more time that he is not dizzy, and Jun confirms he is okay. Then Jun looks at his clothes and realizes something is off. He asks if the commander was the one who dressed him, and Dante reminds him he was the only one there, so of course he had to. Jun is mortified and says he tried so hard to cover himself earlier for nothing. He cautiously asks if the boss saw everything. The commander does not sugarcoat it and says he saw it all since he had to put the clothes on him. He even admits Jun looked so provocative that he wanted to jump him on the spot. We cut back briefly to what actually happened. Jun was covered from the waist down, but his wound was exposed. As Andante stared at it, he realized something important and quietly thought to himself that this was it, like he had just hit the jackpot. Back in the present, Jun wonders aloud if there should be more to it than that. The commander tells him not to overthink things and says Jun still needs to cool off a bit more. He adds that everyone has one or two secrets and he is not particularly interested in digging into everyone's private business. Jun thanks him again. Andante comments that Jun has been thanking him a lot today and insists he did not do anything special to deserve it. Jun disagrees and tells him he did a lot for him. That earns a grin from the commander. He grabs Jun by the shirt and pulls him closer, leaning in like he is about to kiss him. Instead, he brings his mouth near Jun's ear and quietly asks for a favor, saying it is nothing big. Right then, the commander positions our boy to look up at the sky, and they see a massive dungeon gate. Jin looks up at the sky trying to process what the heck he's seeing. It clicks in his mind that this has to be a dungeon gate, and if that is the case, this is bad, and they need to inform the government immediately. His anxiety is spiking as he imagines everything that could go wrong. Meanwhile, the commander is the complete opposite, standing there shirtless, staring up at the gate with this almost grateful expression on his face. Our boy doesn't understand how his commander looks happy in this moment. As if to gauge commander's thoughts, Jin throws out a soft comment saying how the gate is impressive. Right then, the rest of the gang shows up. Journey takes one look at the sky and comments that it is not that big, but it definitely looks dangerous. Flat adds that a gate like that has to be hiding quite the monster inside. Journey turns to the commander and casually asks who is going in. Flat quickly bows out, reminding them that he is still drained from the last dungeon. Antaron tells him not to worry and reassures him he is not planning to make him go. The twins shoot their hands up, eager to volunteer, saying they can handle it and will do a good job. The commander shuts that down, explaining that this is not the right dungeon for them. It may look small from the outside, but it will likely run deep, and in that kind of space, a huge swarm of monsters can gather, making guns pretty much useless. The twins look upset as the reality hits, and they look genuinely disappointed they cannot go. After thinking about it more, the commander decides it would be best if he goes in alone. Flat is completely rattled by that, turning to him in disbelief and demanding to know if he is seriously going in without any guiding like he has extra lives to spare. The boss just brushes it off and says he feels good today. Flat can't hold back and questions whether the commander is even human at this point. The twins, overhearing this, lean in with matching expressions and basically agree that Flat is an idiot, reminding him that the commander was never really human to begin with. Jin hears that and questions what they even mean by that. His brain shifts back to the practical problem in front of them and he insists they should be contacting the government, or at the very least asking another guide for help. While Jin spirals, the commander calmly wonders what happens if the gate closes while they sit around waiting. From his point of view, it looks like there is something nice on the other side, so they should hurry up and enter before they lose the chance. Based on the size, he casually labels it a C-class dungeon. Jin pushes back on that because just a moment ago the commander said it looked deep, so that doesn't add up to him. A roar rips out from the gate, echoing over the beach, and our boy stares up at the menacing swirl of energy, trying to reconcile that sound with the idea of it being only C-class. Andante tells everyone not to worry, reminding them that he has cleared low-class dungeons alone before and plans to make this quick. Before stepping in, he tells the guild to take good care of Jin while he is gone. Journey answers with a crisp yes, sir. The commander disappears into the gate and the entrance responds with heavy, violent noises as it swallows him. Jin stands there frozen, thinking to himself that there is no way this is okay and that the man is going to die. Out of nowhere, the two unregistered guild guys from earlier wander back into the scene. One of them casually throws out a bet of 100 million won that the commander is going to get completely obliterated in there. Flat looks them up and down and demands to know who they even are. They start to introduce themselves with a dramatic build-up, but Flat loses interest immediately and turns to Journey instead, asking if he wants to bet on how long it will take for the commander to come back. Journey is all in and confidently says 1 hour. The unregistered dudes practically choke at that. They ask if he is insane and how anyone could clear that dungeon in an hour. Then they think it over and admit that since the commander went in alone, at least nothing will be getting in his way. Flat and Journey end up nose to nose again, arguing. Flat says his bet is on 3 hours and reminds everyone that the commander already cleared a dungeon 2 days ago. Journey fires back that Flat is the idiot here because a C-class like the commander would have barely broken a sweat in there. Journey laughs and says the commander probably just lounged around casting a couple of debuffs near the entrance. Flat is genuinely thrown by that and asks if he is serious. Journey explains that the only reason he brought Flat that time was to use him as a distraction. Flat complains that he thought the plan was for them to go in separately. When it hits him that he was the only one working himself to death that day, he goes off and vows to get in the commander's face about it later. Journey just calls him an idiot, and the twins pile on with their usual moron and idiot comments from the peanut gallery. While they are all bickering, Jin is quietly watching and wondering if any of them are actually worried about the commander at all. One of the unregistered guys grumbles that every single one of these pricks is getting on his nerves and dismisses them as C-class losers. Journey turns back to Jin and asks if he knows those two. Our boy admits he ran into them earlier. The unregistered Esper remarks that the stupid ones tend to be the bravest, which is probably the only reason they thought it was a good idea to send their commander straight to his grave. In his mind, the man is already torn to shreds. He goes even further and comments that there is no way Andante failed to recognize that this is an S-class dungeon. That stops Jin cold. He repeats the words, totally shaken. An S-class dungeon. He explains the size of the gate and the fact that the commander clearly labeled it C-class. The unregistered pair laugh at him and make him aware that size doesn't matter at all when it comes to S-class gates and that he is an idiot for believing something that dangerous is low rank just because it looks small. Jin stares up at the gate again and something inside him starts to crack. He remembers what it felt like to be stuck in that kind of situation before and how badly he never wanted to experience anything like it again. That is exactly why he chose this guild, because it was supposed to be safe. His body starts trembling as the realization sinks in. Koda walks over and gently pulls Jin toward him, telling him not to worry and that things will be fine. Journey joins in and tries to calm him down as well, reminding him that there is no need to panic because the commander will be back in an hour, just like he predicted. The unregistered Espers snickers at that thought and says the man will be dead long before an hour passes. Flat remembers the earlier trash talk and turns it into something official. He points out that he heard them say they would bet 100 mil to on the commander being obliterated. They confirm it and ask so what. Flat responds by locking in the terms, 100 mil to what the commander lives. Journey jumps in and mirrors the same bet. The unregistered guys start laughing and dramatically raise the stakes, saying they will give them 1 billion if the commander survives. Flat clarifies that if both of them are betting 1 billion, that is 2 billion in total. He then calls over the twins and asks if they want to cover the rest, confirming that they will bet 900 million. Flat records the whole exchange and tells them to make sure they pay in full later, and to hand over each of their 100 million. Jin watches all of this unfold and wonders if they should even be placing bets right now, when it is the commander's life on the line. The dungeon roars again, the sound growing more violent and terrifying. Jin looks up at the gate with his heart pounding and realizes that awful sound can only mean one thing: the gate is about to close, and that one thing is that the gate is closing. Jin is thinking to himself that once it seals shut, there is no getting back out. The commander has to come out now. One of those unregistered guilds standing nearby found this amusing, fully convinced that there's no way commander would have survived and probably didn't even last 30 minutes. Jin looks around and asks if they should be doing something. Cherney, of all people, is the voice of reason. He warns Jin that going in right now is the wrong move because when the commander fights alone, he gets rough, and they would only end up hurting themselves by interfering. That answer does nothing for Jin. He is confused, asking what the heck are they supposed to do. He looks up at the sky, then back at everyone just standing on that beach, and cannot understand why nobody seems disturbed by any of this. Eventually, he has to admit to himself that he does not have a move to make either. He thinks about the commander and feels the weight of realizing he never even had the chance to repay him for everything he has done. Then Cherney notices something shift and turns toward the gate. Jin looks up as well. The gate reacts violently, energy surging and crackling from the inside like something is forcing its way through. A hand breaks through first. Then the commander pushes out, battered and shirtless, and calmly announces he is back. Jin drops to the ground in relief. The rest of the guild reacts to the fact that the man is actually alive and standing in front of them. Fanboy Cherney immediately wants to know how it went inside and whether it was completely insane in there. The commander says it was not too bad, which sounds like cap considering his palm has a fresh cut across it and blood is running down his forearm. He changes his tone a little, saying he guesses it was a little bit tough, but Flat is not buying that description. Cherney praises the beast for coming back faster than anyone expected, and the commander cracks out his arm, accepts the compliment, and leaves it at that. The two unregistered guilds can't believe he came back, and the commander can't believe they are still there. These two are not in a good headspace right now. They just watched this man come out of an S-class dungeon alone, and the only conclusion they can arrive at is that they severely miscalculated who they were dealing with. They start quietly inching away, but Flat cuts them off and reminds them they still owe a payout. The twins step in, reminding them both that they each owe 1 billion. Like true gangsters, they drag them off by their collars, as Cherney and Flat watch, with a mutual understanding that they brought this entirely on themselves. Flat checks in with the commander and asks if he found anything useful inside the dungeon. The commander says he will break it down tomorrow because clearing that alone took it out of him. He grabs Jin by the wrist and tells him they are heading back. Just then, Jin notices that the commander's back is completely wrecked. He tells the commander his back is a mess, and Cherney immediately jumps in, pushing for guiding. But the commander brushes it off and says it will heal on its own. The commander pulls Jin aside and mentions that while he was in the dungeon, he remembered what he wanted to say earlier. He asks Jin if the favor offer is still on the table. When he thinks of the offer, Jin's brain goes straight to guiding. He figures that with injuries this severe, the commander finally has no reasonable way to refuse, and he is already thinking to himself that he will do whatever it takes on his end to make it happen. He agrees and tells the commander to go ahead with his request. It turns out that the commander wanted Jin to keep this whole ordeal a secret. He is asking him not to tell anyone about him going into that gate today. Jin says yes before he even fully processes the request, but then is totally confused by the request. Our boy asks the commander to repeat that, and when he clarifies, Jin realizes he wants secrecy, not guiding. Jin asks why he is asking for secrecy of all things instead of guiding. The commander looks genuinely confused and points out that guiding is already Jin's job, so how exactly would that count as a personal favor? This is a masterclass in communication breakdown. Jin has no real answer for that and starts to backtrack. He uncomfortably flares his hands around, admitting the commander has a point. He agrees to keep quiet, turns away, rubs the side of his face, wondering to himself why his brain went straight there. The commander thanks him and suggests they should head back to the room since they are leaving in the morning. But our boy is still thinking about guiding. As they start heading back, he asks Andante when he will receive guiding, pressing the commander on how tomorrow might be too late. The commander responds like he genuinely has no idea what guiding Jin is even referring to. Jin assumed that the commander planned to receive guiding and reminded him that he literally just said he did not need to go out of his way to ask for it. The commander quickly shuts down Jin's thought process, telling him that he doesn't need guiding. The commander reminds Jin that they had this conversation before at the spa, and he told him that he doesn't like receiving guiding, so stop bugging him about it. Jin blows through that red light and keeps going. He tells the commander that this time it's different because he's severely injured. The commander is not moved by that argument at all, and tells him plainly not to worry about him. Jin warns him that an Esper who goes without guiding is going to go rampant eventually, as if the commander wasn't fully aware of that. Our boy Jin won't stop, explaining that once control is gone, there is no coming back. Clearly tired of this conversation, the commander stops him cold in his tracks with a simple "Hiyo sup." You know that tone when your mom said your name in a certain way and you immediately knew she meant business? Yeah, that tone. He then turns to Jin with those golden eyes and asks how many times must he tell him, "It doesn't matter this situation, no means no. I mean, I don't know if this guy can be any clearer, but hey, that's just me." Anyway, he tells Jin to just drop the topic, and if he doesn't, he might see a side of the commander he doesn't want to see. Jin goes quiet and registers that the commander is completely cutting him off. He turns away and tells himself he should not push anymore. Well, yeah, duh. But then something clicks in his mind. The color of the commander's eyes. It instantly reminds Jin of a warning he received once, and it was those same golden eyes that were present back then. Those were the eyes of an Esper who's about to go rampant, and the ultimate guilt trip is that the Esper only goes rampant because our boy abandoned him. After witnessing that devastating event, Jin made a vow that he would never let that happen to someone again. Jin comes back to the present and meekly says the word "me." Confused by what the F he's talking about, the commander looks back and asks what. Jin hesitates and mumbles, asking the commander if the guiding would be okay if he lets him top him. The commander's mouth tightens into a faint smile and he plays dumb, telling Jin he genuinely does not know what he is trying to say. Interesting, considering this guy is the most observant damn character in this story. Anyway, Jin starts mumbling, reminding him of what he said back at the spa, that he would welcome guiding if Jin let him be on top. Jin is working through this in his head. If the commander avoids guiding because he hates the feeling of someone else's energy flowing into him, then maybe the solution is to give him something else to focus on. He cautiously floats the idea that if he could use his mouth for the guiding, it might change things. The commander found the offer amusing. He steps forward with a serious face and asks Jin if he even knows what he just said. Before Jin can even process that question, the commander grabs his face and makes it clear he could completely wreck this man's mouth. Not sure if that is a threat or something more seductive, but let's see. Jin looks up at the commander, realizing what he just said got him into trouble. The commander calls him by his name, "Hiyo sup," and tells him straight up that what he just described sounds like an offer to enjoy the blow-pop lollipop, and asks if he can interpret it that way. Jin gives a small nod and says using his mouth is fine, falling back on his duty as a guide to justify the whole thing. The commander laughs and admits he cannot quite figure Jin out. Still holding Jin's face, he tells him that he assumed he was a player when he said he did not need a bondage partner, but then turns around and acts like a total virgin. With those golden eyes fixed on him, he adds that Jin also knows how to say the filthiest things. Our boy has no response to that. Jin's face tightens under the commander's touch, and he starts trembling, trying hard not to show how shaken he is. He cannot tell if the commander is deliberately trying to pull him in, or if this is just how the man operates. He is caught in this moment, lips parting slightly and completely off balance from how close everything has become. The commander still has a firm grip on Jin's chin and tells him the real problem with his offer. His mouth is too small and it will get wrecked, so wrecked that he will not even be able to eat his little octopus sausages afterward. Jin looks him firmly in the eyes and tells him it does not matter. Okay, damn, this is about to get spicy. The commander stares at him, somewhere between amused and suspicious, and comes right out and says that Jin must really want to guide him. Jin keeps his answer simple, telling him he is only doing this because the commander is in critical condition. The commander pauses at that, clearly not expecting something so blunt, and asks if that is really all there is to it, and Jin confirms it without hesitation. The commander takes that answer in and accepts it. He tells Jin he will accept the guiding and immediately follows it up with another tease about what he plans to put in Jin's mouth instead. Our boy is a little confused and wonders if a commander should really be tearing up his guide's mouth like that. Jin asks him what exactly he has in mind, and the commander does not say a word. He just leans in and kisses him. Instantly, Jin's inner thought quietly admits that this is better than he anticipated. The shock fully hits him as the commander deepens the kiss fast and Jin jolts from the sudden intensity, grabbing onto the commander's bare shoulder just to stay upright. Jin is flushed and trembling, and the commander is not letting up, staying completely in control while our boy is just trying to hold on. As they continue to kiss, Jin keeps noticing that strange scent he cannot shake, and it starts to click in his head that the commander is basically consuming him alive at this point. Our boy is so deep in this moment that his brain just stops working. Meanwhile, Jin starts feeling the commander pulling his energy at a rate that is way too fast, and the side effects are starting to hit him hard. The commander takes the trembling as an opportunity to pull him in even closer. Jin's head tilts back as he tries to hold himself together. He is shaking, cannot breathe, and he knows he is at his limit. He tries to push back against the commander's chest with what little he has left, but the commander yanks him right back in hard and fast, clearly not interested in stopping. The commander is sweating too now, with a sharp, focused expression showing he is fighting something internal. He deepens things further, one hand cradling Jin's head and the other sliding down toward Jin's hip, and Jin flinches hard at the contact. The commander pulls back just enough to catch his breath and admits out loud that he cannot take it anymore. Just as he says that, those golden eyes glimmer in a way that is not exactly reassuring for our boy. The commander is also in full internal crisis himself, which he sums up in exactly one word we cannot repeat on this channel. But we will give you a hint. It starts with an F and ends in a U, C, K. Without warning, he swoops back in toward Jin's neck, and Jin realizes with full clarity that his energy is flowing into the commander against his will. This is force guiding. Jin can barely get the commander's name out before his voice gives up entirely. He is dizzy, shaking, and his vision is starting to blur. Our boy is starting to droop as the commander holds his face, those golden eyes still burning with something he clearly has not gotten under control yet. The commander pulls back and asks Jin what is wrong. A bold question from the man currently responsible for Jin's condition. Still not even close to satisfied, he pulls Jin back in by the waist and suggests that maybe they should just go all the way because that might actually take the edge off. He leans against Jin's neck with that smirk and points out that Jin does not exactly look like he is hating any of this. In the softest, most dangerous tone of the night, the commander looks up at Jin with those golden eyes and asks what he thinks, promising he will be gentle. Jin is barely holding on, gasping against the commander's neck, telling him he has nothing left. The commander shushes him, bites him, and says he just needs a little more as his hand slides further down. Jin cannot pull a single coherent thought together because that scent has completely taken over his head. Kota steps onto the beach with the rest of the guild and tells the commander it is time to stop. The commander goes quiet with those golden eyes still burning, clearly not thrilled about the interruption. Jin is slumped and barely standing at this point, and the commander looks at the whole situation, runs a hand through his own hair, and realizes he's going to have blue balls. He passes Jin over to Kota and tells him to handle him. Flat tells the commander he was way too rough with their guide, and Cherney piles on saying he was fully convinced the commander was about to swallow Jin whole. The commander laughs it off and says he would never do something like that to Hyo Sup. Sir, the evidence says otherwise. Cherney looks at the commander and instantly notices his eyes are still scary golden and wonders if he is actually okay. The commander shrugs and says he is probably fine. Flat tells him that next time he feels like he is losing control, he needs to warn them so they have enough time to clear out. The commander brushes it off and says he just got a little carried away, since it has been a long time since he last received guiding. He stretches out and checks his back wound, and it hits him that he cannot remember the last time it closed up this well. Interesting. Meanwhile, Jin is struggling, trying to recover, and Kota is not doing great either, clearly struggling to keep Jin upright. He seems like our boy's entire body has given up. The commander explains his experience, saying the whole thing felt like crossing an entire desert and being handed a single sip of water at the end. Not sure how he knows what that feels like, but let's keep going. Just as he says that, he adds something that takes our boy by surprise. He adds flatly that it's all good and at least he didn't die because he is an S-class. That comment shocks the shit out of Jin, and he asks him what the heck he meant by that. The commander doesn't elaborate and just says that the sun is rising. Kota grabs our boy and lets him know that it's time to get out of here and head to their room. Jin's brain does not slow down after that. He starts to think about the guiding process. He knows that the guide is supposed to be in control, and Espers cannot just take guiding by force. A guide's power does naturally respond to Espers, though, and the stronger the pull between them, the more energy a guide can end up pouring out without meaning to. Higher-ranked guides have enough control to resist that pull, which means force guiding should not even be possible unless the Esper is at least the same rank as the guide or higher. After going through the whole process, Jin is sitting with a question that doesn't make any sense to him. How did a C-class Esper manage to force guiding out of an S-class guide? It should not be possible, which only leads him straight to the next logical answer. Just what exactly is the commander then? That is what Jin would love to figure out, but the man hasn't set foot in the office for an entire week, so that conversation is not happening anytime soon. Jin is standing there, scanning the office and realizes no one comes in the office during the morning, so it's a good time to go through the files to find what he is looking for. Our boy finds the paper. It has the height, weight, blood type, C-class Esper, mind type, physical type, but it's nothing useful. He figures the commander is too careful to leave anything worth finding just lying around anyway, puts the file down, and decides he should just go eat lunch. Just then, the door flies open. Jin is startled hard and papers go everywhere. His heart is absolutely going crazy as he looks down at the shoes in front of him and freezes. Those are not guild shoes. Nobody in this building dresses like that. He looks up and immediately remembers the face from the guild meeting. The man apologizes smoothly, says he is here to see someone he knows and assumed the place would be empty, so he did not bother knocking. Jin tells him not to worry about it, and the man thanks him with a smile that is a little too composed for someone who just kicked open a door. He introduces himself as Shin Hei-chang, commander of the NSA. Jin bows and introduces himself as the guide of Onape. Shin tells him he remembers seeing him at the meeting. Jin is genuinely surprised that anyone would remember him because, let's be real, he didn't do a damn thing to stand out like Cherney did. Shin remembers that he was standing next to the commander. Jin didn't expect him to remember, but Shin asks him where the other guilds are. Jin tells him the rest of the guild will be around in the afternoon, but Shin asks specifically about the commander, and Jin tells him he's been absent all week and there is no telling when he will actually show up. I'm not gonna lie, Jin is answering way too many questions without knowing why this guy is asking. Anyway, Shin says he'll wait a little longer, and Jin, being the gentleman that he is, tells Shin to make himself comfortable and offers to make him tea. Shin realizes he made a frickin' mess with all these papers and has to clean up. And just as he's doing that, Shin magically has the papers in his possession and asks if he should place them on the desk. Shin realizes that this dude is the telekinetic type Esper. Shin tells him to put them on the desk, and Shin does, no problem. As Jin is getting Shin his tea, he thinks to himself that these telekinetic type of Esper are rare to come by, but for whatever reason, he doesn't feel all that lucky to meet him. Jin brings the tea over and they sit across from each other with the clock filling the silence between them. Jin is watching this man and thinking that Shin must genuinely care about the commander to come all the way out here personally, but still, he cannot wrap his head around these two being close. One runs the most embarrassing C-class guild in the country, and the other commands Korea's top S-class operation. It makes no sense. They exist on completely different levels. The only thing Jin can wrap his mind around is that they are both freaking hotties, so maybe that's their connection. Shin looks directly at Jin and boldly asks him, "What class are you?" Jin is just standing there holding his little cup of tea. As he thinks more about it, he starts sweating, not sure how to answer this loaded question. Shin gives him an out though. He tells Jin he doesn't have to answer if he doesn't want to, he was just asking out of curiosity. Jin's brain immediately starts doing the math. He wonders what would happen if he told the truth. Just as his mouth starts to open, the door bursts open. It's the commander. Andante is standing there, a little out of breath, hair slightly messed up, coat still on. Jin is surprised to see him. The commander collects himself and greets everyone with a good morning, smoothly tells Shin he should have called ahead if he was planning to visit. Shin says he did call. The commander points out that calling from directly in front of the door is not what most people would consider calling ahead. Shin doesn't exactly agree with the commander's take. Anyway, the commander shifts his focus to Jin, suggesting that the random drop-in must have scared him and concerned that Shin gave him a hard time. Jin tells him he's fine. The commander is thankful that Jin is okay because he was quite concerned when he heard Shin was at the office. The commander is clearly pissed and then turns to Shin to correct him on his etiquette, letting him know that once he saw his guide by himself, he should have bounced. Shin doesn't give a damn about the commander's view but lets him know he wants to have a word with him. The commander gives him the okay to talk, but Jin is putting the pieces of the puzzle together on how exactly it's okay for a C-class to treat an S-class like that. Shin gets to his point. He explains that an unusual gate appeared at a certain beach about a week ago. The commander plays dumb really, but Shin presses the issue, saying he heard it close in about 30 minutes and asking if the commander went inside. I mean, this Shin isn't shy about asking hard questions. The commander continues to play dumb and goes to his gaslighting ways, asking Shin why on earth would he go inside a random gate with unknown contents knowing he's just a puny C-class. Shin isn't buying any of his gaslighting. He points out that the commander doesn't seem like someone who shies away from risks, considering he agreed to walk into an A-class dungeon not too long ago. But the commander continues with his sneakiness and lies, telling Shin that the situation he's referring to was different, and pointing the finger back at Shin saying it's his fault. Damn, this guy is so slick. However, Shin isn't wavering and keeps pressing. He asks the commander if he really just stood by the entrance. The commander tells him to go ask any of the A-class espers who were there. They'll confirm he was working very hard debuffing monsters for the whole team. Okay, it's official. This man is an elite-level liar and absolutely cannot be trusted. Shin doesn't let up, asking the commander where was the other guild member who went into the dungeon with him and why they didn't move together. The commander tells him it's because his team members like to move alone, which is actually what makes it difficult for them to enter dungeons as a team. Shin pauses for a second and lets it be known that he knows the commander is full of shit. He tells him flat out that the core at the very center of the dungeon he entered, although he keeps vehemently denying, had been stolen. The commander looks him in the eye and says that sounds an awful lot like an accusation. Shin actually agrees. The commander laughs off the accusation, telling Shin that the way he's talking, you'd think he was some kind of S-class running a secret operation instead of a C-class with a handful of guild members and a reputation for doing absolutely nothing. He suggests that Shin should ask the other espers if he doesn't believe him. Shin refutes that suggestion, insinuating that he's not stupid. The commander could have easily ordered a guildmate to steal it for him. Jin just stands there looking stunned at the whole situation. He's not amused by any of this because in his head, how would any of this be possible if the commander is S-class too? The commander smirks and continues his gaslighting, asking Shin if he truly believes they are S-class and offers the official guild class information to prove he's not lying. Shin goes quiet. Then he stands up and tells the commander he's leaving because it's obvious he's not getting anywhere with this conversation. As he walks out, he gives the commander a haunting message. The longer the tail, the easier it is to step on. Translation: you're full of shit and it's only a matter of time before I catch you. As always, the commander fires back with a slick comment saying he doesn't have a tail. Shin looks at him for a long moment and says he better be careful, that most people look at him and see nothing suspicious. But Shin's gut is telling him something is wrong here, and his intuition, he says, is basically never wrong. The commander shifts gears from gaslighting to guilt-tripping, telling Shin that he's hurt, that he's suspicious of a friend. Shin is clear that they are not friends and wonders since when the commanders considered them such. The commander, completely unbothered, suggests they really are friends, considering they've been in the same hole. Shin doesn't find his comment appropriate to the least, but of course the commander suggests it's not what Shin thinks. The commander tells him that he was talking about that pit they found in the field. Obviously, Shin tells him he's a real piece of work and he sincerely hopes the commander gets sued for harassment someday. The commander thanks him warmly for the encouragement. Clearly annoyed by this situation, Shin turns to Jin and thanks him for the tea, but more importantly, asks Jin to please contact him personally if he ever wants to sue the commander for SA. He will personally arrange a lawyer. Once Shin leaves, the commander goes straight into victim mode, telling Jin that they really don't get along. Our boy Jin clearly sees that Andante is the damn problem, but at the same time, he also knows the commander isn't wrong. The commander turns to Jin and asks, very casually, if he's actually planning to sue him. Jin pauses for a second and tells him no. But the commander caught the pause. He immediately calls out his hesitation. Jin denies that he hesitated but thinks to himself, why is commander in his personal space and acting needy like Cherney? The commander laughs a little to relieve the tension, but our boy Jin is not equally chill about this. He's wondering if he's the only one who feels super awkward right now. Jin's mind starts to wander about what took place a week ago. To Jin, that kiss felt like it happened yesterday and he suffered so much afterwards. He's confused as to why he felt so terrible considering it was only kiss guiding, the most basic guiding that can be done. But for whatever reason, Jin had one of the roughest nights of his life after that session, and he cannot explain why, and he would very much like to stop thinking about it. The commander breaks the silence and tells Jin that if he's seriously bothered by him, he can just sue. Before Jin can respond, the commander pulls out some more psychological warfare. He says that after the guiding session last time, he realized he might end up being a real pain in Jin's life at some point down the road. Jin is confused by what he means. The commander explains that as an Esper, he probably won't go to prison no matter what happens. But through Shin, Jin could at least get a restraining order if he ever needs one. This confused Jin even more, and he's not exactly sure why the commander is telling him this. The commander gets straight to the point and tells our boy that if he starts stalking him, SAing him, or getting too clingy, he has a way out. Jin feels trapped by the situation because he feels that if he were to tell the commander that he wanted to quit, the commander would let him go in a heartbeat. Which, is an oxymoron because if he wanted to quit, what does it matter if the commander let him go? He was quitting anyway. Okay, confusing. Anyway, as Jin is processing all of this, he is once again conflicted because on the surface, Andante seems like someone who is free-spirited, no strings attached. If you want to leave, then leave. Far from the clingy type. The commander stares at Jin and tells him that he thought Jin was a bit dense, but he likes him. At the same time, he may be too much for their guild. Jin doesn't feel worthy of the compliments, suggesting that he hasn't been of any help to him yet. The commander shakes his head and tells him that he's been of great help so far. Our poor baby Jin doesn't buy it. He points out that his eyes are still the same color and his wounds barely healed either. Jin explains that his eyes are like this because he's constantly stressed and the wounds have always been slow to heal. It's just how he is. Jin asks what exactly he's trying to say. The opportunistic commander tells our boy that he can only tell him if they share a bed together. Our boy is taken aback by what the commander just said, asking if the commander really just suggested they share a bed. The commander tries to play dumb, suggesting that Jin should know what he means. Our naive boy has no idea what this man is talking about. The commander tells him to think of it like those scenes in historical K-dramas, the ones where the royal concubine shares the king's quarters, claiming that he has no malicious or perverted intentions. Right. Jin tells him he grew up mostly overseas and has never actually seen one of those dramas. Internally, Jin is putting it together. The commander is dodging the real conversation by hiding behind fancy excuses, and he is clearly not going to get a straight answer today. Before he can push further, the door opens and the guild files in, looking exhausted as if they just ran here. The boys are confused as to what this emergency meeting is all about because nothing looks urgent at all. Flat sits on the couch and asks the commander what this is all about. He tells the guild that Shin Haisheng dropped by. Flat confirms that it's the NSA dude and is shocked. The twins suggest that this is not good and that Shin knows something is up. Someone gives these two a Scooby snack. The commander makes it clear that from now on, someone must be at the office in the morning to protect Jin. The light bulb goes off in brain-dead Cherney's head and he puts two and two together that Jin must have been here alone when Shin came by. The guild asks for the full story. The commander gets immediately triggered, pissed that the bastard drank the tea that Jin made for him, out of all things. The guild is confused as to what the issue is. Apparently, the commander is in his feelings because he has never once gotten a cup of tea from his own guide, and he is the commander. One of the twins realizes that he's in his feelings and he's about to explode in full victim mode, but before he does, Jin makes the solution simple. He offers the commander to make him a cup right now. Conflict Resolution 101. The guild is clearly tired of the commander's antics, to the point where they want to kill him, jokingly. But before they do that, the twins ask both Cherney and Flat if they checked their bank accounts lately. Cherney pulls out his phone, stares at the screen, and his whole face changes. Turns out, those weird punks from the beach actually paid for losing the bet. Flat is shocked that they actually had the money. The commander has no idea what the heck is going on, but Cherney fills him in on how it all went down. Jin is just standing there stunned because these people were placing billion-1 bets on their commander's survival, and apparently that was completely normal to them. The commander jokingly says he deserves half the winnings because he's the reason they won. Boy, stop being greedy. The twins took his remarks personally and immediately called him insane for even thinking that, letting him know it was their money on the line if they lost. Smiling, the commander shrugs it off, telling them that they knew he was a sure bet. At first, the commander is seen smiling and as if it were a joke, but he puts his hand out and tells the twins to fork over the money. I guess he was serious. The twins look at him and he looks right back with a face of, "Bro, I'm not joking." They get pissed and call him an evil boss. Flat doesn't understand why the twins are so worked up over money. The twins go on to give some quasi-philosophical speech on why money is everything and authority and influence fade away, but money never changes. The commander shifts the topic and asks the twins if they want to go. Of course, they don't know what the heck this guy is talking about and ask where. He tells the twins he found something interesting inside that dungeon and sent Cynthia to investigate, but Cynthia is going to need backup. He asks if they'd be willing to help. The money over everything twins immediately ask how much. With a sneaky grin, the commander tells them that he ain't paying them shit. The twins look at him like he's crazy and question his integrity. He just laughs in their face and tells them in exchange he promises not to interfere with anything they decide to do while they're there. The twins are confused by what that even means. Meanwhile, Jin is analyzing this whole ordeal from the sideline and is confused. The fact that the money-hungry twins are even entertaining this offer says there's something about this offer that he might not understand. The commander gives them the directions and tells them they should get going. But before they do, they should receive guiding. They both agree and immediately turn to Jin and ask him for guiding. Jin asks who wants to go first and they both suggest they go at the same time. Jin questions their suggestion, but they insist they should go at the same time. Internally, Jin knows this is unorthodox because typically only one Esper goes at a time. He reaches out anyway, takes both their hands at once, and the golden energy ignites across all three of them in one clean flash. The commander just stares sternly and mentions that it's done. Well shit, that was a lot quicker than his greedy guiding. Jin looks uncomfortable and asks why the commander is looking at him like that. The commander plays it off as if he's just curious about something. The commander shifts the conversation to the twins, asking how they feel after the guiding. The twins answer plainly, suggesting that our boy didn't do anything special but they feel recharged. But one of the twins asked a provocative question that we are all wondering. Why the heck is Andante asking about guiding like he never received it before? The commander quickly responds, highlighting the makeout sessions he had with Jin. Jin is clearly feeling uncomfortable about that, as that nearly wiped him out last time. The twins call out the commander for his comments, calling him a weirdo, but the commander doesn't even acknowledge their insult. He just reiterates that the guiding was refreshing, and Quasi starts getting turned on just thinking about the guiding from Jin. The commander then switches his focus to Jin, asking him how he feels when giving guiding and what happens after. Okay, all these personal questions are starting to get creepy. Clearly uncomfortable, Jin starts to sweat when he asks that, probably because if he told the truth about how he got wiped out, this conversation could go south really quick. Jin plays it safe, quickly responding that he just gets a little tired. The commander is surprised by that response, especially because last time Jin's face told a totally different story. He asked Jin if he was making a sexy face because of a sensitive spot in his mouth. As the commander rubs his finger on Jin's face, our boy pleads the fifth to the ridiculous question the commander asked. He plays completely dumb and tells the commander he has no idea what he's talking about. The commander stares at our sweetheart guide with those golden eyes and then just tells him never mind. Jin is relieved that they weren't going down that rabbit hole. The twins got the ick from the commander, straight up calling him a perv directly to his face, and points out that it's no surprise the other guides won't go near him. One of the twins explains that the last guide quit after exactly 3 days because the commander was harassing him. The other twin adds that he's pretty sure it was deliberate. Both of them stare at each other and the light bulb goes off. This whole thing is a setup. If the commander has been running guides off on purpose this entire time, then they won't have one when they need it, unless only a complete idiot would ever. They both turn and stare directly at Jin and aren't shy about their comments. Jin is clearly uncomfortable with nothing to say. Despite this, the twins show a moment of genuine sincerity and tell Jin to come straight to them if the commander ever gives him any trouble. They'll handle it. After the insult of being called an idiot, Jin isn't sure if he should be grateful about their offer to protect him. The commander lets them know that if they are finished, they should get going. The commander shifts his focus on Jin, asking him how he feels after the guiding. He says he's fine, to which the commander asks him to run an errand for him. The commander pulls out a black card like a baller and tells Jin to withdraw all the money in this account and bring it back to him. Our naive boy agrees, and Andante tells him he can buy himself a nice meal too if he wants. Jin gives him a stern look and just nods, knowing good and well his cheap ass doesn't intend to buy anything. As Jin leaves, Flat catches the commander awkwardly staring at Jin and wonders what's that about. Flat doesn't bite his tongue and asks the commander if he sees Jin differently after guiding and if his shaboom boom drive has awakened. The commander keeps it real and tells him yeah. Flat starts tweaking completely that the commander actually said yes. I mean, don't ask a question you don't want the answer to. The commander asks what the problem is, and Flat lays out the entire concern. The commander has spent years refusing guiding, and now he has an interest in a guide. Flat assumes the beach incident was an emergency, not a preference, but asks the obvious question, what the hell makes this guy so different? The commander doesn't go into detail but just tells him that he's very different. The commander starts to think more deeply about that question and thinks to himself just why he's so different. Our naive boy is different, and in this case is entirely bad for him specifically. The commander can't exactly put his finger on it, but every reason he just knows that there is a reason for avoiding guiding in the first place. Jin is the absolute last person he should have as his guide. The scar on Jin's chest, the fact that Jin buried himself in a C-class guild specifically to avoid having a bond partner. It's the commander's curiosity about Jin that makes him so different, and honestly, the commander probably just wants to turn this sweet little naive boy out. Okay, maybe I took that too far, but he's curious about Jin. The recent incident shifted something. Whatever he felt while Jin was healing him, he wants to know exactly what that was. And above everything else, that's scent. Just as he goes through this whole range of thoughts, he says the craziest part out loud, telling Flat that maybe stripping Jin down would answer some questions. Out of all the things to say aloud, he says that. This guy is diabolical. Flat, clearly shocked by that comment, asks if the commander is planning to drive Jin off like the others. The commander is firm that he won't let him quit because things are finally coming into place with the guild. Cherney chimes in and switches the topic, asking if Cynthia is looking for a new cat. The commander quickly tells Cherney that they no longer need that anymore. While we may have been thinking this whole time that they were literally looking for cats, we see that this was code word. The word cat is ONAPE's internal code name for the moving stone slabs. These can only be found in dungeons that have been active for a long time, and they contain messages most people can't read, some useful, most completely worthless. The guild has been quietly running dungeon raids to locate the meaningless ones and clear them out of the picture. Cherney's ability made him the perfect person for the job, which explains all those late nights. The commander confirms they're done. Every slab they needed has been located and read. All that's left is Cynthia or the twins physically confirming the real ones on the ground. Cherney, who apparently just realized that all those hours weren't wasted, looks genuinely relieved and glad it wasn't for nothing. The commander gets into the actual debrief. He explains that the beach dungeon was S-class and inside he found a gem exactly like the slabs described, bringing their total to 5. He further explains that the slabs state that collecting all 6 Ignis Fatui gems will cause time inside dungeons to accelerate. S has the 6th one. That gate will open up. Flat asks when he expects this to happen, and the commander tells him sometime this year. Coda, looking like he has a personal vendetta to settle, tells the commander to send him. The commander tells everyone not to worry and paints a vivid picture of just what Coda is getting himself into. The dungeon is a place that draws blood with every step. The gravity inside is heavier than anywhere else on the planet. The air is packed with screaming that doesn't stop. The commander reminds him that he will get the chance to go in, and the path will open once more. Just then, Jin finds his way back. Out of breath with a suitcase full of money, he confirms that he withdrew everything, but it is a lot. Our boy explains that he was anxious with all this money. He was scared he was going to get robbed. The commander laughs and calls it cute, but then gives him some serious news. The money he withdrew was all for him meaning Jin. Our boy freezes and can't believe it. The commander tells him that it's from the twins' bet. Basically, he strong-armed the twins, took their money from a bet he literally just learned about, and gave it to Jin. This man is a gangster in love. The commander breaks down the math for Jin, 8 billion won. After Cherney and Flat took their 200 million cut, the commander claimed 50% of the remainder. The bag Jin just hauled across town contains 900 million won, and every bit of it is going to Jin. Confused, Jin asks why he's giving it to him. The commander frames it as gratitude for the guiding session. Then he starts to backtrack and gives all other bizarre reasons for the money, but at the end of the day, he is doing everything to keep our boy to stay. Our boy is panicking, telling the commander that his salary is enough. The commander drops all the framing and tells Jin flat out just to call it a bribe, and that he wants a promise from our boy that he won't quit the guild. Jin looks at him and tells him that can't. The commander asks how long it takes for Jin to fully recover his energy after giving guiding. Jin tells him about a day, usually. Nothing too rough. The commander nods and says he needs Jin in top condition soon anyway, so maybe he should give him a reason that actually makes accepting the money easy. Jin looks confused and asks what kind of reason. The commander looks at him with those golden eyes and a slight smile, and tells him one that will make Jin feel completely okay about taking it. The commander keeps it short and tells Jin to take the next day off because he's going to need some guiding. He leaves the bag in the office and tells Jin he can decide what to do with it. Jin doesn't respond right away but cannot figure out why he's feeling so nervous about the upcoming guiding session. Our boy didn't get a good night's sleep. He's lying there exhausted, but he knows he needs to be in top condition for today. All he can think about is his lower leg being stiff for whatever reason, and he gives himself a full pity party about it, wondering why his body has to be in this state on the exact day he has to give the commander guiding. It's almost like his body is expecting something that Jin himself hasn't signed off on. When Jin starts to think about it more, he realizes that ever since that day they touched, his body has been way more sensitive than usual. Continuing to basically talk to the ceiling at this point, he says that at this rate the commander is going to figure out his secret, and if that happens he'll have no choice but to quit. Jin doesn't want that. Our boy genuinely wants to keep working there, so he pulls himself together and gets ready. As he's walking in, he's giving himself a pep talk to stay calm and reasoning logically why this isn't a big deal. After Shin Haichang's visit, the commander made sure someone was always at the office in the morning so he knows he won't be alone just in case things get spicy again. He tells himself that if things start feeling strange, he'll just take the rest of the day off. He opens the door and greets the commander. The commander is sitting alone on the couch looking like he owns the place, which he kind of does. All of Jin's logical reasoning on why to not be scared just goes down the toilet once he notices that the commander is here alone. He nervously asks where everyone is, and the commander tells him that he told everyone to come in later. Our boy tries to stay composed, but you can tell he's nervous as shit. The commander picks up on his nervous energy and straight up asks if he's nervous because it's just the two of them. Jin tries to play it cool and says he isn't. The commander isn't buying it because Jin hasn't even entered the office, just standing there looking uncomfortable. Jin awkwardly enters the office, and the commander taps the seat next to him and tells Jin to come over. Jin walks over, and the commander once again notices just how nervous he is. The commander is trying to get straight down to business. He grabs Jin by the wrists and our boy apologizes on instinct and the commander catches it immediately, telling him that apologizing is turning into a whole habit and that he seriously needs more confidence in himself. I mean, I've been saying that since chapter 1. Anyway, the commander gives him a little pep talk about self-confidence, explaining that he should be looking down on all espers because he's an S-class guide and no one can do their job without someone like him. Jin tells him he can't think that way, and the commander puts our boy's hands around his neck and tells him he's the one holding the leash. The commander tells him that needs to have more self-esteem because he's an incredible person. Jin thinks to himself that this man always manages to be the dominant force in every situation no matter what. Yet right now he sounds like he's ready to be the bottom for him. The commander doesn't waste any more time with self-help talk and asks him for guiding. Jin just nods in agreement, standing over the commander ready to provide services. The commander takes it all in, grabbing Jin by the wrists and is ready for his energy. Just then the commander pulls him in closely and asks if kissing is okay. Jin tells him it's fine and then they are off to the races. Literally. To the point where it's moving so fast that Jin has to tell the commander to slow down. The commander doesn't care about that and actually tells Jin to take his tongue in deeper so that the guiding can be more efficient. Jin does it but is thinking to himself, what the heck is this about? As their guiding gets deeper, the commander takes a breath to ask Jin a question. He asks our boy why he doesn't do more than physical guiding, reminding Jin that he never asked him that during the interview. Jin pulls back just enough to breathe, wipes his mouth, and tells him straight that he doesn't think he's obligated to explain himself. Well, look who now has self-esteem. The commander accepts that answer but then puts his own thoughts out there, telling Jin that he assumed Jin either wasn't comfortable getting physical with someone he had no real feelings for, or maybe just wasn't open to being with a man. Jin doesn't respond, but the commander keeps spilling out his thoughts, adding that the more he watched Jin, the less he believed those reasons weren't valid. The commander pulls him closer and tells him he's reacting like there's a different reason. The commander isn't letting this go and keeps pressing Jin for an answer, asking him what is it. The commander floats his own theory and flat out asks Jin if he sleeps around so much outside of work that he'd rather keep things clean on the job, or maybe he can only actually enjoy himself when he's completely in his right mind. Jin tells him that's not it, and the commander calls him out immediately because everything Jin's body is doing right now is telling a completely different story. Then the commander goes to his go-to psychology warfare games, asking if he's personally the reason that Jin doesn't want to do the shebang bang choo-choo train. Before he can answer, the commander tells Jin that he knows he has a seductive face, so if he is the reason, he gets it. Just then, the commander makes a bold move and reaches for Jin's belt. Jin reacts harshly, asking him what the freak he's doing. The commander tries to play it off like a smooth criminal and tells him that he's doing Jin a favor. Jin is panicking, telling the commander that he doesn't need a favor and that he doesn't feel like he can accept this offer. The commander looks confused, asking Jin why he cannot accept this offer and that it'll make him feel good. Jin makes it clear that he doesn't need to feel good to give guiding. The commander finds it strange that he turned down the offer, guaranteeing to Jin that he knows he'll like it. Jin looks away in disgust and doesn't agree with the commander. The commander pulls out more psychological games, asking Jin if he should bring out a mirror to show Jin his own face, because the commander knows good and well he didn't get any sleep last night. The commander assumes that his lack of sleep was because he couldn't wait to do guiding with him. Jin refutes that claim, telling him that's not it. The commander doesn't really care for the reason and proceeds with telling Jin to take off his shirt. He slides his hands up on Jin and starts licking him like a dog, noting that he's sensitive and showing low-key jealousy of whoever his lover is. The commander once again pushes to undo the belt, but Jin shoves him away furiously. He pushes him away so hard that Jin himself falls back and crashes into the coffee table. Jin makes it clear that this wasn't part of the deal and he doesn't do more than basic guiding. The commander clearly isn't on the same page, telling Jin that he thought they stopped talking about guiding a while back. When Jin hears that, he's confused as heck because this isn't what he signed up for. The commander got him with a good old bait and switch, the old "come up to my apartment so you can meet my dog" trick. The commander tells Jin that they won't go all the way, so he can relax and they'll have a good time. Anything the commander says at this point should come with a disclaimer. Believe me at your own risk. Our boy is on the ground, inching away from the commander, reminding him that he doesn't need it. The commander pulls out his master gaslighting techniques, asking Jin if he's positive about that because he was looking at him like he was a whole cake and seemed like he enjoyed the kissing. The commander pulls himself closer to Jin and tells him not to worry because their little rendezvous will be similar to the kissing. The commandeer puts his hands on Jin and our boy sticks to his guns and tells him he can't. The commander looks at him with those golden eyes and wants Jin to confirm that it's not a matter of wanting to, but a matter of can't do. Jin doesn't understand why the commander is so goddamn horny and won't leave this alone. Well, Jin, you're a cutie pie and he wants to figure you out. Just then, Jin has an epiphany and thinks that maybe he's doing some reverse psychology and trying to give Jin what he, the commander, actually wants. Our poor boy is so confused, But anyway, he gives in and tells him that he can also give him guiding. The commander, like the manipulative gentleman that he is, asks Jin if he's okay with it, and our boy agrees. The commander makes it clear to Jin that he wants to do it for him. The commander proceeds with his belt removal process, and Jin asks him if he wants him to see it. It, meaning thumb. That question propels the commander to believe this is the reason why he is sticking to basic guiding and why he wants to be a giver, not a receiver. All of the energy makes the commander even more hungry for curiosity about our naive, sweet boy, asking why he won't show him the magic stick, asking him if he won't let him see it because it tastes like honey or something. This comment gets a reaction out of Jin, not entirely sure why he thinks it will taste like honey. The commander takes his reaction as an opportunity to confirm that it does taste like honey and pushes our boy further down the psychological warfare path, telling him that he sees men in the sauna all the time, so what's the difference now? Reminding him that they even went together one time. Jin, being the sweet naive boy that he is, gives an elementary school response, telling Jin that those men aren't trying to touch his private parts. The commander flips that comment on him and tells him that they actually do, just in secret. Jin is confused by that comment, but the commander bursts out laughing, telling Jin that it's actually cute with how gullible he is. The tension breaks for a second and Jin points out that his commander's eyes are doing that golden thing again. He asks if he's okay and points out that this guiding probably isn't doing much because his eyes are going crazy. The commander tells him not to worry about it and casually explains that while golden eyes usually mean an Esper is on the verge of going rampant, his eyes also change color when he's turned on. Fun fact, good to know. This man's eyes have been golden this entire story. Anyway, our naive boy is surprised that the commander is aroused, but from the commander's view, this shouldn't be a surprise because he'd told him this before. If Jin didn't understand before, the commander makes it abundantly clear, telling him that he keeps getting excited down there for a reason. And the reason being, Jin is so sexy. Jin just stares at him, and not in a seductive way, more like he's terrified. The commander continues, telling Jin that his brain has been telling him to tear his clothes off this whole time, but he's been holding himself back, and that's why his eyes are the way they are. He adds that if Jin is really that curious, they can go ahead and do what Jin suggested earlier, but he's warning him right now that he might not be able to keep himself in check. Jin's body reacts and he himself starts throbbing. Internally though, our low self-esteem S-Class guide is mad at himself, asking what is wrong with him and what exactly he's sitting there waiting for. The commander tells Jin he is driving him crazy because he keeps picking up this sweet scent off him and cannot figure out what it is. He thought it was cologne at first, but it's not quite that. Jin is surprised that he can actually smell his scent. The commander leans in on Jin's shoulder and reveals that he feels like he's sniffing in the fumes from a jar of honey. This completely throws Jin off because his scent is only supposed to be aromatic when he's completely aroused. So how the F is this guy smelling it? The smell is driving the commander crazy because his nose is telling him it's honey, but he can't taste it. The commander sniffs even harder and then tries to flip the switch on Jin, telling him that he knows that Jin can smell his scent too. Jin doesn't understand what he's saying, but the commander just throws Jin down on the desk, rips his shirt open, and is absolutely amazed by the sight of our boy's chiseled chest and six-pack abs. The commander is just staring at our boy's gorgeous body, ready to devour him. He grabs Jin's side, clearly ready to escalate things. The commander low-key regrets that he told Jin to sue him because after what he plans to do to him, they are going to be in front of a judge. Jin grabs the commander's wrist, clearly overwhelmed by the moment. He's pinned on the desk and the commander can see he's getting worked up, so much so that he's gasping for air. He sits up and the commander asks if he's okay. Our boy is fine, but the commander feels a certain way about it. He apologizes for teasing him so much and didn't anticipate that Jin would have such a hard time. He shifts the blame to Jin though, saying he never met someone like him before. Sounds like cap to me, but let's keep going. Jin is surprised to hear that from the commander and questions if it's true. The commander clarifies himself, saying that he's never met someone who also releases a scent when he gets excited. The commander believes it's so rare that he doesn't even know what to call it. The commander confirms what he thinks is going on, asking Jin if he picked up his scent as well, and if he got more excited as the scent got stronger. Jin looks shocked because damn, the commander is right. Our boy flips it and asks if the commander is like that too. They are now two peas in a pod. This brings relief to the commander and he's actually fascinated by it. He thought this weird little thing was just something he experienced alone, no matter how much he tried to explain it to other people. He further explains how his scent would grow stronger at certain points and would get him all worked up. And while it sounds cool, it's really just a pain in the ass to deal with. Jin knows exactly what he's talking about and tells him so because for him it gets worse every time he gives guiding. The commander confirms the same thing happens to him after receiving it, and Jin puts it together that the commander avoided guiding for the exact same reason he did. The commander agrees and tells Jin straight up that he hates being forced into a feeling he didn't choose, which honestly is Jin's whole biography in one sentence, and our boy knows it. Jin says it must have been tough for the commander, and the commander admits it wasn't easy but thinks Jin probably had it harder. And honestly, that little exchange is kind of a big deal because these two have been carrying the exact same thing completely alone and just now figured out they didn't have to be. The commander connects one more dot and asks if that's also why Jin doesn't like people seeing his body, and Jin immediately goes into full damage control mode trying to button his shirt back up while the commander just watches, very entertained by all of this. The manipulative commander actually shows empathy and something that isn't self-serving for once, and tells Jin that from now on he can go straight home after every guiding session without having to stick around and deal with the aftermath in front of everyone. Jin is genuinely surprised and asks if the commander is serious, and the commander tells him of course because who else would understand the situation better than him. Jin thanks him and the commander waves it off, but then immediately points out that Jin should probably button his shirt up unless he's actively trying to seduce him because keeping that shit open isn't helping de-escalate the situation. Jin scrambles to put his clothes on and asks about the guiding session they didn't finish. The commander tells him don't worry about it because things will get dangerous and they're going to need guiding in the future. He gives Jin the green light to take 2 days off to recover because this was some physical and psychological heavy stuff. Jin thanks him and heads out, but he's really thankful that they stopped because he was just one more cent away from losing control. Jin is figuring that it must have been the same thing from the commander's view, and that's why he stopped. Just as Jin steps out, he surprisingly runs Kota standing by the elevator. Kota asks Jin if he's going home and offers to take him. Our boy looks uncomfortable, but accepts the offer. On the way home, Jin asks Kota if he was outside in the lobby the entire time. Kota doesn't answer, which has our boy instantly thinking the worst. He thinks if Kota was out there the whole time, he must have heard everything. Kota breaks his silence and clarifies that he never planned on going inside and only came to drive Jin home. Jin responds with a basic "oh," but figures the commander must have arranged the ride after the session. They pull up in front of Jin's house and they exchange goodbyes. Jin asks Kota to pass his thanks to the commander for arranging the ride home, but Kota makes it clear that the commander didn't ever ask him to do this. Jin is surprised by this because he assumed this was all the commander, but then Kota gave our naive boy the parental lecture that he needed. Kota gives it to him straight, telling Jin that guiding the commander is dangerous, which the commander already knew that, and that's the reason Kota was there, just in case something bad happened. Jin looks completely shocked, which I don't know why because the commander insinuated that this was a dangerous job when he interviewed for it. Maybe I missed something. Kota's words stuck with Jin as he stands in the shower and contemplates that conversation. He's unclear on what Kota meant by dangerous but starts to piece together the puzzle. First starting with the commander giving him an agreeable reason to accept payment. He's starting to realize that the 900 million won payment was Andante's way of justifying the dangers of guiding him. As he thinks this though, Jin starts to believe that if he hadn't stumbled onto the mutual scent situation today, he would have kept walking into that room with absolutely no idea what he was actually walking into. Our naive boy runs the scenario through again but gets some relief because there weren't any issues at the end. He becomes clear that at best he can make assumptions, which is not a good idea, and if he really wants answers, he has to hear it from the horse's mouth himself. But he's completely forgetting the disclaimer I said earlier, which is believe that man at your own risk. Anyway, Jin knows that he can't think his way out of this because the commander has CIA-level expertise in manipulation, gaslighting, lying, false empathy, making you feel important and every other psychological way to dominate you. Jin is clear that the more he gets to know him, the less he gets to know him, if that makes sense. Shower thoughts are coming full blast for Jin and he's thinking of all the questions that can't be answered, like why does guiding not heal this man? Jin acknowledges that he's not exactly in a position to be suspicious of anyone else's secrets, but this commander situation is sus. But like anyone who is falling for someone, he doesn't mind the glaring red flags, and he's pretty sure that's not just the scent doing the talking, which is why they say love is blind. He begins to justify Andante's ways, suggesting that he has a good heart, not as authoritative as he looks, is sophisticated and not as easy as he acts, intimacy-wise. He continues on rationalizing why the commander is great, believing that he is a C-class who can't be satisfied by an S-class guide and has zero complex about it. Same condition as Jin but a different scent, and a whole lot of things he just isn't saying. Kids, when you're in love, you can justify anything. Keep that in mind. Our boy is clearly confused, but the most confusing part of it all is that he actually wants to get to know the commander better. Yeah, Andante has this dude emotionally now and he's cooked. Kota heads back to the office to check in on the commander and confirms that he took Jin home. The commander admits that guiding has always left a bad taste in his mouth afterward, but Jin's is actually not bad at all, which sounds like a compliment until he clarifies that it being not too bad is actually worrisome. The commander expresses that he needs Jin around until the end of year but thinks he may run him off before then. Koda interrupts that thought and tells the commander he told Jin that guiding the commander is dangerous, and Jin didn't look scared at all. The commander is surprised Koda said anything, but when he found out Jin wasn't scared, he starts to question his mental. He asks if Jin is fearless or just stupid like Forrest Gump, but Koda tries to give our boy some credit, suggesting that maybe Jin already clocked the danger from the beach session. The commander shuts that down because if Jin was really mathing the math, he would have bolted already. Koda still tries to give our boy the benefit of the doubt, suggesting that maybe he does know, but he's just that strong. Koda clarified what he means by strong, and he means strong enough to withstand reverse guiding. The commander shuts that down too because if that were true, Jin wouldn't have looked so wrecked after their session. The commander concludes that Jin can't handle the guiding, but he had no expectations from the start, so he's not even disappointed. He feels the perfect guide just doesn't exist for him in this world. He tells Koda he's heading out for a week starting tomorrow because he always gets too worked up after receiving guiding and needs to handle that privately. Not sure what that means, but we'll leave that right there. Back at the office, Jin is exhausted from guiding 3 espers every single day. It seems like he's doing it for nothing because every morning these guys show up looking worse than the night before, like they just went on a bender. Our boy must be scarred from the commander because he starts wondering if they're hiding something the same way the commander does. He's thrown off because their documents say C-class, but nothing about them reads that way, in his humble opinion. He thinks it may be too late to be getting suspicious, but the questions pile up. Why hide the real class? How are they pulling it off, and what are they actually after? Our boy's spidey senses are finally online. Too bad it only took 25 chapters. Just as he's contemplating the scenarios, Psycho Cherney interrupts Jin's thought. Again, we have to give this guy an A+ for persistence. Jin lets him know that it's still work hours, but Cherney thought he was done for the day because he finished the guiding. Jin explains that having work and being in work hours are 2 different things, and Cherney solves this by declaring that going out with him today is the work. This man tells no lies. Cherney somehow got Jin to agree to leave and they end up at a fancy building. Jin isn't exactly sure what's going on and asks Cherney if a new job came in. Cherney confirms his assumption is correct. Jin asks Cherney if this is where the request came from, and Cherney quickly corrects him that it's not exactly a surprise. He doesn't elaborate on it more and just tells him that he'll see once he gets inside. Once they enter, they are greeted by a lady who tells them to look around while she calls the designer. Our boy feels out of his element because this place is too fancy for him, but Cherney feels right at home, showing Jin a slick-looking outfit. Cherney explains that our boy will be attending more meetings, so the commander wanted him in some nice clothing. Jin is confused because he thought Onape didn't wear uniforms. Cherney lashes out because our boy remembers everything but nonetheless asks Jin what kind of style he likes. Jin tells him that he's cool with anything and suggests that Cherney choose. He believes Cherney would be much better at this anyway. After giving Cherney the green light to choose, of course his immaturity comes through and he is excited that they make chastity belts. Just as Jin is regretting giving Cherney the green light, the designer walks in and enthusiastically greets Cherney. The flamboyant designer is named Edwin and he's upset that he didn't get to see the commander. Cherney gets in his feelings about that, but Edwin tells him he missed him as well, just that the commander is an inspiration. Edwin doesn't hold back as to why, pointing out that the commander's pure face, filthy mouth, and sensual aura make him perfect. Cherney is tired of hearing the commander's praises and wants Edwin to just bring out some outfits for our boy. Edwin peeks over and takes a look at Jin, and Jin formally introduces himself. Edwin isn't shy about his thoughts on Jin, pointing out that Onape only hires hotties and calls Jin gorgeous right to his face. Jin graciously thanks him for the kind words, but Edwin continues with the compliments, saying at first he thought Jin seemed cold, but he's actually like a gentle Doberman. Cherney enthusiastically agrees, adding that Jin is the complete opposite of their commander. Our boy is clueless, not knowing what any of this means. Nonetheless, Edwin excuses himself, telling the boys he'll bring out the entire collection. Just then, to Jin's surprise, Shin Hei-chang walks in. Jin respectfully greets him, and Captain Obvious Mr. Shin makes small talk, asking Jin if he's come to buy some clothes. Jin, being the sweetheart that he is, responds that he has, but Cherney knows the small talk is bullshit, and points it out right away. He looks up at Mr. Shin and tells him to stop talking to Jin like they're friends. Mr. Shin questions if he's talking to Cherney, the same C-class Esper who got banned from the NSA meeting for disorderly conduct. Cherney refutes the disorderly conduct part, stating that all he did was receive guiding like everyone else. Mr. Shin lets Cherney know that nonetheless, whatever he did almost got him killed. Just then, another person walks in, a silver-haired NSA guide named Yu Jin. Mr. Shin stops his bickering with Cherney and introduces the NSA guide to Jin. Jin politely bows, but Yu Jin immediately makes judgments about Jin. He thinks to himself that at first glance, Jin seemed like someone an Esper would want to protect. He curiously says that he didn't know Onape had a guide. Mr. Shin lets him know that he's a recent addition. On the outside, this is an aha moment for the NSA guide, but under his breath he's condemning Jin for probably being just another C-class. He must not have said it low enough though because Jin heard it, but Yujin plays it off, telling Jin that it's nice to meet him and stating that he must be here to get some clothes. Our boy confirms that he's here to get clothes and that their commander made reservations for him. Yujin quickly asked if he was referring to Dante. Damn, this commander gets around. Jin starts giving out more information than was asked of him and tells Yujin that the commander said he needed a uniform for meetings outside of the office. Internally though, Jin is thinking how the heck does this guy know the commander? Yujin observes that the commander didn't come for the fitting, but his next statement threw our boy off track. Yujin said that it makes sense that the commander didn't come because he didn't look well yesterday. Jin, with a disappointed look on his face, asked if Yujin was with him yesterday. Yujin responds nonchalantly, telling Jin that it's too bad he wasn't here, and yes, he was with him yesterday. Our boy's head is spinning now. He thought the commander was taking a vacation to recover from the guiding, but now he's learning the commander was probably capping. Yujin tells Mr. Shin he's tired and suggests they grab their clothes and head out. Mr. Shin agrees and they give a polite bow on the way out before they leave. Cherney picks up on Jin's energy shift immediately and asks if Yujin bothers him. Our boy plays it cool, telling Cherney it's none of his business. Cherney isn't buying the deflection and points out that Jin was staring at Hei-Chang's the entire time, adding that even though he personally can't stand the guy, Hei-Chang's is actually pretty popular. Jin shuts that down and tells Cherney he's not interested in him like that and just thinks he seems like a decent person. Cherney pauses and then asks the real question, is it the guide's relationship with the commander that's actually bothering him? Jin flinches and that tiny reaction tells Cherney everything he needed to know. To his credit, our fanboy doesn't push it. He tells Jin he doesn't care as long as Jin isn't into Hei-Chang and redirects them back to picking out the uniform. Jin agrees, but mentally he's already somewhere else. Yujin's comment about the commander not looking well is playing on a loop in his head and our boy starts doing the math. The first conclusion he lands on is that maybe his guiding had no effect on the commander at all. And if that's the case, how did Yujin even know the commander wasn't feeling well, unless Yujin guided him too? That thought spirals into something worse. Maybe none of this would have happened if Jin had actually been useful as the commander's guide. Before he can dig himself any deeper, Cherney snaps him back to reality because Edwin returns and it's time to take his measurements and give him a trim. Back at the office, the commander welcomes them and comments that they were fast, which is ironic considering he told Cherney that he'd kill them if they didn't hurry back. Cherney is bitter because he wanted to take Jin out for tteokbokki and coffee but couldn't because of the death threat. The commander is low-key offended that cheapskate Cherney wanted to take his precious guide to get some low-budget street food, considering how hard Jin has been working lately. The commander sits Jin down, pulls up a menu and tells him to pick whatever he wants. Our boy looks at the menu, but what he's really processing is how much better the commander looks now. He's considering that maybe he did receive guiding from Yujin yesterday. The commander is noticing things about Jin as well. He noticed his haircut and how he trimmed off a lot. He takes this as an opportunity to touch Jin and that he likes how it feels, and that he looks nice. Cherney is noticing this light flirtation and completely loses it. He lashes out, saying he freaking knew it, accusing the two of doing the shebang bang choo-choo train. This accusation completely shocks Jin, leaving him stuttering, asking Cherney what he's talking about. Cherney, clearly jealous, tells Jin that he thought he only did basic guiding and wants to know if the commander convinced him to go around all the bases. The commander jumps in to defend his precious guide and makes it clear that there's no comparison between himself and psychopath Cherney. Cherney doesn't see how they are any different, considering they are both espers that need guiding. Cherney then turns his attention back to Jin and tells him that he can satisfy him too. The commander throws in a dagger, saying, "Yay, right, he'll just make him cry like everyone else he did the deed with." Jin is just sitting here with a blank face like what the heck is going on here. The back and forth between Cherney and the commander gets even more personal. Cherney swears they cry because he's that good, but the commander suggests that they cry because of his crazy kink. Cherney fires back, telling the commander that when it comes to perversion, he shouldn't be talking. All of this is making Jin even more uncomfortable and skeptical of everything. The commander puts the hammer down on this egotistical bickering by telling Cherney not to compare himself at all because he's Jin's bondage partner. This mic drop leaves both Cherney and Jin speechless. Our boy is trying to compute what just came out of this man's mouth. The thing is, the commander has a grin on his face and gestures with the universal sheaf finger over his mouth. Jin is thinking to himself that if this is true, it's not the same as being mated, but it's still a promise between two people to engage in a more intimate relationship. Jin is questioning why this suddenly sounds like he wants to be his lover. The scene shifts to the commander dropping off Jin at home. Our boy is gracious as always, and the commander plays it off that it's not a big deal, per usual. Jin stands by the car and hesitates. You can tell he's nervous, but he musters the courage to tell the commander that he wants to ask him something. Before he can ask his question, the commander rudely cuts him off and says he heard that Kota warned him of the dangers of guiding him, and asks Jin to confirm. Jin agrees that they had that conversation. The commander apologizes for not telling Jin sooner and then plays innocent, claiming he never actually planned to receive guiding from Jin at all. Jin can't believe what he's hearing. The commander explains that his original plan was for Jin to only help the other guild members because he knew what could put Jin in danger, but things didn't exactly go according to plan. Jin falls for this story hook, line, and sinker. To him, now it all makes sense. Every refusal, every cold shutdown, every time the commander pushed him away, none of it was rejection. It was actually him protecting Jin the entire time. Yeah, okay Jin, if you believe this, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. The gaslighting works because now our boy has guilt and actually thinks he should have been grateful this whole time instead of taking it personal. He thanks him for being that thoughtful. The commander smiles and tells Jin not to worry about it anymore because he won't ask him for guiding again. This takes Jin by surprise, and the commander makes it clear that he'll handle his own needs moving forward. For the first time, Jin actually speaks what's on his mind and flat out asks the commander if this new setup is because of Yu Jin. The commander is caught off guard, asking Jin how he even knows about Yu Jin. Jin explains that he ran into Yu Jin and Mr. Shin at the boutique earlier, and Yu Jin mentioned meeting the commander the day before. The commander takes that in and calls it bad luck. Jin pushes further and tells the commander he heard he wasn't feeling well. The commander is shocked that Yu Jin ran his mouth so much, especially considering that's his bondage partner. Jin appears jealous and wants answers, asking if he's receiving guiding from him. The master manipulator switches the power dynamic. He answers that he's not receiving guiding, flips it on Jin, telling him that he's acting strange and asking him why he even cares. Before he can answer, the commander stops him and labels the exact emotion that we can all see, asking Jin if he's jealous. The commander looks at our boy and asks if he's jealous with those golden eyes. I guess jealousy turns him on. Jin has no idea what to do with that question and just shrugs it off like he doesn't understand what the commander is getting at. The commander backs off immediately, telling him to never mind and that he guessed wrong. Smooth recovery from a man who never guesses wrong about anything. The commander then pivots and tells Jin he doesn't receive guiding from anyone because whoever guides him would be in just as much danger as Jin. Jin takes this in and finally asks the question he should have asked a long time ago. Why exactly is guiding the commander so dangerous? The commander, who has been waiting for this moment, tells Jin it took him long enough to ask. The commander doesn't hold back, telling Jin straight up that he's capable of reverse guiding. Jin repeats the term to himself because he's never heard it applied to someone in real life. The commander can tell by Jin's startled face that he doesn't quite understand what he means, so he clarifies it. He can force guiding from someone against their will. Jin connects this to what he felt during their session and confirms that something did feel off last time. After he explained it in plain English, it made sense to Jin because last time, he knew something was off. But Jin thinks to himself that most espers don't even have this ability, so the fact that the commander does is another checkmark on the long list of things that don't add up about this man. Jin tries to logically reverse engineer these things, asking the commander why he can't just not do it. The commander admits that it's easier said than done, especially when he's weak and worked up. He gets candid and tells Jin that things could have ended badly the very first time Jin guided him because he was in terrible shape after the dungeon. He only went through with it because the guild members were nearby to step in if needed. That's also why he called Kota the second time around. Jin points out that the commander didn't actually do reverse guiding during that second session. The commander grins and tells Jin he gave himself the biggest pat on the back for holding it together. Then those golden eyes lock onto our boy, and this man tells Jin he has no idea how much he wanted to slam him down and drain every last inch of him. Our boy just stands there processing that sentence. The commander shifts his tone and tells Jin he needs to be more afraid of guiding him, then asks if Jin knows what happens when a guide is completely drained of their power. Jin doesn't answer, so the commander finishes the thought. He points to the middle of Jin's chest and tells him that they end up with a large hole right here. Jin isn't sure if he meant that figuratively. The commander wants to know if he would be more scared if he meant it literally. Jin thinks about it and figures that if there was an actual hole in his chest, he'd be dead. But strangely enough, when his chest burned during their session, what he felt wasn't fear. Jin basically tells the commander he isn't a punk and that he's exceeded his guiding limit before and was fine, so there's nothing to worry about. The commander shuts that down cold, telling Jin he doesn't really know what the F he's talking about because if every bit of energy is forced out of him, he will die. He tells Jin to believe him because he's seen it happen before. Out of all the times this guy has lied during this story, I think this time I believe him. This statement raises Jin's eyebrows. He wants clarity, but before he can ask for clarity, the commander lets him know that it's time to go and because it's getting late. He needs to go home and rest, take a nice shower, and maybe watch a nice movie. Before he leaves, Jin grabs the commander's arm and instantly feels some type of way about it. His heart is beating fast and he's thinking to himself he didn't mean to do that. But he's looking at the back of the commander, and from his view, he looks so lonely. Then our boy's non-stop mind keeps going and thinks to himself why he felt that way. After that quick tornado of thoughts, he finally gets out what he wants to say and tells the commander that without guiding, he'll get sick. The commander thanks our sweetheart guide for his concern but makes it clear that he'd rather be sick than have the blood of a dead guide on his hands. The scene shifts to the office, and the commander is on his phone, impressed by what he's reading. It looks like the twins are putting in work and someone announces that the NSA just called an emergency meeting in 1 hour. Flat disregards this statement and proposes they go out for a show instead. Cherney is curious as to if those idiots at the NSA finally discovered something. Jin is just standing there, remembering that the guild didn't seem to like being summoned by the NSA. The commander makes it clear that this isn't optional and of course they will go. Fast forward to the NSA building. Mr. Shin steps up to the podium and doesn't waste anyone's time. He lays out the situation. Dungeon cores have been stolen from the S-Class dungeon the Americans seized, Korea's A-Class dungeon, and 2 others. He makes it clear that this isn't a one-off, and since it keeps happening, the NSA has been investigating since last year. Mr. Shin continues, telling the audience that whoever is up to this is really slick and almost impossible to track down, but they've finally got their hands on a clue. A gun was found by the American team, and it came from the underworld, which means it's likely from the Darkness Guild. Mr. Shin points out the real problem, which is that most members have completely new identities, or are not even registered citizens. But the good news is that after further investigation, they have narrowed it down to 4 or 5 individuals, and they are either A-Class or S-Class espers with unbelievably unique capabilities. With all that being said, Mr. Shin knows one thing for certain. They are hiding in Korea. Once Mr. Shin is done, the room starts to chatter with speculation and assumptions. Someone in the crowd questions if they stole the core. Doesn't that mean they most likely stole the other treasure in the dungeon too? Another person questions the value of the items they stole. Mr. Shin confirms that they only stole the cores, not the treasures. This doesn't make sense to the audience. Mr. Shin points out a bigger issue that hasn't happened before. Every time the core disappears, the gate finder crashes. Mr. Shin shares another concern. Considering that they are suspiciously only collecting the cores, he believes they are planning something that could threaten all of Korea. Because of this, it's urgent to arrest these criminals, and they are offering a 10 billion won bounty. The commander puts in his 2 cents, suggesting that 10 billion isn't enough money. That surprises Shin. But the commander clarifies that because they are going after 4 or 5 espers, they need to add a 0 to the bounty. Mr. Shin claps back at the commander, saying that someone like him wouldn't even understand. The commander isn't clear on what he wouldn't understand. Mr. Shin doesn't pull any punches, saying a trust fund baby like the commander who runs his little agency off of daddy's money wouldn't understand what it means to earn 10 million won, let alone 10 billion. Shots fired. Mr. Shin tells the commander that 10 billion isn't chump change, and if it's not enough for him, he can stay on the sidelines. Mr. Shin ends the meeting on that note and lets it be known that he's available for questions if needed. Once the room clears out, it's just the commander and Shin alone at that long conference table. The commander doesn't waste a single second. He calls Shin a wolf in sheep's clothing, right to his face. Shin plays it off like he has no idea what the commander means. The commander breaks down Shin's entire plan. The NSA already has every S-Class esper in Korea, so even if they can't catch these criminals, nobody else has a shot whether the bounty is 10 billion or 10 trillion. Shin wants to know where he's going with this. The commander lays it out. Shin already knows nobody's actually going to catch these guys. The bounty is just bait to turn every money-hungry A and B-class esper into free intelligence gatherers for the NSA. Shin doesn't deny that plan, nor does he see a problem with it, noting that they have an incentive to act. The commander seems to be the one having a conscience here, claiming that Shin's little bounty is going to get people killed. Shin flips it back on the commander. If he knew all this, why did he push for an even bigger bounty? The commander deflects, joking about how evil the NSA is, but Shin isn't letting it go. He tells the commander flat out that he's suspicious of him. The commander asks where that's coming from. Shin breaks it down. The commander is clearly too smart to be running a bottom-tier C-class guild, so of course something doesn't add up. The commander sarcastically takes it as a compliment and sees that as his cue to exit. Mr. Shin is left standing there in silence, and you can tell this man's suspicion just went up another 10 levels. The commander steps outside and scans the crowd. Every esper in the building is buzzing about the bounty. To the commander, all he sees are moths, people who have no idea they're walking straight into a death trap. And in his mind, there's nothing more dangerous than not knowing what you don't know. He spots Flat and Koda in the crowd, but his attention shifts. Those golden eyes land on Jin. And this is where the commander's brain goes completely off the rails. He's studying Jin and thinking about how our boy looks cold and distant on the outside. But the second he opens his mouth, everything about him warms up. The way his expression softens, the way his eyelashes move, his lips. Jin really turns this man on. But he takes it a rated R step further. He can fully see himself being compatible with Jin in that way. The commander claims he can just tell. Yeah, Commander, it's called fantasizing and lust. He believes just kissing him was better than any guiding session from anyone else. Then the commander admits something big. Guiding with Jin just isn't enough. He's drawn to him, and that full-body exercise has to be done sooner than later. And he makes it clear, if Jin weren't his guide, he would have locked Jin up with him for days. In his mind, it's a shame it didn't happen, but he's conflicted. He has feelings for Jin, but at the same time, he's grateful for his guiding and what he's done for him. Then the commander starts to do the math. He's aware that Jin gave guiding to the whole squad while he was away, and even after he did, he still came in perfectly fine, so he must be powerful. The commander realizes Jin might even be stronger than Yu Jin from the NSA. And then the commander gets possessive because if Shin ever finds out how good this dude is, he'll do anything to take Jin away from Onape. The one saving grace is that Jin isn't the type to brag about his rank. After that series of thoughts and emotions about our boy, the commander just waves to Jin like he wasn't thinking about anything. Jin blushes a bit and looks happy to see him. The commander takes one look at that reaction and all he can think is what a damn shame this whole situation is. The commander is still fighting with these indecent thoughts and they just won't quit, but he keeps circling back to the same logic. He's not about to lose his guide over his own desires. He already decided to stop receiving guiding from Jin even though he originally wanted to use him in every way possible, and he was never planning to get deeply involved anyway. As he approaches Jin, he can't help but compliment him on the uniform, and he's glad they got one for him. Jin tries to get his attention, but before he can, the commander asks if they had fun waiting. Jin notices the vibe is off and that everyone looks serious. He asks the commander to explain what's happening. The commander fills him in, saying members of the Darkness Guild have apparently been raiding dungeons across Korea. Jin's eyes go wide. He connects the dots immediately. Those were the guys they ran into at the resort. For whatever reason, the commander finds this humorous and confirms, calling them total scumbags. But he tells Jin not to worry and to totally disregard the fact that Shin is putting up a 10 billion bounty on their heads because Onape is staying out of it. Jin processes that and realizes the bounty explains the charged atmosphere around the whole building. The commander, golden eyes flashing, asks Jin if he wants the money too. Our boy shuts that down quickly, telling him no, not at all. The commander already knew that because if Jin cared about money, he wouldn't have left a bag with 900 million won just sitting around the office like it's a jacket he forgot. Why does this guy love testing Jin so much? That's how you know he has a crush. The commander suggests they get going since the whole meeting turned out to be a whole lot of nothing for them. Jin agrees and says they should head back to the office. But as they're making their way through the crowd outside, our boy freezes because standing right there is Yu Jin. Jin's mind starts racing. He remembers asking the commander about Yu Jin before and how the commander swore Jin never gave him guiding. But our boy's brain won't let it rest. If it wasn't guiding, then what exactly were they doing together? The commander looks off into the distance and realizes he has to take care of some business. He tells the guides to wait here and if needed, they can grab more snacks. The second the commander walks off, our boy pulls Kota aside and straight up asks if the commander and Yu Jin are close. Kota, a man of very few words, just says not really. Jin hears that answer but doesn't really believe it. Our boy doesn't know why he's feeling like this. He can't even tell what expression is on his own face. He makes an excuse about needing the restroom and walks off. As soon as he leaves, Kota realizes that Jin is onto something, and this isn't good. The commander and Yu Jin are off by themselves, and sneaking around has the commander feeling like he's cheating. Yu Jin calls him over and is genuinely surprised the commander actually followed him out here. The commander claims he couldn't resist because of the way Yu Jin was staring at him earlier. He also can't help taking a jab, suggesting Yu Jin probably brings guys out to spots like this all the time. Yu Jin is offended by that and lets the commander know his slick mouth hasn't changed one bit. The commander shrugs it off, saying people only change when they're near death. Yu Jin gets nostalgic and, as crazy as it sounds, admits that he misses the way the commander used to talk to him. The commander flips that vulnerability into a joke, asking if Yu Jin missed being harassed because that sounds like a kink. Yu Jin blushes a bit and makes it clear that yes, he misses him. All of him. The commander is caught off guard by all of this affection because it hasn't even been a week since they've seen each other. Yu Jin thought it wasn't even time and was hopeful they could spend more time together like the good old days. The commander plays dumb and acts like he doesn't even remember them being close. Yu Jin is getting frustrated and tells him to stop playing. He knows well that they used to be inseparable. The commander doesn't dispute that, but he makes it clear that it wasn't organic. They were forced together at the academy because they were the only two S-class who had recently awakened, and it only lasted 3 months. The commander recounts the story that once the system discovered an error that reclassified the commander from S-class to C-class, it was over. Yu Jin plays the victim, saying he had no choice in the matter. He justifies it by saying it would have been too dangerous for an S-class guide to be partnered with a C-class Esper. The decision must have really hurt Yu Jin because dude starts crying just thinking about it. Yu Jin doesn't believe the commander was okay with it, and asks the commander if he's still hurt. Yu Jin is standing there crying, yet the commander can't believe any of this bullshit from the people around him. First, he finds it laughable that these idiots are willing to die for 10 billion to find him. Well, that's a spoiler alert if you guys weren't aware of what's happening. And then second, this emotional guide still believes the commander cares about him, or actually cared about him at all. The commander is thinking in his usual manipulative ways, contemplating if he should use Yu Jin as Jin's replacement for guiding. He's aware that his body needs full guiding now, and although he wants to use Jin, he actually cares about his well-being. He recognizes that he's always been on the edge of going rampant with our boy, so receiving guiding from this S-class guide is a great opportunity. After breaking down the situation logically to himself, the commander asks Yu Jin if he really wants to know if he's still hurt. The commander pulls out the reverse Uno and asks Yu Jin what if he hasn't moved on. What is he going to do about it? Yu Jin just shows him what he'd do. He wraps his arms around the commander and brings him in for a kiss. Just as they are about to kiss, the door bursts open and it's our naive boy Jin. He sees exactly what's going down, no more speculation. The commander sees him out of the corner of his eye and acts surprised to see our boy. Jin has his mouth completely wide open, shocked at what he's witnessing. He's so shocked that his low self-esteem ass starts apologizing like he did something wrong. He tells the commander that he was looking for the bathroom, and to the commander, that seems weird because why would he come all the way out here if he truly was looking for the bathroom? Jin tells him the one inside was occupied. Like always, the commander deflects the situation effortlessly, telling Jin that there's no worries and it was just bad timing on his part, and he finds it cute that he's such a bad liar. Oddly enough, the commander's smooth manipulation puts Jin at ease. Jin is thinking to himself that the commander's honest expression puts him at ease because he's as real as anyone can be. Yay, Jin, it's called narcissism, gaslighting, and unshakable confidence. Doesn't mean he's a good person. Anyway, Yu Jin interrupts the dialogue, telling the commander it's time to get back to business. Yu Jin then has all his internal thoughts, thinking that the commander is so full of himself and not much has changed. The commander confidently tells our boy to go find another bathroom because they're busy. He wants to get this guiding over with, but just as he's about to, Jin interrupts, telling the commander that Kota is looking for him. The commander has to hold back his laughter because he knows this is a bullshit excuse, but he plays along with it. Jin gets even more defiant, saying he's not lying and that Kota said it was urgent. The commander figures if it's urgent, then he can't really help anyway, but thinks to himself, if Jin is willing to go this far with this story, then he'll go with it. He tells Yu Jin that he has to go take care of the urgent matter. Yu Jin is surprised that he's going to leave, but the commander justifies it by telling him it's urgent. Yu Jin is annoyed and his face doesn't hide it. He leaves immediately, and now it's just the commander and our boy standing there. The commander wonders why Jin is just standing there if this Kota situation is so urgent. That's when our boy comes clean. He admits he was lying about the whole thing. Of course the commander knew he was lying but played dumb, asking Jin why he would lie. Then the manipulation master flips it and asks Jin if he did anything wrong to make him lie. This line of questioning makes Jin get on the defensive, apologizing and telling the commander that he didn't do anything wrong. Now our boy is sweating because he's all messed up from this situation. The commander keeps the pressure on him, asking if he lied because of his pride as his guide. Before he can answer, the commander gives Jin the backdrop of his line of questioning. He tells Jin that it's not uncommon for guides to get their feelings hurt when they find out that their espers are receiving guiding from someone else. He asks Jin if he's like that as well. Jin looks at the commander like, how the heck does this guy know everything? Of course he doesn't say that, but he just apologizes to the commander for failing to be of any help. The commander makes it clear that he's not with Yu Jin right now because of his lack of ability to help. He gives Jin the background of everything, telling him that the three of them, Yu Jin, Mr. Shin, and himself, go back 7 years. They went to the same academy together. Essentially, it's like they all went to high school together. Jin understands better now, and it seems reasonable that they are close. The commander solidifies their closeness, disclosing to Jin that he was actually Yu Jin's bondage partner. The commander casually confirms that yeah, he was Yu Jin's bondage partner at one point. Then he taps Jin on the shoulder and lets him know they should get going. Our boy takes that as a signal to stay out of the commander's personal life. As they walk, Jin is replaying everything the commander told Yu Jin earlier about not moving on. He's convinced the commander still has feelings for his old guide, and Yu Jin clearly still has feelings for the commander. And for some reason, that thought makes Jin's heart do something weird. Lord, don't tell me he's having a heart attack over this drama. They head back toward the guild and run into Cynthia, who's sitting there like he just got back from Iran. Okay, too soon for that joke, but dude is looking beat up and out of breath. The commander asks how the trip went, and Cynthia, barely able to talk, shows the commander the glowing stone, letting the commander know he's found it. He tells the commander that the twins are still out there wrapping things up. The commander commends him for his work, and Cynthia, being in bad shape, tells Jin he needs guiding immediately. Jin jumps right in, but once he starts, realizes that Cynthia is way worse off than he thought. The wounds aren't healing the way they should, and Jin comes to the conclusion that regular guiding isn't going to cut it. Cynthia needs kiss guiding. Cynthia is hesitant and asks if that's really okay. The commander doesn't see the problem with it, as long as Jin approves it, but that's when Cynthia brings up something that catches Jin off guard. Apparently the commander once threatened to rip the eyes out of anyone who touched Jin. Our boy glances back at the commander, shocked by the comment. The commander downplays it, claiming that warning was probably for Cherney or Flat, and that Jin doesn't need his permission for kiss guiding. Jin asks the commander if they should move to the office first because someone might report them for public indecency. They move to the office and Jin tells Cynthia he's going to start. Cynthia checks one more time to make sure Jin is okay with this. Jin doesn't fully get why he's asking, but eventually Cynthia leans in for the kiss. Our boy flinches and can't help but feel uncomfortable with the whole thing, despite saying he's okay with it. Cynthia starts kissing the side of his neck and then pulls away, letting Jin know that should be enough, and slides off. Jin finishes up and looks over at the commander, expecting some kind of reaction, but the commander is just sitting there playing with the core like nothing happened. Jin catches himself wondering why he's disappointed that the commander doesn't care. The commander asks if he's done because that was hella quick. Jin confirms that it's finished but asks what he has in his hand. He tells him it's a core and Jin is somewhat confused. He wonders why Cynthia would retrieve a stone that's found at the deepest part of the dungeon. And then his brain connects the dots to Shin's meeting. He remembers the presentation about a group of thieves stealing cores from Korean dungeons, and that these thieves are the worse than typical looters. Jin gets the commander's attention and starts fumbling around the pieces. He's realizing that all the evidence points directly to the commander. The commander doesn't shy away and confidently confirms that what he's thinking right now is correct. They are the ones that stole the core. He tells Jin he's actually glad this came up because he's been meaning to tell the truth now that their plan is in motion. He confirms everything that Jin has been trying to piece together from the start. They aren't C-Class espers and every single member of ONAPE is S-Class. Jin cannot believe what he just heard. Sure, he had a strong feeling that the commander was S-Class, but he didn't expect the whole guild. The commander figured that Jin would have noticed all of this by just guiding them, but apparently our boy's math skills aren't strong, but now it all makes sense. He understands why guiding the guild members always drained him so much. Jin asks the obvious question, why did they hide their class? The commander explains that they needed to enter the SS class dungeon, and to do that without anyone noticing they had to stay under the radar while collecting cores. Jin is shocked at the mention of the SS class dungeon and wants to know what the point of collecting the cores was. The commander explains that they learned things would be different if they had the cores, and pulls out some information to show Jin. It's a prophecy about the Ignis Fatui with some fancy poetic instructions. But simply put, if they collect 6 Ignis Fatui, time in the SS-class dungeon speeds up and the 7th light will appear along with the dungeon itself. The commander spent a long time researching this and discovered that A-class and higher dungeons occasionally produce cores with sparks of light inside them. So the guild started collecting them, one by one. The core Cynthia just brought back makes 6, and the commander is convinced the 7th will show up soon, along with the SS-class dungeon. Jin can't believe they're trying to open the SS-class dungeon considering how many people died the last time it opened 10 years ago. That place is called Hell for a reason, and the commander wants to walk right into it. The commander tells Jin not to be too upset. The dungeon was going to open again eventually, they're just speeding up the timeline. But then the commander stops explaining his vision and asks Jin a question. He wants to know if Jin has ever encountered the SS-class dungeon before. Jin starts to answer but then realizes it's too soon to tell him. He makes up a BS comment, saying he's only aware of it since it was such a big issue. The commander notices the hesitation, but Jin tries to fill the awkward silence by asking if there's a specific reason it has to be the SS-class dungeon. The commander repeats Jin's question and gives a roundabout answer, telling Jin that he left something there. Jin isn't overreacting and he's not terrified for no reason. We get taken back to when the SS-class dungeon was first discovered 70 years ago, and they call it the living hell because literally the survival vote is 0. Like bro, for real. 0. The commander's confidence is diabolical. Anyway, when it opened a second time 10 years ago, the world thought this was their shot, because the #1 guild on the planet was led by an actual SS-class Esper, but only half of them made it out. The survivors were barely alive and they came back with absolutely nothing. At first, people weren't even upset because they figured the experience they gained meant next time would be different and the world would enter some new golden era. But then within a month, every single Esper who had received guiding started going rampant one by one. None of them could remember what happened inside. All they could talk about was fear and pain, and every last survivor died. Nobody ever figured out why, and the truth of that dungeon was buried along with the most talented Espers on the planet. That's why our boy is curled up in bed right now, because the commander wants to walk right back into that place like none of that history applies to him. Jin knows that wanting to enter the SS-class dungeon is basically his commander doing a self-deletion mission, and he can't work with people who would throw themselves into that kind of danger. This is weighing on our boy so much that he's considering leaving the guild. He's thinking about his previous job and how much he hated watching the Espers come back covered in wounds and obsessively begging for guiding like addicts that needed their fix. Avoiding this situation is the entire reason he chose this guild. But now, not only are they dealing with nothing but S-class guilds, but they're also on a mission with the statistical probability of 0. Our boy's emotions swing, and now he's pissed at himself, calling himself an idiot for doubting himself and not suspecting something was off. Just then, his phone buzzes and he has a text message that simply reads, "Are you scared? If you are, you can be quick." Jin realizes if he wants to back out, now is the time. He crawls up into a ball because he wants to quit. He's contemplating it, but he isn't sure what to do. Back at the office, the commander is staring at his phone, waiting for his reply. Flat wants to know if our boy is a punk and has quit yet. Flat expresses that he already told the commander not to tell him because he knew this would happen. Cherney piggybacks off of Flat's remarks, suggesting that our boy isn't built for this. Flat chimes back in, saying that he understands that the commander doesn't want to receive guidance from Jin, but this is way too important to blow it all for him. The commander puts Flat in his place, telling him that he understands he just came back from the underworld, but bro has to chill. Flat doesn't take that lightly and lashes out. The commander then puts it all in perspective, asking him when was the last time he ever cared about a guides class, since he's never once expected himself to be in tip-top condition. Flat admits that he's right, but the commander doesn't let up, asking why this matters to him, making it clear there are a ton of guides who'd gladly throw themselves at him, so quit with the nonsense. The commander shows him who's really the commander, telling him bluntly, "If you don't like my decisions, leave." Flat backtracks and justifies his outburst, telling the commander that he's just worried and from his view, things don't have to be this complicated. The commander doesn't agree about the complication comment, saying that they need a guide, not Jin. But the commander admits that he has no thoughts of letting Jin go like this, but he has a plan. Flat is okay with it, so long as they get what they want in the end. To the commander, they've waited way too long for this, and failure absolutely is not an option. Just then, he reads Jin's text and smirks because our boy is doing exactly what he expected. Jin asks who will guide them then if he doesn't. The commander thinks to himself that this would be a good time to test Jin a little. He responds that he'll just ask Jin for help instead. I'm sure Jin is definitely feeling some type of way about that text. Fast forward and our boy drags himself to the office, but today it felt different. He chalks it up to the fact that he's carrying a resignation letter. His nerves are kicking in and he's wondering how exactly he's going to tell the commander about this. His intuition is telling him just to be himself, but like Jin's usual mental gymnastics, he doubts himself and thinks he should look up tips on the internet. But before he can do anything, the door opens and the commander is standing there with Jin right next to him. Jin hasn't even given his answer or his resignation letter yet, and now he's got front row seats to whatever this is. Jin acts like he doesn't know who the boy is, asking to confirm that they met last time. That's that new guy, ex-guy energy. Jin recognizes this is not polite to come unannounced, but he makes the excuse that he really wanted to see Andante's office. Jin plays it cool, telling him it's no big deal, but internally, he is noticing that they were closer than last time, and is wondering what the freak is going on. Of course, that triggering text from the commander is running through his mind, and he assumes that he already took action. But he thinks to himself, how can this be when he didn't even give him his answer or resignation letter yet? He gets all nostalgic talking about how the commander was colder back then, but that was his charm. Says it's so nice being around him again, and flat out admits he doesn't want to leave. Jin is making small talk, telling the commander his desk looks cozy. He continues to glamorize the small office setup, saying he likes it because it gives the opportunity to get close to coworkers. The commander tells him that it's not all that it's worked up to be. All they do is argue. Jin is still going on about this damn office dynamic, but then gets nostalgic, saying this is how it used to be in the academy, small and tight, and they all got to hang out all the time. It seems that Jin is purposefully putting all of this nostalgic talk in Jin's face. He continues on, saying the commander was colder back then, but oddly enough, it was charming. Then he annoyingly tells the commander that it's nice to spend time with him, and he doesn't want to leave. Okay, dude, we get it. You guys had a history. The commander cuts right through all the fluff BS and asks him, if he had all these feelings, then why not join the guild? Pointing out that it sounds good until he has to spend time with the commander all the time. That statement struck a chord with Jin, and the commander backtracks, saying he's joking and acknowledging that it's his NSA contract that is the determining factor. Yujin clarifies that if it wasn't for the NSA, he would join the guild. He tells the commander that if he was an S-class Esper, he would have chosen him no matter what. Jin is hearing all this, and it's clear that he's feeling anxious because this dude is squeezing his cup like he's training forearms. The commander hears all of the praises from Yinju and turns savage. He leans in and tells Yujin that it's too bad he has all those feelings because he's not his guide anymore. Jin is his bondage partner now. Both Jin and Yujin are completely stunned. Yujin admits he belongs to the commander, and our boy is right there gripping his cup, taking every word of that in. The commander is surprised to hear Yujin felt that way about him. Yujin accepts the bondage partner situation gracefully, admitting that if the partner is a guild member, then the guide has more say. But he's not leaving empty-handed and reminds the commander that he said he needed help today. The commander brushes it off and glances over at Jin. The commander starts to say, "If by any chance my guide happens," and just as he's saying that, Jin springs up and interrupts, spilling his tea all over himself. The commander checks if he's okay, and he says he's fine. The commander believes he isn't and does some magical hocus-pocus shit over his pants, and it dried immediately. The commander then instructs him to take his pants off. Jin is shocked by the command, but the commander quickly backtracks, saying they should just wash it with cold water. Then the commander gets extra AF, carrying Jin to the bathroom like he just sprained his ankle. Jin is telling him he's really okay, but the commander is not trying to hear that. All the while, Yujin is standing there with a shocked look on his face, wondering what the actual F. The commander carries him to the bathroom and tells him to go on and take his pants off because he's worried about him. I mean, he just spilled tea on his pants. Bro is acting like he just had a life-threatening injury. Anyway, Jin is struggling to get his pants off, fumbling around with his belt buckle while still insisting he's really okay. But this man tells him he'll be the one to decide that. The commander offers to help, and down the pants go. The commander's eyes light up like he's looking at the winning numbers on a lottery ticket. Jin is confused because the burn is on his thigh, so why the freak is this man staring at his crotch? The commander comments that it's a bit red but says it's a good thing it's not serious and warns it'll probably sting for a few days. Well, we all knew it wasn't that serious, commander. Jin tells him it doesn't hurt at all, but the commander warns him he might feel the heat later, splashes cold water on the burn, and asks if it's better. Jin thanks him and the commander is relieved, joking that he was about to spray Jin down with a hose if the wound was bad. Then he presses down on Jin's thigh and our boy flinches, telling him he can handle it himself. The commander hits him with those golden eyes and insists that he does it for him. The commander is replaying Yujin's words about belonging to him but then gets totally turned off by it, thinking how can a guy like him even utter those words? Jin could feel the energy and our boy tells the commander that Yujin is probably waiting for him. In his head, Jin is crying to himself and thinking he's an idiot for saying that. The commander couldn't care less about Yujin, telling Jin that he's more concerned about his guide being injured. Jin doesn't exactly know how to take that comment, asking him to repeat himself. The commander confirms that Jin heard him right. He's the damn guide. The commander starts stroking Jin's hair and admits they're only pretending to be bondage partners, but he's been protecting Jin as if he were actually his guide this whole time. Our boy goes silent and starts blushing. The commander asks what he was going to say earlier before he interrupted. After being told he's the guide, Jin is now hesitant to say what he was really going to say. As he's about to say something, the commander notices the white piece of paper in Jin's pocket and grabs it. He looks at it and asks Jin what it is. Jin panics and tries to snatch it, claiming it was nothing. But the commander sees the big bold letters across the top, resignation letter. The commander is taken aback for a second, saying that he guesses this was his decision after all. But he quickly gets over it, telling Jin that it's a pity, but he understands, and he instructs our boy to put his pants on. Jin tries to explain himself, but the commander emphatically says out loud what Jin told him at the start of this whole thing. He didn't want to be involved in anything dangerous, which is precisely why he chose their guild. The commander apologizes and tells Jin the only reason he told him the truth was because he didn't want to keep lying to him, and he hopes Jin won't be too upset about it. Jin tries to correct the record, telling the commander that he has it all wrong. Before he can do that, the commander tells Jin that he accepts his resignation letter, and he plans to pay him the money he's owed for this month. The commander turns and walks away, telling our boy that the money should be enough for a year so he doesn't have to worry about spamming LinkedIn because, I mean, it's a hard economy right now. The commander thanks him for everything he's done for the team and leaves. Either this man has genuinely changed or doing nothing is the manipulation because he knows exactly what walking away does to someone like Jin. Our boy starts rationalizing resignation. He knows if he leaves, the commander is going to ask Yujin for help anyway, so there's still a guide so he doesn't have to feel guilty about that. Plus, he won't have to worry about being pressured into deeper guiding. He believes everything will work out. And yet, the commander's deep psychological mind games work because our boy grabs the commander's arm. He calls out to the commander, but before he can utter another word, he just thinks to himself that he simply doesn't want to lose him to another guide. He looks the commander in the eyes and tells him he wants to take back his resignation letter. The commander asks him why, like he hasn't been running a whole psychological operation to get Jin to this exact moment. He asks if Jin wants to stay in the guild, and Jin says yes, even knowing how dangerous things are about to get. The commander presses him because this is the same Jin who was terrified of S-Class Espers yesterday, and now he's volunteering for a self-deletion mission. Jin admits that yeah, he hates the idea of putting himself in danger, but he also doesn't want to quit right now. And the second those words leave his mouth, the commander's golden eyes start glowing because he knows he's got him. Internally, the commander can't help but notice how naive and innocent Jin looks, but what's coming to the forefront is the damn smell that Jin is releasing. The commander politely asks Jin to stop releasing the scent because it's been overwhelming, and really can't keep it together right now, so it has to be switched off. Jin gulps and the commander catches it immediately, smirking and telling Jin he can hardly contain himself, questioning if Jin is testing his patience. Jin is sweating and tells him no. He's not doing this on purpose and he has no control over his scent. The commander stands in front of Jin, asks him if he even understands what he's saying. Our naive boy is confused, so the commander clarifies that the fact that he can't control it means that he's being aroused. The commander then questions if this whole thing is weird because why would you be aroused by him? Jin stutters, reminding the commander that he can smell his scent too. The commander laughs at that, telling Jin that he didn't release today. But then the commander's light bulb goes off, and he puts it all together. This is happening because Jin has feelings for him. Jin looks completely lost and now wonders to himself if he has feelings for him. He can't process this whole idea quick enough and starts blushing like crazy. The commander thinks to himself that at this point his face is going to burst from all this blushing. Jin questions if this is how it all works. The commander leans in and puts the pressure on Jin, asking him if he's feeling him and aggressively demands answers. He puts his knee in between Jin's legs, and just then, Jin demands that he stops and attempts to push him away. The commander doesn't know what he's doing wrong, but he doesn't stop pushing the pressure on him for answers, once again asking if he has feelings for him. Jin finally responds, saying he doesn't know. The commander grabs Jin and points out Jin always seems to not know anything, hence why we call him our confused little boy. Because of his damn confusion, the commander asks him if he has to teach him everything. The commander pushes harder toward Jin, telling him that it's very clear his face is saying yes, but he keeps pushing him away. On top of that, he comes back asking to guide him. Jin tries to explain himself, but the commander cuts him off, picks him up, and asks if he's trying to seduce him. The whole situation catches him by surprise. The commander tells him that he must be aroused and he can't really control himself in a public bathroom. Once again, Jin tries to explain himself, but the commander cuts him off again, asking if he wants to make him feel good. Jin starts to feel guilty, suggesting he's the reason that the commander is aroused. As the intensity increases and the commander's eyes get golden, Jin walks in and is completely upset with what he's seeing. He screams, "What the heck are these guys doing?" Jin panics and immediately starts apologizing, and the commander tells Jin that apologizing is a bad habit. Jin tells the commander this is completely unfair. He came all this way here because the commander asked for his help, and now he's acting like he doesn't exist. The commander looks at Jin and tells him although he wants to act like the White Knight and seem like an angel, the only reason he's really here is because he's bored down at NSA. Jin doesn't understand what the commander is saying, so the commander clarifies, saying that Mr. Shin is boring and has nothing provocative about him. Jin tells him to watch his mouth, but the commander keeps going and reminds him that there's only ever one reason an Esper asks a guide for help. Jin asks what he's getting at, and the commander says they both came today wanting the same thing, but the situation has changed. Jin argues that he's the only S-Class guide who can handle his strange trait, and the commander agrees that it used to be true but tells him that's no longer the case. Then the commander puts the exclamation mark on this whole situation. He pulls Jin close and announces that his guide has decided to help him instead. He turns to Jin and asks him to confirm, holding our boy like a trophy he just won at auction. Jin is frozen with chills running down his spine because he just became a pawn and a prize in the same sentence. The commander leans in and whispers that there's no turning back now. The commander is poking Jin's cheek and calling him cute, and our boy flinches, but this man keeps going, poking him and telling him he's really cute. Jin is thinking to himself, if he hears this one more time, he's going to explode. And it's not a good explosion. Flat is disgusted as well, telling them to cut it out because it's making him cringe. It's to the point where Flat asks if the commander took his meds today. The commander doesn't see the issue because to him, Jin being cute is just facts. Flat isn't quite sure why the commander is acting all lovey-dovey with Jin. Koda is not sure either, but Cherney chimes in, saying the commander was already like this when he showed up and even smacked him when he tried to get close to Jin. Flat warns them that people might get the wrong idea and think they're actually together. Being the overconfident, sarcastic prick that he is, the commander just cuddles up even closer to Jin to prove a point. Koda took the gesture seriously and asks if they are in fact dating. The commander says that they are, while Jin vehemently denies it. Flat is equally confused, and then the commander puts on his best Oscar performance, gaslighting Jin with puppy dog eyes, asking Jin if they're not dating anymore, and accusing him of playing with his heart. Jin has no idea what the F this guy is talking about. He thinks to himself that, yay, the Yu-Jin situation was weird, and he rescinded his resignation papers to help the guild. But how does that equate to dating? The commander takes this as an opportunity to rewrite history, claiming that their rendezvous in the bathroom was the start of their dating. Jin is so embarrassed that he slaps the commander's hand away and tells him to stop saying weird things because he's giving everyone the wrong idea. The commander responds by licking Jin's hand, because why not? Flat steps in and tells the commander to stop messing with Jin, and Cherney backs him up. Yeah, it's fun to tease someone like our boy, but the commander always takes it too far. The commander insists he's not joking and they really are dating. Cherney isn't buying it and asks why Jin doesn't seem to know they're together. Jin is lost and confused by all of this and turns to commander, asking when they agreed to go out. The commander acts like it's the most obvious thing in the world and says it was the moment Jin told him he had feelings for him. Jin denies ever saying that. The commander fires back that Jin didn't have to spell it out because his actions were screaming it. Every time our boy saw him with Yu-Jin, his eyes would get all sad and droopy, not to mention that look Jin gave him in the restroom. Jin is dying of embarrassment, begging the commander to please stop talking. The commander agrees, telling everyone that if his guide wants him to shut his mouth, he'll shut it, but of course he can't resist adding that if Jin ever wants him to open it again, he'll spread it nice and wide. Jin really did not need to hear that, but the commander took it as an opportunity to express the pride he has in himself for being a great listener to his partner, and that Jin is lucky to have him. Jin is still processing all of this and tells the commander he doesn't understand what he's talking about. The commander breaks it down to him slowly and asks point blank if Jin has feelings for him. Jin knows that if he dodges this question again, they're going to be stuck in this loop forever, so he asks what happens if he says yes. The commander lays out that if the feelings run both ways, they should be dating. Jin questions the whole thought process, but particularly gets caught on the word mutual because this man has never once told Jin he liked him. Never. Jin is still stuck on the commander asking whether he'd never mentioned it before, and starts processing in his mind that he never did, not once, because he would have definitely remembered that. The commander can see the blank look on Jin's face as he's processing the whole conversation and asks him to confirm that he's never told him. Jin knows for a fact he would have remembered because he would have been replaying those words in his head on repeat for days, even if he said it in passing. The commander realizes he actually never did say it and lets him know now. He confesses to Jin that he really likes him and asks Jin to go out with him. Cherney and Flat are mean-mugging the commander, wondering what the F just happened. Fast forward, and the commander sent his new boo a text, making sure he got home safe. It's been 10 minutes and our boy hasn't replied. The commander is thinking maybe he's thinking of what to say. Cherney and Flat corner the commander and ask him seriously, what was up? Does he really have feelings for the commander? Cherney says there's no way this is real. The commander asks them if it even matters and tells the boys not to waste their energy on thinking about it. So he shoots his shot and asks our boy out on a date for tomorrow. The commander laughs about the whole situation and internally is thinking about getting into a relationship with our boy just so he won't quit. Flat must be telepathic, or the commander's actions are just completely obvious, because Flat calls out the exact plan. The commander tries to gaslight him, saying his observation was his problem. Cherney adds his 2 cents. How the old commander would tell them dating is a waste of time, but now he's falling for someone in a few months. The commander just looks at the two of them sternly, but internally, he knows they are right. He knows his main objective is to keep Jin until they enter the SS-class dungeon. The commander even admits to himself that without that objective, our boy is just a cutie pie with some special moments and a sweet scent. The commander thinks further to himself, considering how cute Jin is, he would have given him a chance, but nothing serious. The commander's thoughts shift to something almost empathetic, contemplating how Jin will take it once they split. That thought soon comes back to the reality that we're dealing with an SS-class narcissist because he's only concerned with how Jin will feel because he knows Jin really likes him. He's sure he'll be heartbroken and cry, but it's all worth it. And the sick F is kind of looking forward to it. Just then, Jin responds to the commander's earlier text about a date. He confirms that he'll see him tomorrow. The commander smirks at the professional response, wondering if this is a date or a business meeting. The commander shifts gears and tells the guild to quietly deal with whoever is chasing the NSA bounty, keep a low profile, and take care of each other. He tells them to enjoy the peace while they still can because they'll be entering hell real soon. Now that the two of them were an actual item, Jin kept quietly turning over what that even made them. His whole life, everyone had slotted neatly into espers or regular civilians, and the espers into the ones he was mated to or the ones he was simply obligated to guide. That had always been the entire list, and nothing had ever landed outside it. Andante had gone and blown a clean hole through it, carving out a brand new category all his own, one that came out as the exact opposite of being mated. And the way Jin figured it, they liked each other, so there was not a whole lot to chew on. One nod had sealed the thing, and if it had come together this easily, some cool, detached corner of his brain assumed it could probably come apart just as easily too. So the morning of their first official date rolled around, and the GigaChad was already posted up outside Jin's building, draped over his car like a cologne ad that had grown a pulse, tossing our sweetheart a greeting like it was the most casual thing in the world. Jin, predictably, short-circuited on sight and could barely shove the greeting back out before Andante tugged him in close and pressed a kiss to his forehead, coaxing him to loosen up because it was only a date. Then he pointed them toward the car, figuring our sweet little guide had not eaten yet, so they might as well get going. Only a date. Easy words from the man walking around with a face card that scores straight tens. He had booked out a private, ocean view Korean spot and reserved their very best course, and he had made a point of picking a table tucked off in the corner because he figured Jin would want the quiet. When he checked that the seat was all right, our cutie pie could only manage that it was all good, and Andante seemed genuinely pleased to hear it. And that was about when it started sinking in for Jin. The view, the food, every last detail was laid out exactly the way he liked it. This was a man who never looked all that interested in the people around him, so Jin had never once expected him to have quietly filed away the offhand things he had let slip in passing, right down to his soft spot for Korean food, which naturally set off the mental gymnastics our sweet little overthinker is famous for. Did the man actually have feelings for him? And even if he did, why on earth would someone like Andante fall for someone like Jin? He had been gnawing on that exact question since the day before and could not put it down. Could the strange, hard-to-pin-down feeling that welled up every single time he laid eyes on the man really count as love? Or was he just mixing up plain old gratitude towards someone he owed for something bigger than it actually was? Had agreeing to date him even been the right move when Jin could not so much as name what he felt? He still did not have an answer to a single piece of it. But sitting across from him today had at least made one thing crystal clear. He was, without a shred of doubt, attracted to the man. Andante, of course, clocked the entire silent soap opera playing out behind Jin's eyes and asked what had him so lost in thought. And of course our sweetheart brushed it off and swore it was nothing, all while his brain flat out refused to quiet down for even a second. So the man leaned in and started needling. Was Jin sitting there second-guessing whether Andante's feelings were the real deal, or was it the other way around, with our sweet little guide doubting his own? It landed a little too square on the target, and Jin honestly started to wonder whether the guy could read minds. Andante just kept right on going, telling him that once you actually sat down and looked at him properly, Jin wore every last emotion right there on his face. Our cutie pie blinked at that and admitted nobody had ever said such a thing to him before. And the man topped it without missing a beat, noting that nobody had ever bothered to look at him this closely in the first place. When Jin, genuinely stumped, wondered what reason anyone would even have to look at him, the GigaChad reeled off a list, guiding, for one. And past that, Jin was simply the type who pulled focus without lifting a finger to earn it. Sailing clean over the flirtation like it was a low bridge, our sweetheart informed him he was fairly sure the man had just finished describing himself, because from where Jin sat, people were forever sneaking looks at Andante wherever he went. He was handsome, he had great style, and sure enough, off in the background, a little knot of strangers was doing exactly that, whispering behind their hands and stealing glances. Andante, thoroughly delighted, asked if that was really how Jin saw him, then. Handsome, stylish, and full of expressions. Our sweet little guide confirmed as much and then immediately fumbled a retreat, because hearing it all read back out loud made it land like something it was not supposed to be. The man snatched the opening right up and asked whether that meant Jin liked him for the first reason then. Because he was handsome. Our cutie pie short-circuited so violently he could only sit there frozen, and the server interrupted that thought at the perfect moment, coming over to set down the first course and wish them a good meal. And the second Jin returned the server's little well-wish and stuck the word commander onto the end of it out of sheer reflex, Andante was on him. That title had to go now that the two of them were dating. Our sweetheart, who had genuinely not clocked that signing up for a relationship also meant renegotiating what he was allowed to call the man, asked what he was supposed to say instead. When Andante tossed out sir as an option, Jin pretty clearly read it as sounding like a quarterly performance review, so the man scrapped it himself for landing too much like a boss and told him to reach for something warmer. Going pink and leaning hard on the fact that Andante's class ID sheet had pegged him as the elder of the two, our sweet little guide floated "Hey young." Nice enough, the GigaChad allowed, but he was angling for something a good deal more endearing, and as luck would have it, he had a whole short list locked and loaded, and then he opened fire. My love, darling, baby, boo, and, for the finishing blow, the Aegyo baby names Hayo Hayo and Dan Dan. He wanted to know which one Jin preferred. Our cutie pie, whose soul had left his body somewhere back around option 2, quietly concluded he would not be surviving a single one of them. When Andante cheerfully announced he was partial to Hayo Hao himself, since it was like calling a little puppy, Jin could only weakly ask why, and then plead to just be left alone with Hao Young. Ever the gracious one, the man floated a treaty. He would call Jin baby. Our darling could get away with Ha Young, and since the two of them had all the time in the world, he would keep workshopping the rest. He figured the whole business felt awkward for Jin right now anyway, so Ha Young would do just fine until the pet name stopped feeling like a felony. Thoroughly steamrolled, our sweet little guide nodded along. Then the mood downshifted. Andante noticed Jin had set his spoon back down and gone quiet, and asked why he was not eating. Our sweetheart admitted his appetite had been running on fumes lately, which had the man asking if he was sick before pivoting to something a good deal more knowing. Did Jin not get those days too? The ones where the whole body turns heavy and wound too tight at the same time, where the scent comes off stronger than usual. Coloring a little, our cutie pie caught on that he had to be talking about the fevers. Exactly those, Andante agreed, and in his own effortlessly graceful phrasing he tacked on that it ran especially hot below the belt, and laughed off any amount of medication. He wanted to know how it treated Jin, who owned up to the same affliction, with the extra headache that has tended to strike at random, and with zero warning. To Andante, the whole thing was frankly absurd, the pair of them stuck with stretches where their drive just rocketed through the roof for no good reason. Jin explained that he usually white-knuckled his way through it on stabilizers, and when the man asked if he meant the ones the more sensitive guides like to lean on, our sweetheart confirmed it. They did not wipe the symptoms out entirely, but they at least let him move through a day like a functioning person. Andante doubted the pills would put so much as a dent in an esper like himself, but said he was glad they did right by Jin all the same. And here, of all places, is where our sweet little guide finally scraped together some nerve. Pulse going a mile a minute, he asked when Andante's cycle usually rolled around. And when the man asked what had him so curious, our sweetheart worked himself right up to the very edge of offering to help him through it, telling himself that being a couple had to mean he could actually be there for the man during those stretches. But Andante headed him off before he could get a single word of it out. He gently told Jin not to worry, because he honestly was not expecting any help from him. He knew full well, he reminded our sweetheart, that Jin's one condition from the very first day had always been that he would never do more than basic physical guiding, and he swore he fully intended to respect that all the way to the very end, which left Jin asking what exactly that was supposed to mean. Cue the wink. A relationship with zero boom shakalaka, the man confirmed, as breezy as if he were suggesting they split a dessert, the bedroom rewards left clean off the menu. He really did believe the two of them were perfect for each other, he added, on account of wanting all the very same things. And there it was, the whole arrangement wrapped up in a wink and handed over like a gift. So what was our sweetheart going to say to that? Did he not agree? The two lovebirds moved on to the movie portion of their date, though Jin wasn't watching a second of it. The film played on in front of him while his mind stayed stuck on the line. Andante had dropped at the end of their meal the offer to date with all the bedroom stuff left out of it. He couldn't shake it. He'd been so thrilled that the two of them were finally a couple that he'd never once stopped to think about what came after. Now that they were together, some amount of this and that was bound to come up eventually, wasn't it? And even though Andante already knew about his special trait, Jin had a feeling the man wouldn't really understand it until he got a look at his body. So maybe, he told himself, keeping things strictly hands-off really was the safer road. But right on the heels of that came the next worry. If they cut all of that out, how was Andante supposed to get through his next cycle? The man had said medication did nothing for an esper like him. And Jin knew how vicious it got. A craving that takes a person over completely, where you lose track of who or how many you end up tangled with, and worst of all, where nothing you do ever satisfies it. Sipping his soda, our sweetheart figured that sure, riding it out alone wasn't technically impossible. It was just a painful way to survive it, and it sucks, no pun intended. And that was the part he couldn't explain to himself. Why was he this worried about the man's problem? This was the exact thing he'd spent his whole life avoiding, the kind of thing that should have had him panicking. He was so deep in his own head that he didn't even notice Andante lean in until a low voice at his ear, calling him babe, snapped him back. When the Giga Chad asked whether the movie was boring him, Jin jolted and swore it wasn't. Then, without warning, Andante folded Jin's hand into his own. Our sweetheart startled, but the man only nodded him back toward the screen to keep watching. A moment later, that thumb began slowly stroking the back of his hand, and Jin flinched, thinking Andante had been the one to promise they wouldn't do this kind of thing. His scent gave him away, slipping loose before he could rein it in. By the time the movie let out and the two of them stepped back into the corridor, Jin realized he couldn't remember a single thing about it. Andante wanted to know what they should do now. It was their first date, he pointed out, and they'd already run the basics of a meal and a film. So the rest of it was Jin's to pick, whatever he felt like doing. Jin turned it over in his head and came up empty. For the life of him, he couldn't name one single thing. So Andante tried a different angle and asked how our sweetheart usually spent his weekends. The answer was painfully domestic. Groceries, a bit of meal prep, some cleaning, a little exercise. That last part caught the Giga Chad's interest, and when Jin shyly admitted it was only some light bodyweight training at home, Andante raked a slow look over him and decided that explained the nice body. Jin scrambled to deny having any such thing, but the man shot back that he'd already seen it for himself. Since Jin was such a homebody, Andante suggested they simply spend the day at his place, somewhere he'd actually be comfortable. But the idea sent a nervous jolt through our sweetheart. It would be nice to go home, sure. Except that would mean the two of them completely alone, and the thought of that alone left him rattled. The Giga Chad pressed on, reasoning that if they were going to spend the whole day together, they might as well do it wherever Jin felt at ease. All Jin could manage was that there was nothing to do at his place. That was exactly the opening Andante had been waiting for. He leaned in and suggested, smooth as anything, that in that case the two of them could always get in a little bodyweight training of their own. Together, wouldn't that be more fun? For once Jin caught the meaning tucked under the words and read to the ears. He begged the man not to say things like that out in the open. That just got him a question about whether indoors was fair game. Then it absolutely was not. The funny part, Andante pointed out, thoroughly pleased with himself, was that Jin used to miss lines like that completely, and now here he was catching everyone. Jin fired back that the man said such things constantly so anyone would wise up eventually, which only had the Giga Chad calling it a real shame since clueless Jin had been so unbearably cute. And that was the cue for our sweetheart's mind to start spinning the way it always did. For all the man's big talk, Jin figured if he ever actually said yes, Andante would scrounge up 100 excuses to squirm out of it. He kept dangling the idea of getting closer, then snatching it back the second Jin reached for it. What could he be hiding, Jin wondered, to stay this guarded? For all he knew, this whole relationship was nothing more than a fun little game to the man. And yet the simple fact that he kept picking apart every little thing Andante did probably meant that underneath it all he really did want to know him better. Anyway, Andante circled back to the plan. The dates he was used to, he admitted, usually wrapped up at a house or a hotel, but he obviously couldn't take Jin to a hotel. Then something lit up in his eyes and he wondered whether Jin might like to see his old office. When Jin asked if he meant the one out by the ocean, Andante confirmed it and swore it would be fun. Somewhere on the way over, our sweetheart caught himself wondering just how different it would be from the office the two of them shared now. Different was putting it kindly. Where they ended up was a bombed-out, deserted corner of the city, and Jin could only look around at the ruins and wonder how on earth an office could exist in a place like this. He went to get Andante's attention and out of pure habit reached for the old commander, only to be gently scolded that he was supposed to be going with Babe now, or Ha-young if that one came easier. Cornered and glowing red, our sweetheart finally forced out a tiny mortified Ha-young. It won him a huge delighted grin. And then purely to torment him, Andante answered that shy little Ha-young by calling him Babe right back. Still half sure the two of them were hopelessly lost out here. Jin kept scanning the wreckage, unable to picture an office in any of it, and Andante only laughed and promised this was exactly the right spot. He led our sweetheart down a cramped alley to a door, and waiting on the other side of it was an office that to Jin's shock looked worlds nicer inside than the neighborhood ever let on. Andante waved him in to get comfortable, warning there wasn't much to the place, then crossed to the blinds and let the view do the talking. At the very least it had that going for it. The ocean actually ran clean through the middle of the city, the aftermath of some item pulled out of the S-Class dungeon. It looked like a lake at a glance, but every drop of it was the sea. Over at the window, Jin had to admit the man wasn't exaggerating. From up here you could watch the waves themselves rolling in, and that was the moment something started nagging at the back of his memory. He was fairly sure he'd heard of a place just like this once before. A ghost town drowned and abandoned after a gate tore open and let the ocean pour in to swallow it whole. A dead city ringed all around by black water. The kind of place that even the people who knew the way inside went well out of their way to avoid. Slowly the pieces of it slid into place, and the color drained from Jin's face. Hesitant, half afraid of the answer, he turned to Andante and asked whether this was the underworld. Andante answers without missing a beat and confirms that this piece of shit place used to be Onape's old base. When Jin asks if that means Onape is part of the Darkness Guild, Andante cups his cheek and asks him not to use that embarrassing name. They're just part of the underworld, which our sweetheart knows is the same thing dressed up nicer. Either way, the guild he's been guiding this whole time is a criminal organization. Andante explains the rest right there. The Darkness Guild is nearly impossible to leave once you join. He figures Jin already suspected as much. Since a pack of S-class espers could never pass a C-class through normal means, they needed new identities and new names, and there was no way to gather the dungeon cores while actually living like a lowly C-class. They needed to work in the shadows, and the underworld gave them that. He adds that the only ones allowed to join are criminals or people who've wiped their existence off the map entirely, so there's no way to verify who any ONAPE member really is. So Jin asks him straight up whether all of them are criminals. Andante says Flat told him not to use that word and settles on half-criminals instead, since they technically do illegal things. He asks our sweetheart if any of this is scaring him, but Jin shakes his head. It isn't fear, it's that everything finally makes sense now. Why guiding this whole guild always drained him so badly. The core is all of it. That genuinely seems to please Andante, who assures him that being part of the underworld changes nothing between them, and that he can relax knowing they don't do anything he'd frown upon. Their one and only goal is the SS-class dungeon. This is where Andante gets slippery. He tells Jin he left something behind in that dungeon. When our sweetheart points out that leaving something there means he had to have been inside it, Andante turns it into a question instead, asking how much Jin even knows about the SS-class dungeon. About as much as anyone, Jin figures, so Andante asks if he knows that no Esper ever made it out of there alive, which is exactly why the place is so infamous. He tells Jin that's his answer, then asks if that means Jin's never been there himself. But our sweetheart won't let it go, because the two things don't add up. Andante just said nobody survived that dungeon, yet it doesn't sound like a lie that he left something in it. Andante only smiles and tells him both are true. He really did leave something behind there, and not a single Esper ever made it out alive. Jin catches how strange that is. Andante laid out everything else without blinking, and now all of a sudden he's talking in circles. Our sweetheart has a dozen more questions, but he decides he doesn't have the nerve to ask a single one yet. Andante softens after that. He tells Jin it's nice getting to come back here with him. The rest of the guild hated that black ocean, but he always liked it the way the dark pebbles under the water make it look like night even in the morning. Then he brightens and suggests that since Jin's seen the old office, they should grab a coffee nearby. Our sweetheart can't help to think how this dead city could possibly have a decent cafe, but apparently this town still has businesses most people don't know about. There's one close by run by a one-eyed man who, in Andante's words, looks like he'd sooner eat you than serve you, but somehow makes a great cup of coffee. The new couple are holding hands, walking to the coffee shop when Jin finally asks why Andante is telling him all this. Andante tries claiming it's because they're dating, and our sweetheart shuts that down, telling him to quit lying. He doesn't like how Andante keeps testing him. Andante apologizes if it came off that way. He only wanted to hear Jin's thoughts, and he has questions of his own. But he won't go digging, he's never cared about anyone else's secrets, so whatever Jin's hiding, he's welcome to keep it. He kisses the back of our sweetheart's hand and reminds him that both of them knew from the start that the other was hiding something. Jin manages a tiny mortified Hamyoung. Andante calls him babe in return, then tells him he's really hoping the next thing out of his mouth is a love confession, which is textbook love bombing. And by now we know the commander is a master at this. Our sweetheart, as usual, is left speechless. The man has a real gift for that. Then Andante circles back to the actual reason. He wishes it were just because they're dating and because Jin decided to help them out. But the truth is, lately more and more Espers have been slipping into the underworld to hunt for them. The NSA is after the ones who stole the dungeon cores, and they already know around 4 S-class Espers from the underworld are behind it. Andante figures Jin should know, since from here on they'll have to keep an eye on anyone poking around after them. So Jin asks if it isn't dangerous for the two of them to even be here right now. Andante tells him no, it's fine. Actually, he says he's been thinking they should join the search themselves. Jin can only ask him what he means. That's when the two of them hear it. A hooded figure is crouched not far off, and Andante turns toward it, curious. The commander gets charming and sarcastic at the same time, thinking that it's just their luck that they've run into someone this suspicious looking, seeing as they're the ones out hunting that 10 billion won bounty, and nobody's made a lick of progress so far. The hooded figure doesn't say a word, so Andante thanks him too for walking right up to them. The next moment, the hooded figure is doubled over, a small dagger clutched in one gloved hand, looking like he just got stabbed. Catching sight of the blade, Jin wonders what the heck is going on and if he's injured. Then the figure surges back up, rushes them, and stabs Andante in the shoulder. Jin is shook, concerned about the commander. The guy runs off, but Andante himself, bleeding, somehow seems completely unbothered and not in pain, calling what just happened an interesting turn of events. Leave it to this Giga Chad to get stabbed and think it's interesting. I stub my toe walking into the kitchen, and I'm screaming, ready to call 911. Anyway, he pulls the blade out and checks with Jin, asking if he also thinks this is interesting. And our sweetie doesn't say it. I'm going to go on a limb and say no, Andante. Getting stabbed is not interesting. A second later, an NSA agent comes sprinting up, cursing that they lost their targets, and stops cold at the sight of Andante. He asks what ONAPE's commander is doing all the way out here. Andante does his classic move, answering a question with a question, asking what brings the NSA to this shady place. The agent says they came on their commander's orders. Then he asks if Andante's after the bounty too, and explains that they were gathering information when they ran into a suspicious individual. It clicks, and he asks whether Andante actually fought them. Andante just asks, all innocent, why he wants to know and whether the guy was one of the wanted criminals. The agent tells him that Esper was clearly an S-class and that he's lucky things didn't escalate, since he'd almost certainly be dead if he tried to fight. Andante acts all dumb, going wide-eyed about how awful that would have been, but lets the NSA know that the S-class was in a hurry, and the commander shows the NSA a cloth of evidence from the strangely convenient little attack. Andante asks if the agent got a good look at the guy's face, and the second he says yes, offers to have a sketch drawn up right there. The agent seems a little slow, asking if he means for free. Andante tells him to go let Haychange know that ONAPE's commander saw the wanted Esper himself, and that's when this poor bastard starts grinding his teeth, realizing he's been played by Andante. Well, don't feel too bad, bro. Everyone is getting cooked by Andante in this comic. Anyway, Andante hands over the cloth that the attacker dropped, calling it a little gift. Jin is still caught up in his feelings about this whole thing, asking about the wound, but Andante tells him to chill and seems pissed that Jin is even concerned. Okay, sir, you get stabbed on your first date, and your new boyfriend cares, and this is a bad thing? Lord, this relationship is already starting off toxic. Okay, my rant is over. Back to the story. Andante suggests that they forget about this whole thing and get coffee, leaving Jin wondering if this man is enjoying all this drama. So the next day, everybody is back at the guild and Cherney is already right up in our sweetheart's face, demanding the truth. He is dead certain Jin skipped out on work to go spend the day with the commander. Jin freezes, quietly panicking, trying to work out how Cherney could even know, wondering if the guy somehow caught the two of them together. He goes to explain himself, but Cherney has zero interest in the boring version. He leaps straight to the conclusion he is hoping for, totally convinced the two of them finally hooked up for real this time. Jin nearly dies on the spot. In Cherney's mind, there is no other reason they would both ditch work, and he keeps pushing, trying to figure out how Jin is even walking around fine, whether he is just used to it by now or the commander took it easy on him. Jin shuts it down hard, insisting Andante would never, and swearing that nothing like that happened between them. Cherney is not buying it for a second. The way he sees it, the commander is no saint, and was never going to just leave Jin alone. He is winding up for an even worse theory when the man himself strolls in and kills the conversation dead, telling Cherney to lay off his baby with the nasty little assumptions. And our sweetheart just lights up. He shoots out of his seat and calls out for the commander, like a little kid whose dad just walked through the front door. Andante comes right over, checking that Jin is okay and saying he should have gotten there sooner, since putting up with a menace like Cherney could not have been fun. Cherney swears up and down he did not do anything, and the commander shuts that down too, letting him know he very much did. Then Andante leans in and kisses him on the forehead, and our sweetheart figures the man must have had a rough time back at the old office yesterday, judging by how thrilled he looks to see him now. Cherney, on the other hand, is genuinely sour about all of it. He is annoyed that he got shut down before he could squeeze out the spicy details of whatever he is convinced went down. Now Jin is watching this and something feels off to him. Normally the commander would jump all over a setup like this and run it into the ground for the fun of it, but today he is weirdly restrained, and Jin actually catches himself wondering if the guy somehow turned over a new leaf. He did not. The commander just tells Cherney he is barking up the wrong tree, then sets the record straight. Jin was only there as a bystander yesterday, and the one actually involved was somebody else. That is all Cherney's imagination needs. He hears three people and jumps straight to the filthiest version, gasping that it must have been a threesome and asking if he nailed it. And the commander, completely straight-faced, just lets him keep believing it. Cherney keeps digging, wanting to know who the third guy even was, then gets a little salty that it was not him tagging along instead. And right as he is complaining about it, the door creaks open and the commander dryly goes, "Speak of the devil." In walks Flat. Okay, I am just going to say this out loud real quick. This guy is way too good looking to be a side character. But alright, moving on. Cherney could not care less that Flat is late, He gets right in his face and asks if he actually did the deed with the commander, since apparently the two of them had themselves some kind of moment. Flat has no idea what he is talking about and just asks what he supposedly did with the commander. And somehow, that is all it takes for Cherney to gasp and decide this must mean Flat is the one on the bottom. Flat asks Cherney what in the world is wrong with him, then flatly tells the room he has no clue what any of this is and to back off today because he is not in the mood. He turns to Jin and asks for some guiding, since he is down a lot of blood after getting stabbed in the leg, courtesy of a certain someone he very pointedly does not name. The commander, who is a big reason Flat is in this state to begin with, asks all innocent whether it hurts a lot. Flat shoots the question down like it is the dumbest thing he has ever heard, since the blade was built for torture and ended up buried in his leg. Cherney cringes and pretends to care, and the commander instantly calls him out for faking it. Then it dawns on Cherney that the whole bloody stabbing situation was just a leg wound, and he checks out completely, deciding the conversation just got boring. Flat tells him to pipe down. He turns back to Jin and tells him to quit stalling because, looks aside, he really does need the guiding, so hurry it up. Jin gets right to it and takes his hand, the warm golden guiding light kicking in between their fingers. While it does its thing, Jin's mind drifts. He thought Flat had been doing better lately, but the guy is a wreck all over again, and that is when it clicks. The masked man from yesterday was Flat this whole time. The build had looked familiar and the commander clearly recognized him on sight, so Jin asked what he was even doing out there. Turns out the bounty hunters had been getting under his skin, so he decided to throw them off with some bogus information and put a scare into them while he was at it. Over at his desk, the commander is clearly listening in, and he just takes it in quietly. Flat squeezes Jin's hand and turns the question back around, asking what Jin himself was doing there. Jin explains the commander wanted to show him their old office. Flat catches on, places the spot, and figures the commander must have also told Jin about them being part of the Darkness Guild. Jin admits that he did, so Flat asks if that scares him. Jin asks why he is even asking, and Flat spells it out. Most people would be pretty shaken hearing all this, especially since Jin has no idea what they actually did to end up hiding away in a guild like this. He takes it further, floating the idea that maybe they have pulled off some genuinely monstrous, unforgivable things. But our sweet little guy does not so much as blink. The way he figures it, Onape's whole goal is just cracking into the SS-class dungeon. And besides, the commander already told him they are not caught up in anything criminal like that, which based on everything we know means bro is straight cappin', but Jin is not about to question it. Flat asks if he really just takes the guy at his word like that. And Jin kinda stalls because yeah, honestly doubting him never once crossed his mind. Andante had said it so seriously that Jin simply believed him and left it there. Our sweet baby is still this naive and we are already on chapter 38. I mean, when is he going to wake up? Anyway, Flat presses him one more time, straight up, on whether he is really not scared of them. Jin has been asked this exact thing before, and his answer has not moved an inch. He says it plainly. He is not afraid. The commander, still tuned in from across the room, quietly wonders why that is. Flat points out that Jin definitely seems scared of those other guys who claim to be Darkness Guild. And Jin's answer is simple. Those guys are not them. He admits Onape still comes across as a weird, shady little operation to him, but he honestly does not mind being here with all of them. He trusts what they have built together, and more than any of that, this was his choice. It is the first guild he ever picked for himself after getting out from under a life spent locked away. The first place that ever actually felt like his. Then his mind goes back to some advice he got once, that guildmates put their lives in each other's hands the second they step into a dungeon. So if you want to belong somewhere new, you have to be the one to trust first. And bit by bit, everyone starts leaning on you back. A younger Jin had asked if it really worked that way, and whoever told him just laughed and said of course it does because he is a sweet kid. Back in the room, Jin lands the thought out loud. So no, he is not afraid. Flat just looks at him and realizes our sweetheart is just built different. He goes to say as much, but the commander has hit his limit and drops a hand right on top of theirs, calling it with a smile. That is enough guiding for one day. Flat does not look thrilled about it, and Jin is suddenly sweating, though it is hard to say whether that is nerves or something else. Then Flat catches the sound of footsteps and says someone is coming. The commander, totally confident, just tells the boys it is an S-class and not to be nervous, because he is the one who invited him. And in walks that same man from before, the one who showed up while Jin was digging through the papers. Shinhei Chang, commander of the NSA.